The day I got my early admission notice from Tsinghua, I threw away all my textbooks. The campus heartthrob at the next table looked like he'd just swallowed a fly. True, the one who copied my answers for 3 years suddenly realized the answer machine was about to disappear. The moment he slapped me in front of everyone, the whole class applauded him. I rubbed my face. All right, then let your genius campus heartthrob take the exam himself. Chapter 1, in the second semester of senior year, with only 43 days left until the college entrance exam. As I walked into the classroom, I was carrying a bag of trash, to be precise, all of my textbooks, notes, and workbooks from the past 3 years. Feng Yan spotted me in the back row and jumped up from his seat. Shinchi, what are you doing? Moving house. I just set the bag down next to the trash can. I'm not taking the exam, I said it very softly. But the classroom suddenly fell silent for a second. Pei Mingxian, sitting next to me, was correcting his mock exam paper with a red pen. When his pen tip paused for a moment, I noticed his knuckles were slightly white. Teacher Zhao hasn't arrived yet, but the class monitor can't hold back anymore. Shinchi, what are you talking about? Not taking the exam? Do you think the college entrance exam is something you can just call off? I pulled the notice from my pocket, unfolded it, and laid it on the table. Tsinghua University, admission notice for direct entry, student Shinchi. The next of 3 rows of classmates around me turned almost simultaneously. A full 5 seconds of silence passed, then Feng Yan was the first to speak. Holy shit. Then came a buzzing sound. Recommended for admission. Him, isn't he usually average in his grade? No way. His best mock exam result was only around 50th place in the whole school. Don't you need a gold medal in a competition for a recommendation to Tsinghua? When did he? I put away the acceptance letter and turned to glance at Pei Mingxian. He sat there without moving. The expression on the face was complicated. There's a meme I once saw captioned, when you realize your food delivery has arrived, but your phone's dead and you can't pay. His expression right now is even more priceless than that, because he knows very well that I'm not just some average student in the grade. He copied every single subjective question from my mock exam papers, every time, every subject. Every one of them. The whole class thought Pei Mingxian was a genius. Heartthrob, consistently ranking in the top 3 of the grade without breaking a sweat. In fact, Pei Mingxian's actual academic level is somewhere outside the top 200 in the grade. The reason I always hovered around the 50th place was that I would finish my own paper first, then write a slightly inferior version for him to copy. Yes, I did it on purpose. The reason was simple. Back in my first year of high school, Pei Mingxian's father had given my family a heads up. At that time, my father had just arrived in the city and needed the Pei family support in business. One takes pleasure in hurting, the other in being hurt. But now it's different. With the admission notification in hand, my deal with the Pei family comes to an end right here. I'm not taking the college entrance exam. Who are you? Pei Mingxian, going to copy from. I watched his hand gripping the pen. My heart is still as a stagnant pond. 3 years, bro. It's time to fly on your own. Chapter 2, during the break between classes, Pei Mingxian came up to me. At the end of the hallway, there are fewer people. He leaned against the wall, wearing his signature gentle smile, the kind that made every girl in school swoon. Shinchi, you must be joking, right? Not taking the exam. I leaned against the wall on the other side, about 2 meters away from him. No joke. I got direct admission. No need to take the exam. He let out a laugh and said, I know. That's not what I meant. What I'm saying is, even if you don't need to take the exam, what's there to lose by giving it a shot? Just treat it as an experience. I looked at him. Pei Mingxian, since when did you start caring about me so much? The smile on his face froze for a split second, but he recovered quickly. We were desk mates for 3 years. I cut him off. Just say it. You won't do it without my answer, right? The hallway fell silent. Pei Mingxian's smile finally faltered. He stared at me for 3 seconds, then took a step back, shifted his stance, shoved his hands in his pockets, and lifted his chin. Shinchi, don't flatter yourself. I just think it'd be a shame if you didn't take the exam, I said. You've never solved the last big problem in the mock math exam on your own, the one combining derivatives and sequences, in the steps I gave you each time. The construction for the second part was a makeshift method I made up on the spot, something you won't find in any textbook. From your first year to your 3rd year of high school, the construction method you used for the last problem in every major exam was exactly the same as mine. The corner of his mouth twitched. Let me continue. You've been copying my English essays since sophomore year, but you never knew I had a habit. The first letters of the second sentence in the 3rd paragraph of every essay spell out a word. That time at the end of the first semester of sophomore year, they spelled FAK. You didn't notice. And neither did the grading teacher. Pei Mingxian's expression completely changed. That was no longer the face of the gentle campus heartthrob. It was the face of someone whose tail had just been stepped on. He took a step toward me. Shinchi, what the hell do you mean? I said. It's nothing much. Just letting you know I'm not taking the exam anymore. From now on, you're on your own. Then I turned around and walked back. A gust of wind behind me. Someone grabbed me by the hair at the back of my head, yanking me off balance. Before I realized what was happening. A slap landed on my face. Pei Mingxian was strong, so my whole body slammed into the wall, my ears ringing. When I looked at him again, he stood there, his chest heaving, his eyes full of rage. "You are not allowed to take the exam." His voice trembled. I touched the corner of my mouth and found a little blood on my finger. I stared at him for 2 seconds, then I smiled. "Pei Mingxian, why are you more anxious than my mom nagging me to do homework?" By this time, 7 or 8 people had gathered at the other end of the corridor. All of them are from our class. The scene before me, Pei Mingxian, the school heartthrob, stood there with fury written all over his face, while I slumped against the wall, blood trickling from the corner of my mouth. The squad leader was the first to speak. "What's wrong?" Pei Mingxian reacted swiftly, taking a deep breath, and his face instantly switched back to the heartbroken yet indignant good student mode. He said, "I really can't take it anymore. Xinqi got his early admission and just gave up on the college entrance exam. The teachers tried to talk him out of it so many times, but he wouldn't listen. The whole class has been working so hard preparing for the exam, and he just casually decides not to take it. What kind of attitude is that?" The onlookers exchanged bewildered glances, then someone started nodding. "Right, isn't he going too far? We're killing ourselves every day, and here he is, a guaranteed admit, just coasting along. And didn't the teacher say we're all a team?" Pei Mingxian was just trying to do what's best for the class, right? A girl even said, "Xinqi, even if you've already been admitted, you can't be this selfish, can you?" Pei Mingxian is right. I stood by the wall, watching this group of people. "Fine, you're all right. The one who struck had a reason, and the one who got hit had it coming. This logic is crystal clear." Feng Yin pushed through the crowd, spotted the blood at the corner of my mouth, and his eyes widened. "Fuck, who hit you?" I patted him on the shoulder. Let's go. Let's go." "It's nothing." Feng Yin turned his head to glance at Pei Mingxian, opened his mouth as if to say something, but I dragged him away. "No rush, really no rush." Chapter 3. Over the next 2 days, Pei Mingxian changed his strategy. He stopped reaching out to me. He is looking for the teacher. I was halfway through my second bowl of wonton soup in the cafeteria when Teacher Zhao called me to her office. Feng Yin slurped his noodles and muttered, "Here we go again." I headed to the office carrying my unfinished wonton soup. Teacher Zhao took one look at the bowl of wontons in my hands. Her mouth twitched, but she held it back. "Xinqi, have a seat." I sat down and casually placed the wontons on the table. Teacher Zhao cleared his throat. "The school supports your recommendation for direct admission. That goes without saying, but several subject teachers have reported that you've completely stopped studying lately, reading novels in class, sleeping during self-study sessions. Isn't that a bit?" "Professor, I've been admitted through the early admission program." "I know, but I no longer need the class content." Teacher Zhao choked. He sighed, leaned back in his chair, and said, "All right, I won't push this, but there's one more thing. Some classmates have mentioned that your decision to skip the college entrance exam has really affected the class morale. Could you maybe just go through the motions and take it symbolically, just to go along with everyone for the sake of it?" I asked. "Who reported it?" Teacher Zhao hesitated for a moment. "Well, it must be Pei Mingxian." Teacher Zhao's expression told me I had guessed correctly. I picked up the wonton soup and took a sip. "Teacher, I have a question for you." "You speak." "If a student has been copying their deskmate's exam papers for every major test over the past 3 years, and that deskmate suddenly stops taking the exams, wouldn't that student be panicking?" Teacher Zhao was taken aback. "What do you mean? I didn't mean anything by it." I ate the last wonton and wiped my mouth. "I just don't feel like taking the exam." As I stood up and started walking out, Teacher Zhao called out from behind, "Xinqi, don't play games with me. Just say it straight if you have something to say." I glanced back at him. "I want to say something, but if I say it now without evidence, it'll just make me look like I'm framing a good student. Wait for him to perform on his own." I smiled and said, "No worries, teacher. Please go ahead with your work." On the way back to the classroom, Feng Yin caught up and asked, "What did Teacher Zhao just say?" I said, "Pei Mingxian asked the teacher to persuade me to take the exam." Feng Yin cursed under his breath, then suddenly got excited. "Hey, is he panicking right now? Without your answer, he's screwed, isn't he?" I said. Feng Yin rubbed his hands together. "So, what's your next move?" I said. "I'm not doing anything." Feng Yin, I looked at the teaching building in the distance. The more anxious he gets, the more likely he'll slip up. All I need to do is nothing." Feng Yin scratched his head. "What do you call this move?" "It's called fishing. The hungrier the fish, the harder it bites the hook." Chapter 4. Sure enough, on the 3rd day, Pei Mingxian could no longer sit still. During evening self-study, he took advantage of the crowded classroom and simply moved his chair over to sit next to me. Dozens of eyes around were watching. His smile was genuine, and his voice was pitched just loud enough to be heard by 3 rows ahead and behind. "Xinqi, I was impulsive about what happened in the hallway earlier. I'm sorry. I didn't look up and kept reading the novel on my phone." He went on, "I've been thinking for days, and it's really my fault, but I genuinely believe you should take the exam, not for any other reason, just for yourself. To be honest, your best mock exam rank was around the top 50, which is a far cry from the level expected of a recommended Student, don't you want to prove yourself? That was a clever move on the surface. It sounded like he cared about me, but in front of the whole class, he was subtly implying that Shinchi's recommendation might be undeserved and that he was really just around 50th in the grade. The implication was clear. Pei Mingxuan's third-place ranking in the grade was the real deal. I put down my phone and looked up at him. He smiled at me. His eyes full of calculation. I said, Pei Mingxian, you really want me to take the exam, don't you? He paused for a moment, then kept his smile. I'm doing this for your own good, I said. Then let me ask you a question. You used the substitution method for the last, most difficult, math problem in last November's mock exam. Can you write it out again yourself? His smile froze, just a few tenths of a second, but I caught it, in the solution I gave him for that problem. I deliberately used an extremely tricky trigonometric substitution that no normal high school student would ever think of. The grading teacher even made a special mention of it during the teaching seminar. A student used an unconventional method, with a complete process and a remarkably original approach. The student's name on the exam paper was Pei Mingxian. Of course he can't write it, he doesn't even understand the logic behind that substitution. I stared at him, waiting. He licked his lips and smiled. Shinchi, why are you bringing this up? The exam's already over, I averted my gaze and picked up my phone again. Then stop bothering me from now on. I'm not taking the exam, and that's final. His smile finally cracked. He sat there for 3 seconds, then stood up, picked up his chair, and carried it back to his seat. As I stood up too abruptly, the chair legs scraped across the floor with a harsh screech. The whole class heard that. Feng Yan messaged me from behind. His expression just now was priceless. Ha. I replied, the best is yet to come. Chapter 5, the first monthly exam arrived when there were only 38 days left until the college entrance exam. Pei Mingxian can no longer copy my answers, but he didn't panic, not on the surface, at least, because he found an alternative. There was a girl in the class named Zhou Xian, who ranked in the top 10 of the grade. She sat 2 seats diagonally in front of Pei Mingxian. On the day of the math exam, I was reading a novel in the back row, since I didn't have to take the test anyway. The teacher let me sit in the last row to study on my own. I saw with my own eyes that Pei Mingxuan's gaze would drift toward Zhou Xian every few minutes, but Zhou Xian is not me. Zhou Xian's handwriting was very small, and she kept her test paper tightly covered, flipping it over as soon as she finished writing. After the math exam, Pei Mingxian walked out of the test room with an ashen face. English is even worse. His essay was under 100 words, and it had 3 grammar mistakes at a middle school level, subject-verb agreement errors. That kind of thing, how should I know? Because Feng Yan bribed the class representative in charge of collecting papers in the next class and secretly took photos. Feng Yan's eyes lit up as he shoved his phone right in my face. Check out the sentence. He don't know nothing. Double negative. Bro, is this what the third best student in the grade can do? I said. That figures. He hasn't written an English essay on his own in 3 years. Feng Yan gasped. Then how did he used to copy mine? I always write 2 copies, one to submit myself, and one to slip to him. Feng Yan's mouth formed an O shape. What the hell? Are you like a human answer machine? Yes, and it was the kind with a 3-year warranty. It's out of warranty now. Feng Yan laughed so hard that he slumped over the desk, pounding the ground. Then how badly will his monthly exam ranking tank this time? The monthly exam results came out on Friday afternoon, when teacher Zhao read out the rankings in class. The room was as silent as a funeral parlor. First place, Lin Xiyuan. Second place, Zhou Xian. Third place, teacher Zhao paused for a moment. He cast a glance at Pei Mingxian. Third place, Feng Yan. Feng Yan sat bolt upright, with an expression that screamed, even I don't believe it. Teacher Zhao continued reading. 17th, 23rd, 31st. When it came to the 46th name, Pei Mingxian, the whole class fell into dead silence. Then came a buzz of murmurs. 46th, Pei Mingxian. Wasn't he ranked 3rd in his grade last time? Is there a mistake? Pei Mingxian sat in his seat, his back rigid, his hands pressed against the desk, his knuckles white as if bones were about to pierce through the skin. This time, no one spoke up for him, because the transcript is posted in black and white on the bulletin board. His math score, 61 points out of a total of 150. He scored 137 on the last mock exam, a gap of 76 points. No one is a fool. Chapter 6, the day after the results were announced. Pei Mingxian didn't come to school. The class group chat exploded. Is Pei Mingxian cheating? Those grades of his before? No way. Hasn't he been in the top 5 of his grade since freshman year? It's understandable to have one bad exam, but such a huge drop, 76 points. People, remember that time in the hallway? Could it be that he hit Shinchi because, damn, you just gave me goosebumps. Teacher Zhao posted a message in the group. Don't make assumptions about classmates behind their backs. If you have any issues, come to the teacher directly. But no one listened, because this scoop is way too big. It's fucking huge. A school heartthrob who had ranked in the top 3 for 3 consecutive years suddenly dropped to 46th place in one exam. The only variable was that his deskmate, me, wasn't taking the exam. Even an idiot could do the math on this one. Feng Yan leaned over my desk with a sly grin. Bro, you didn't do a thing, and he just cracked on his own. I said, what did I do? I never once said he cheated. From start to finish, Fang Yin gave a thumbs up, brilliant. On Monday, Pei Mingxian returned, slimmed down, with dark circles under the eyes, but the expression, my heart sank slightly the moment I saw him walk into the classroom. He didn't have that lost puppy expression on his face, his chin was lifted, his gaze fixed straight ahead, with even a slight curve at the corners of his mouth. That's not right, a person whose secrets have been laid bare shouldn't be this composed, unless he found a new pair of underwear. Just as I thought, after morning reading, Teacher Zhao called me to the office. This time, Teacher Zhao wasn't alone in the office, also there were grade director Old Zhou, academic affairs director Li, and Pei Mingxuan's father, Pei Zhengwo. The moment I walked in, I saw that face. He bears a 70% resemblance to Pei Mingxian, but looks older, sharper, and when he smiles, he's like a fox. He sat on the sofa in a dark coat, holding a teacup, and gave a slight smile when he saw me come in. Shenqi, you're here, have a seat, your uncle wants to have a word with you. I didn't move. Teacher Zhao cleared his throat. Shenqi, have a seat first. I found a chair and sat down. Pei Zhengwo set down his teacup and leaned forward, perfectly striking the pose of an elder offering earnest advice to a younger generation. Shenqi, you and Mingxian have been desk mates since your first year of high school, and you've always gotten along well, right? I said. Not bad, he said. Mingxuan's grades really took a big hit this time. He cried at home. You know how it is. Kids are under a lot of pressure. The reason I came today is to discuss something with you. He paused, glanced at Teacher Zhao and the grade director, then turned back to look at me. Could you take the college entrance exam? Just take it like normal. Consider it a favor for Mingxian. Uncle will remember this kindness. I stared at him. What he actually said was, do Mingxian a favor. In other words, you go take the exam and keep being the answer machine for my son. 3 years ago, it was also in an office, with the same smiling face, and the same tone of voice. Back then, he said, Shenqi, your dad's project has just entered the city, and a lot of things are tricky to handle. I've put in a good word for your family. As for you, being desk mates with Mingxian, it's only natural to help each other out, right? Help each other out. I've been writing answers for his son for 3 years. He helped my dad secure a municipal landscaping project, fair deal, but now, my dad's company has no use for him anymore. Last year, we secured a provincial-level project with a partner company from the provincial capital. It had absolutely nothing to do with Pei Zhengwo. I looked up, meeting Pei Zhengwo's face, so kindly elder it was almost a caricature of Uncle Pei. I'm not taking the exam. His smile lasted for 2 seconds, then slowly faded away. The office was very quiet. Teacher Zhao and the grade director exchanged a glance, but neither of them spoke. Pei Zhengwo set down his teacup, leaned back into the sofa, and stared at me for a long time. Then he smiled, a smile different from before. Cold. Shenqi, are you sure? I said. I'm sure. He patted his knee and stood up. All right, then, I won't bother you anymore, Uncle. He paused at the doorway but didn't look back. Your dad is the kind of man who does things with great care and refinement. I hope your family will always carry on that tradition. The door closed. Teacher Zhao let out a long sigh. His gaze at me filled with mixed emotions. Shenqi, I said. It's okay, teacher. I stood up and walked out. My hands were trembling as I walked into the hallway. It's not fear, it's the energy. 3 years, I've put up with it for 3 years, and now Pei Zhengwo still wants to suppress me the same way. He still sees me as the kid from 3 years ago who needed his help. I pulled out my phone and sent my dad a message. Father, Pei Zhengwo came to see me at school today. I turned him down, but before he left, he said something quite unpleasant. Reply after 3 seconds, what do you mean? Hinting for us to keep being particular. There was a silence on the other end for half a minute, then a voice message came in, and I tapped to listen. It was my dad's voice. Calm as ever. I know Pei Zhengwo well. He's all bluff. His company was called in for 2 environmental assessment hearings last year, and now he's got his own hands full. Don't bother with him. Just go about your business. Paused for a moment. Nice work, son. I put away my phone. My hands have stopped shaking. Chapter 7. News of Pei Zhengwo's visit to the school somehow got around. Either Director Li couldn't keep it to himself, or Pei Mingxian let it slip himself. In summary, the mood in the class had completely shifted by the next day. Those who once sympathized with Pei Mingxian now look at him with a subtle scrutiny in their eyes, because everyone is starting to put 2 and 2 together. Pei Mingxuan's grades suddenly soared 3 years ago. The very year Shenqi became his desk mate. Pei Mingxuan's approach to the math final problem is strikingly similar to Shenqi's. As soon as Shenqi gave up on the college entrance exam, Pei Mingxian immediately dropped from 3rd place to 46th in the grade. Pei Mingxuan's father personally came to school, begging Shenqi to take the exam. Every clue points to the same fact, but Pei Mingxian refused to admit it. His behavior in class is a textbook case of playing the victim. At lunch, sitting among a few girls from his class, he said with red-rimmed eyes, I was just not in good shape. It was only one bad exam. Shin-Chi and I have had issues since freshman year. He's deliberately getting back at me now by spreading rumors that I cheated off his paper. A girl handed him a tissue. Mingxian, don't cry. Pei Mingxian took it without wiping his tears, clutching it in his hand. I'm not crying. I just feel wronged. I've worked hard for 3 years, staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning. And now he's negated all of it with one sentence. Another. Girl gritted her teeth. Shin-Chi has gone too far. Even if he got early admission, he has no right to treat people like this. When Fengyan sent me the secretly recorded video, I almost burst out laughing. With acting like that, even an Oscar would be an understatement. Fengyan was hopping mad beside me. No, we have to fight back. Do you have proof? Proof that he copied yours? I thought about it, to be honest. Direct evidence is very hard to obtain. He copied off my exam paper, but there's no way I'd report myself for letting someone cheat off me. The surveillance camera only captured a wide shot of the seats, not the details on the paper, but circumstantial evidence. I opened my phone's photo album and came across a folder. Inside were the drafts of the 2 sets of answers I had written before every major exam from my freshman to senior year of high school. I have a habit. Whenever I wrote the copy for Pei Mingxian to cheat from, I would first draft it in my own notebook, and then transcribe it onto a little note to pass to him. I've never thrown away those draft notebooks. 3 years, 6 copies. Each one clearly records the date, the exam subject, and the answers I copied for him. If someone were to take the trouble to retrieve his actual submitted exam paper, they would discover a startling truth. In every previous exam, over 90% of Pei Mingxian's answers to the subjective questions matched the versions I had written for him in my draft notebook, but it was only about 70% similar to the test paper I had submitted myself. Because I'll rephrase it for myself. Fengyan stared at the notebooks, his mouth hanging open for a long time. Are you fucking kidding me? You've been keeping evidence since freshman year of high school, I said. It wasn't intentional. I just have a habit of taking notes. Fengyan looked at me as if I were a creep. Shin-Chi, you're the scariest person in this class. I put the notebook away. It's not time to use it yet. Pei Mingxian's current strategy is playing the victim plus framing me, accusing me of deliberately ruining his reputation. If I present the evidence now, he'll just claim I faked it. I need to wait for the right moment, let him paint himself into a corner first and burn all his bridges, then lay out the irrefutable evidence. By then, he won't even have a shred of room for excuses. Fengyan tugged at his hair in frustration. What do we do now? Just let him put on a show there, I said. Let him play the role. The better the act, the harder the fall. Have you ever seen a bungee jump from a high altitude? Fengyan, I've seen it. The moment you bounce to the highest point is when you fall the fastest. Chapter 8. Pei Mingxian was indeed desperately trying to hit higher notes. Over the next week, he did 3 things. First, he posted a lengthy message in the class group chat, over 2,000 words, reminiscing about his learning journey over the past 3 years, his 3 a.m. alarm, the error notebook he rewrote 3 times, and sacrificing all weekend fun to hit the library. Every detail was incredibly moving. A bunch of people liked and replied below. Mingxian is so inspiring. Second, he proactively approached teacher Zhao and requested to have his seat moved away from mine. The reason is that Shin-Chi keeps mocking him, which affects his study mentality. Teacher Zhao agreed. From then on, he sat in the far left seat of the first row in the classroom, keeping his distance from me. It looks like a victim of school bullying struggling to save themselves. The third one, this is the most ruthless move. He joined forces with 5 close classmates to write a joint letter and submitted it to the grade director. The gist is that Shin-Chi has been behaving badly after being recommended for admission, openly mocking classmates who are still preparing for exams, which has seriously disrupted the class's exam prep atmosphere. It is suggested that the school have Shin-Chi study in another class or simply go home during the period leading up to the college entrance exam. Fengyan heard about this from the class monitor. He stormed into the classroom like an enraged husky tearing through a room. Shin-Chi, that bastard Pei Mingxian is trying to get rid of you. I was in the back row reading a novel and, upon hearing that, I just lifted my eyelids slightly. Fengyan's eyes turned red as he told the story. Fuck, so he hit you first and then turned around and accused you of bullying him. And now he wants to kick you out of the class. How can anyone do something like that? I closed my phone. To be honest, I didn't see that one coming. Pei Mingxian is even smarter than I expected. His logic chain goes like this. First, they play the victim by playing up their own suffering. Then they labeled me as the perpetrator through a joint letter. Get me out of the classroom this way. Even if he still ranks in the 40s on the next monthly exam, no one will associate the two of us. Because I've already been proven to be the bad guy. Who would believe a word a bad person says? I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Fengyan was pacing around in a panic. What should we do? Maybe I should go see the grade director too. No thanks, I said. Tell them to submit the letter. Are you crazy? I sat up straight and looked at Fengyan. Fengyan, do you trust me? Fengyan was stunned for a second. No shit. Then just wait 3 more days. The second monthly exam was just 3 days away. After that exam, his fate would no longer be in his own hands. Fanyan opened his mouth as if to speak, but in the end said nothing, just nodding heavily. I patted him on the shoulder, then I took out my phone and sent a message to someone, not my dad. It's Zhou Xian. The message is only one line long. Can you do me a favor during the monthly exam? 3 minutes later, the reply came, and what kind of help? I typed. Just write normally during the math exam, but for the last big question, after you finish it using your own method, could you solve it again with a different approach on your scratch paper? No need to show Pei Mingxian, just write it on your own scratch paper. Leave the scratch paper to me after the exam. The other person is typing, stopped typing again, then replied with 4 words, you're fishing for a reaction. I sent an emoji. Zhou Xian. Okay, Chapter 9. The second monthly exam arrived as scheduled. There are only 25 days left until the college entrance exam. The entire senior year had descended into a near unhealthy state of tension. The air in the classroom turned sour, a mix of Red Bull, coffee, and sweat. I'm still sitting in the last row. Pei Mingxian is in the first row. He can't see me, but I can see him. 40 minutes into the math exam. You should have finished the basic and intermediate questions by now. It's time for the final challenge. I noticed Pei Mingxian starting to look up frequently. He glanced at the clock above the blackboard. He looked up once every minute, then he started twirling his pen. The pen slides from the index finger to the middle finger, then drops off. Pick it up and keep spinning. He is anxious, because he couldn't solve the final, most challenging problem. There used to be a note for me. There's nothing right now. Beside him now sat Lu Hao, who ranked over 100 in the grade and was barely scraping a pass in math. There's no one left to copy from. I saw him write a few lines, then cross them out. Then he wrote a few more lines, and crossed those out too. Finally, when the exam ending bell rang, he set down his pen and let out a deep breath, face ashen. After the exam, I stopped Zhou Xian in the hallway. She handed me a scratch sheet of paper, densely covered with calculations. For the last big question, she used 2 methods. One is her own orthodox solution, parameter separation, derivative analysis, step by step, rigorous and complete. The other one was written based on the approach I sent her last night, an unconventional construction method that uses an extremely obscure inequality scaling technique. No normal person would do that. The exam grader would think, the student has a weird way of thinking, but this was exactly the style of the solutions I gave Pei Mingxian for the final problem since my first year of high school. The reason I had Zhou Xian also write this solution wasn't because I needed her help, it was to create a control group. If Pei Mingxian can't solve this final problem, then it proves that his perfect scores on previous final problems were all thanks to me. If he somehow managed to get hold of my method again this time, like digging through my old drafts or getting someone to help him, Zhou Xian's scratch paper is proof that the origin of this solution can be traced back. I put away the scratch paper. Thanks. Zhou Xian glanced at me and said, Shinqi, setting up this trap, was it worth it? I thought about it, he said. 3 years ago, I had no choice. Now I just want those who need to know the truth to find out. She said nothing more and turned to leave. The day the results came out was after the second class in the afternoon. Teacher Zhao did not read out the rankings in front of the whole class, because the grade director, old Zhou, came in person. The moment he walked into the classroom, everyone fell silent. Old Zhou rarely came to the senior class. The last time he came, it was to handle that cheating incident last year. Someone from the neighboring class was caught on camera bringing a phone into the exam hall. He stood on the podium and swept his gaze across the room. Then he spoke. Pei Mingxian. Pei Mingxian slowly stood up from the leftmost seat in the first row. His hands were resting on the desk. Come with me to the office. Over 60 pairs of eyes from the entire class stared intently at Pei Mingxian's back. He stood still for 2 seconds, then took a step out. As he passed me, he didn't look my way, but I could see sweat on the back of his neck. Fan Yan was beside me, frantically giving me a look, mouthing, "Is he here?" I didn't respond, because I'm not sure why old Zhou is looking for him. Maybe it's about the grades, maybe not. Pei Mingxian hadn't come back by evening study hall. Teacher Zhao looked very upset. He sat at the podium for the entire class, grading assignments without saying a single word. At 9:30 in the evening, I received a message sent by Teacher Zhao. Shinqi, come to the Academic Affairs office tomorrow morning. Bring whatever you want. I look at this message, things I want to bring. I opened the drawer and glanced at the 6 draft notebooks. Okay, come on. Chapter 10. At 9:00 a.m. the next day, the Academic Affairs office. The door was open. When I walked in, there were 4 people sitting inside. Old Zhou, the grade director, Director Li from the Academic Affairs office, Teacher Zhao, and Pei Mingxian. Pei Mingxian sat on the chair by the window, rubbing his hands together, his head lowered. He jerked his head up when he saw me come in. A flicker of hatred flashed through the eyes. The very strong kind. Shinqi arrived. Have a seat. Old Zhou pointed to the empty chair. I sat down and placed my bag at my feet. Old Zhou glanced at Pei Mingxian, then at me, and began to speak. I assume you're all aware of the situation. In this month's exam, Pei Mingxian scored 42 in math and 67 in English, ranking 198th in the grade based on total score 198 people last time. Ranking 46th was already embarrassing enough. This time it's even worse than last time, plummeting 150 spots. Old Zhou continued, considering that Pei Mingxuan's grades had consistently been in the top 5 of the grade. 2 consecutive major fluctuations like this prompted the Academic Affairs Office to retrieve and compare his exam papers from the past 3 years. Pei Mingxuan's shoulder twitched. Old Joe picked up a stack of papers from the table. I saw that it was a copy of Pei Mingxuan's past math exams, with many areas circled in red pen. We've noticed something unusual, starting from the second semester of his freshman year in high school. His approach to solving the final, most challenging problems has shown a remarkably consistent and distinctive style, using highly unconventional construction methods and obscure techniques. This style was completely absent from his exam papers in the first semester. Old Joe put down the paper and looked at me. Shinchi, Teacher Zhao said you have some things to bring. I bent down, pulled 6 notebooks out of my backpack, and stacked them on the desk. Pei Mingxian stared at those notebooks, his pupils visibly dilating. His lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. I opened the first one and slid it over to Old Joe. This is the final problem from the midterm exam of the second semester of freshman year of high school. At the time, I solved it for him using trigonometric substitution combined with constructing a sequence. This page is my draft. With the date in the top right corner, Old Joe took it, glanced at it for a few seconds, then flipped to the corresponding page in the stack of Pei Mingxuan's test papers beside him, exactly the same. Even the traces of crossing out and rewriting during rough calculations had been transformed into neat, clean versions on Pei Mingxuan's final exam papers. Lao Zhou flipped through the second and third booklets as well. Each booklet corresponded to a semester. It happens in every major exam. The office was so quiet that the only sound was the rustling of paper. Teacher Zhao's face is getting paler and paler. He was Pei Mingxuan's homeroom teacher. For 3 years, he had always taken pride in producing a top 3 student in the grade. This glory is now being torn apart, page by page. Director Li finally spoke. That's enough. He took off his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. Pei Mingxian, do you have anything to explain? Pei Mingxian sat there, his fingers digging into the flesh of his thighs. He lifted his head, his lips trembling, his voice quivering. He gave it to me himself. I didn't force him, he did it willingly. His dad begged my dad for help, so he stopped, because he realized what he was saying. He's saying, the deal does exist. The answer was indeed provided by Shinchi. He did copy for 3 years. Old Joe's gaze turned cold. So you're saying you're sure that over the past 3 years, there's been widespread plagiarism in the subjective part of the exam results? Pei Mingxuan's mouth hung open, unable to close for a long time. He started to panic. No, I didn't mean. What I'm trying to say is, he spun around to face me, stood up, and the chair slammed back against the wall with a loud clang. Shinchi, you did this on purpose. You've been setting me up from the very beginning. His voice twisted into a shrill, jarring sound as he lunged forward. Teacher Zhao stopped him with a firm hand. Pei Mingxian, calm down. He was pressed back into his chair by Teacher Zhao's hand on his shoulder, trembling all over, his eyes bloodshot. That red wasn't from grievance, it is despairing. I sat opposite him and watched. No pleasure, nor any pity. I just feel empty. It's been 3 years. I've been a shadow in this deal for 3 years, staying up late before the exam to write an extra set of answers, risking passing notes in the exam hall, and then deliberately lowering my own score afterward. I couldn't do too much better than him, or it would raise suspicion. I could have been top of my grade. I've been suppressing myself for 3 years, and he enjoyed 3 years of being the campus heartthrob, the teacher's favor, and a recommendation for direct admission. Everything that should have been mine. It's over now. Old Joe stood up and closed the folder. The matter is basically clear. Pei Mingxian, the Academic Affairs Office will formally notify you and your parents of the follow-up actions, according to the school's examination discipline management regulations. He paused. For cases involving large-scale, long-term cheating, all eligibility for awards, honors, and recommendations will be revoked, and the results will be deemed invalid. As for whether to report this to higher-level education authorities, we will need to further consider it. Pei Mingxian collapsed into the chair as if all his bones had been removed. Disqualification from recommendation, invalid grade. What does that mean? It means the self-enrollment preliminary qualification he obtained with fake grades is gone. It means the recommendation he earned in the provincial competition by being in the top 3 of his grade is gone. It means that in the college entrance exam, which is 25 days away, he will have to rely solely on his own true ability. Ranked 198th in the grade, his tears finally fell, not the pretentious kind. He curled up in the chair, shoulders shaking with sobs, muttering something under his breath. I vaguely caught a few words. It's over, all over. Teacher Zhao sighed and walked over to pat him on the back. No one in the office was looking at me. I picked up the 6 draft notebooks from the desk and put one back into my school bag. Stand up. I paused for a moment as I reached the door, didn't look back. Teacher, may I leave now? Old Joe said. All right, go ahead. I pushed the door open. The hallway was bathed in warm sunlight. Feng Yin was leaning against the wall waiting for me. When he saw me come out, he dashed over. How is it? I said. It's over. Feng Yin glanced at my expression, opened his mouth as if to say something celebratory, but in the end, he just patted me on the shoulder. Let's go. I'll treat you to an ice-cold Coke. All right. I followed him toward the convenience store. As I passed by the bulletin board on the first floor, I noticed that the honor roll from last semester's monthly exams was still posted on it, third in the grade. Pei Mingxian. The edges of the paper had curled up, fluttering back and forth in the wind. It will be torn off in a few days. I averted my gaze. Is the Coke cold? Fang Yin rolled his eyes. No kidding. It's ice cold. 0 degrees. Absolutely. All right. The phone buzzed in his pocket. It was from my dad. Son, I heard Pei Zhengwo rushed to your school early this morning and left looking dejected. What happened? I replied with just 2 words. Done there. They instantly replied with an emoji, a thumbs up. As I walked into the convenience store, Fang Yin had already opened a bottle of Coke and handed it to me cold, the chill seeping from the palm all the way to the fingertips. I tipped my head back and took a big gulp. The college entrance exam is in 25 days. That exam has nothing to do with me anymore, with Pei Mingxian, and finally, it no longer matters. Sunlight streamed through the rolled-up door of the convenience store, carving a bright white patch on the ground. Feng Yin crouched nearby, slurping his cola with foamy bubbles clinging to his lips. He suddenly said, Shinqi, how long do you think Pei Mingxian will hold a grudge against you? I'm holding a can of Coke. I don't know. I don't care. Feng Yin thought for a moment. True, so what if he hates you? He can't copy your hatred anyway. I burst out laughing and sprayed a mouthful of Coke at his words. Damn, what a shitty metaphor. Feng Yin chuckled and took another swig of cola. The joy that day was exceptionally sweet. It might have been 3 years since I last tasted my own flavor. Story 2. My husband's elder brother passed away, leaving behind his widow and their unborn child. In our past life, we lived together under the same roof, even timed our pregnancies to coincide. She abused that posthumous child daily, yet poured boundless affection on my husband's younger brother and our son. The truth only dawned on me when that child was framed and sent to prison. Turns out she had instructed the nurse to switch the babies on the very day of delivery. Blinded by rage, I confronted them, only to be pushed down the stairs, a cold-blooded attempt to silence me forever. Meanwhile, that wretched family lived lavishly off my inheritance, picture perfect. In their happiness, when I opened my eyes again, consumed by vengeance, I found myself back on that fateful delivery day. A sharp pain shot through my lower body, making me cry out in agony. The nurse's voice rang in my ears. Push harder, Mama. Unbelievably, I'd been reborn. On the very day I was giving birth, in my past life, my sister-in-law and I were admitted to the same hospital awaiting childbirth. My husband bustled about preparing her delivery kit and cooking elaborate meals specially for her. Meanwhile, I had to make do with her cast-off belongings and eat her leftovers. The stress triggered my premature labor, yet my husband rushed her to the delivery room and waited outside throughout her delivery. I even had to sign my own cesarean consent form. The pain eventually knocked me out cold. When I came to, both my sister-in-law and I had given birth to sons. One after that, my sister-in-law spoiled my son Noah rotten while treating her own son Jake with nothing but harsh words and beatings. My heart went out to poor Jake, and I wanted to lend him a hand, but my husband snapped at me, just focus on Noah. As the younger sister-in-law, you've got no business meddling in your elder sister-in-law's affairs. Seeing how utterly spoiled Noah had become under his mother and my husband's indulgence, I gave up trying to intervene with other people's children. I quit my job to tutor Noah full-time at home, determined to mold him into a national college entrance exam top scorer. Meanwhile, my own son Jake was forced by his aunt to drop out of middle school and got sent to work in a sweatshop. He developed lung cancer from dust poisoning at such a young age. Later, Noah killed someone in a drunk driving accident. In a panic, my sister-in-law dragged Jake from his sickbed to take the blame for Noah. For my child's sake, I even knelt before Jake begging him to save my son. I was the only one in the Lee family who showed Jake any kindness, and I even covered his surgery expenses. True to his word, he repaid my kindness by taking the fall for Jake. In the end, he took his own life right there in prison. Then one day I came home early from a business trip and heard Noah call my sister-in-law Mom. Then Noah snapped, I hate Lily. When are we finally going to get rid of her? I completely lost it and stormed into the room demanding an explanation. The 3 of them froze momentarily before my sister-in-law sneered triumphantly. So what if you know, your real son is already dead? Noah even pointed at me and yelled accusations. All these years you made me study while you wouldn't let me be with Maya, wouldn't allow KFC or bubble tea, and refused to fund my startup. Now I finally understand, you were never really my mother, you never loved me, you just wanted a presentable son, yet you took Jake out for KFC and bubble tea, even paid for his cancer treatment. Blood really is thicker than water. Liam adjusted his glasses. Lily, I never loved you, it's always been my sister-in-law, but your family's money was my ticket to success. After all these years of Maggie's suffering in silence, we've finally made it through. Drop dead. The 3 of them pushed me out the window. Later they told the police I'd accidentally fallen through the window. Then the 3 of them lived happily ever after with my inheritance. Memories of my past life flooded back, filling me with overwhelming hatred. With one final push, the child who'd been delivered by C-section in My previous life came naturally this time. I couldn't hold on any longer and blacked out. When I came to, both my sister-in-law and I had been wheeled into the same hospital room. My sister-in-law was still unconscious, and my husband gazed at her with worried, loving eyes, gritting my teeth. I called out, "Honey." He turned impatiently. "What?" I outright yelled. "Get me a damn glass of water. I'm thirsty." "What are you staring at? Is that your wife?" "That's your sister-in-law. Are you trying to commit incest?" The nurse administering Maggie's foredrip widened her eyes in shock and exclaimed, "Isn't this your wife?" Liam's face turned pale then flushed crimson as he shuffled out reluctantly with a water cup, utterly humiliated. Our ward is on the 3rd floor, while the water dispenser room is on the ground floor. The moment the nurse left, I gritted through the pain and swapped the 2 babies. Thank God Liam had picked the outfits himself. He'd never spare decent clothes for my son, but couldn't be bothered to waste time choosing either, so he'd meticulously selected outfits for his sister-in-law's son, then casually asked the clerk to wrap identical ones. My heart hammered wildly. Luckily, Liam was dawdling outside God knows where and still hadn't returned. Only after swapping the babies did I finally feel at ease. Since I was premature, my sister-in-law scheduled a C-section to match my timing, leaving her with a long scar across her belly. Soon after, as the anesthesia wore off, my sister-in-law came to and glanced at the baby before giving me a subtly smug look. What a coincidence, delivering babies on the same day. I smirked coldly and ignored her, feeling awkward. My sister-in-law fiddled with her phone, and within moments Liam returned. The glass he'd been holding had mysteriously vanished. "You're awake, sis. Would you like something to eat?" Liam asked eagerly. Maggie glanced over. "What would you like to eat, sis?" "I'll have Liam go get it." Seeing Maggie's smug expression, I asked her, "Sis, is Liam my husband or yours? Why do I need your permission for him to buy me food?" Liam's face darkened. "Lily, do you even hear yourself? She's my sister-in-law. My brother's gone. Is it wrong for me to look after her? Look after her, all the way into bed?" Liam exclaimed in disbelief. "What nonsense are you spouting?" His sister-in-law flushed with rage. "Lily, have you lost your tongue? What do you mean by taking care in bed? I'm your sister-in-law. Are you trying to ruin me?" Liam looked at me with utter disappointment. "You've always been paranoid like this. When I work late with female colleagues, you assume I'm cheating. When I dine with friends, you bombard me with a dozen check-in calls per hour. Now you're even suspecting me of something with my own sister-in-law when I'm just helping her. Do you even know what matters most in a relationship? Trust, space. Keep this up and I'll divorce you." Liam knew I loved him enough to cut ties with my family for him, so he played reverse psychology, certain I wouldn't make another scene. I chuckled. "Fine, let's get divorced. If you'd just apologize to your sister-in-law." Liam stared at me incredulously. "What did you just say? You want a divorce? Wasn't it you who brought up divorce? Fine, let's go file the papers right now." After a long pause, Liam chuckled. "Listen, Lily, playing hard to get won't work. Don't push your luck. Just apologize to your sister-in-law, and I'll forgive you." Maggie chimed in with fake concern. "Sis, don't be rash. Who'd want a divorced woman fresh from childbirth?" This only reinforced Liam's belief that I was playing hard to get his own signature move. The hospital room door burst open as a burly man stormed in. "Who says nobody wants her? Even if that were true, our family can damn well afford to support a woman and child." "Bro," I called out too. Liam straightened up and asked, "Did you invite him here?" Liam was a poor phoenix risen from rural hardship, handsome and hardworking. That's why I fell for him and insisted on being together. Coming from wealth, Liam initially played hard to get with his cold shoulder routine, claiming we were from different worlds. Who else in this world could remain so untouched by money? It only strengthened my resolve to be with him, so I acted like a lovesick fool, spending money on Liam and pulling strings to get him resources. Liam would always say coldly through pursed lips, "I'll pay you back every penny." He even wrote me an IOU. He carried himself with unyielding pride toward both me and my family, never mincing words nor showing undue deference. At first, my parents thought Liam might not be your typical social climber, but over time they realized his arrogance wasn't backed by competence, forbidding our relationship. When Liam tried to break up with me, I became utterly obsessed, cutting ties with my family just to stay with him. My family reluctantly gave in, but wisely kept the upper hand. Both our home and car remain legally under my parents' names. "Let's go get divorced," I said. My brother took out a furry hat and put it on me, then wheeled over the wheelchair. Seeing we were serious, Liam panicked. "Lily, I only mentioned divorce in the heat of the moment. After everything we've been through, how could you actually leave me? Hurry up or the civil affairs office will close. Don't tell me you're just clinging to our family's money." Nothing infuriates Liam more than people suggesting he's only with me for my family's money. His face twisted with rage as he snarled, "Let's divorce right now. Whoever backs out is a damn coward." His business is already thriving with 2 major projects underway that could net him over $200 million upon completion. He does want my family's fortune. He just needs to wait until our son comes of age to claim what's under my name. The asset division happened swiftly. He hypocritically offered me company shares right in front of my brother. No way was I taking that bait. Their company was about to implode. In my past life, I'd only resolved the crisis by pulling family strings. This time around, let's see how his pathetic business survives without my help. Back home, I had his and his sister-in-law's belongings cleared out, then hired professional postpartum care for myself. My brother asked me to move back home, but I refused. Liam was furious when he found out I'd thrown their stuff out, and rushed back to haul it away. I had someone stop him. Lily, we're already divorced. What are you playing at? Let me make this clear, even if you regret it now, it's too late. Sitting in my wheelchair, I told him, leave the car, my parents bought it for me. Liam tossed me the keys with a dark expression. Who said I wanted your damn car? I was just returning it. That very afternoon, Liam drove Maggie over in his luxury car and smugly moved into the house they'd bought next door. My guess, they wanted front row seats to watch their kid. I couldn't care less. Let them stare. I'm curious to see what kind of life Jake will have under his parents' care this time around. Right on cue that evening, sudden wails erupted from next door, followed by Maggie's frantic footsteps pounding toward my front door. The violent knocking startled my sleeping son awake, sending him into terrified sobs. I swung the door open with visible irritation. Maggie stood at the doorway in her silk pajamas, wearing an impatient expression as she said, my son's hurt and Liam's not home. Could you drive us to the hospital? She studied my face intently, as if searching for any trace of sympathy. Seeing my completely impassive expression throughout, her disappointment was palpable. I replied flatly, fine, go get the kid ready. When she brought Jake out from home, I saw his right shin was broken, bone protruding through torn flesh with blood everywhere. Despite hating the kid, witnessing such a gruesome scene sent an involuntary chill down my spine. Without hesitation, I grabbed the car keys and drove them both to the hospital. Jake wailed nonstop during the ride, so I cranked up the stereo in irritation. Upon arriving at the hospital, Jake was rushed to the emergency room. Soon after, a doctor emerged saying Jake had lost too much blood and urgently needed a transfusion, but the hospital was running low on type A blood, asking if anyone could donate. Maggie quickly shook her head. No. I'm his mother. Immediate family members can't donate blood. I also shook my head. I'm type B blood. Lily, I thought you were type A. Maggie suddenly turned to me with a horrified look. I said earnestly, you remembered wrong. Don't you recall that family checkup before Liam and I divorced, when you joked that Jake and I were both type B? Maggie suddenly remembered that day when she and Liam had mocked me. How could Jake possibly be type A? Isn't he yours and Liam's? Maggie murmured. What did you say? I pretended not to hear. Maggie quickly shut her mouth. I didn't say anything. The doctor's memory failed. But fortunately a man nearby happened to have type A blood and donated 200 cubic centimeters, while several medical staff contributed another 1,000 cubic centimeters, just enough. Maggie paced outside the ER, putting on a show of maternal concern, but I knew suspicion had taken root in her mind. Unable to hold back any longer, she soon dashed to the stairwell to call Liam. Honey, did you really swap mine and Lily's babies that day? Of course, I did it myself. Why would I lie? What's wrong? Did Lily find out we switched the babies? The doctor just said that little bastard has type A blood, but both you and Lily are type B. I'm the only one with type A. Maggie shuddered randomly. That child, it couldn't possibly be ours, could it? What? No way. Impossible. I switched the babies myself. There's no way Lily could have found out. After a moment's thought, Maggie's eyes widened in realization. Wait, is that child proof of Lily's affair? Liam recalled how often I'd worked late with male colleagues during my pregnancy and instantly bought this nonsense. That bitch actually cuckolded me. I'll make sure neither of them gets away with this. Maggie quickly tried to calm him down. Don't act rashly, she said. Once our son inherits the Shin family fortune, we'll have plenty of time to deal with those two. Seeing Maggie hang up the phone, I hurried back to the emergency room entrance. Moments later, Maggie returned with exaggerated grace, shooting me a look full of contempt and resentment. I could only shake my head in disbelief. Poor Jake was really out of luck. They actually managed to explain away the blood type discrepancy. Jake stayed in the hospital for a week before coming home, only to hear heart-wrenching infant wails from next door on his return. I peeked out the door. Their entrance was wide open, clearly wanting me to see and hear my son being tormented. Little did they know, that wasn't my son, it was theirs. The child's face and arms were covered in blisters, with steam still rising from the spilled water on the floor. When I opened the door, Liam gave me a hollow smile and said, the cup slipped from my hand, scalding water spilled all over him. After learning Jake was illegitimate, he'd been itching for revenge, but divorced from me, he couldn't lay hands on me freely, and with Jake hospitalized, beating a child there was impossible. Now that Jake's back, he's finally found his chance to vent that pent-up rage. 3. That man is terrifying. I shuddered involuntarily, but this is no longer my concern. Had I not been reborn, my son would have suffered this cruelty instead. This never happened in my past life. My defiance probably made them despise me, and my child, even more. Liam and Maggie showed up uninvited at our son's 1-month celebration. When Liam learned I'd named our child Lucas, he pulled me aside. Lily, that's my son. He carries the Lee family name. You're coming with me right now to change his name. I just said one thing to him. Oh. Why don't you take custody then? He immediately shut up and walked away sulking. First, he doesn't have time to take care of the kid, and Maggie's just a pretty village girl. Our child wouldn't turn out as exceptional under their care as under mine. Second, he's afraid if I lose custody and remarry to have more kids, Lucas wouldn't get his hands on all the inheritance. Liam returned to the banquet table sulkily, shooting Maggie a meaningful glance. Maggie hurried over. With her fair complexion and slender figure clad in a light blue cheapao, she wore only a simple silver hairpin yet beamed as she presented her son with an imperial jade amulet. How could you give such an extravagant gift? You and Liam aren't exactly living comfortably these days, I protested half-heartedly. Maggie smiled gently. Don't say that, though I may not come from as privileged a background as you. I know your son deserves nothing but the finest. Just look at what your relatives and friends gave you. My gift is nothing special. True, I'm a Shin woman, and everyone at this banquet is loaded. There. Handing out houses, cars, even company shares. There's a grandpa gifting stock. An imperial jade amulet really doesn't compare. I asked her, where's your son? Aren't you throwing a 1-month celebration? My sister-in-law replied indifferently, that Jinx killed his own father. Why would I celebrate him? Consider it merciful that I even chose to give birth to him. But everyone knew that child was actually Liam's, the same Liam who conspired with Maggie to murder his own brother. Liam's brother came home from overtime at 11 p.m., only for Maggie to throw a tantrum demanding cupcakes. When he suggested getting them tomorrow, she claimed it wasn't her craving, but their unborn son's. His brother had no choice but to drive the sabotaged car with cut brake lines to get it for her. The car ended up plunging into a river, drowning him alive. Liam and Maggie cuddled their son affectionately after delivering gifts, only handing him back to me when their arms grew sore. Your son is absolutely gorgeous. I wish I could have such a handsome boy. Her words earned unanimous approval from those around her. After entertaining guests for a while, I felt exhausted and took the kids home first, leaving the rest to my parents. My sister-in-law followed along, cradling a frail baby boy with sparse hair who looked sickly and weak enough to be blown over by a breeze. There's trouble at Liam's company. Are you heading home now? Could you give me a ride? I quickly said, is this your child? Why so thin and small? Don't stand in that drafty spot. Get in the car and I'll take you home. In Liam's past life, his company's scandal broke today. Their product was exposed as plagiarized. Liam urgently pulled me away from the baby's full moon banquet to ask my parents for help, only to stay behind himself entertaining guests with Maggie at the hotel. The reason Maggie and Liam have been living so modestly lately is that they've poured all their money into the project. Maggie chuckled at my words and said, this is my son, born under an unlucky star, but what can I do? A mother's got to raise her child. Every single day, Liam and Maggie would call Jake that wretched little bastard. Once when Aunt Zhang passed by and couldn't stomach their behavior, she scolded them. This only made them double down, convinced she'd report their misdeeds to me. They knew full well I wouldn't spare sympathy for the child, but when the truth finally comes to light, every day of these years will feel like a knife twisting in my gut. I lowered my head, gently patting Lucas in my arms, my heart heavy with sorrow. So Liam hated me this much all along. The cruel irony was that the child he mistreated wasn't my son, but his own, born from his affair with his sister-in-law. Her face still wore that girlish smile as she spoke, delicate fingers tracing the scarred skin, but perhaps her touch was too rough. The child whimpered and began to cry. The faint crying sounded like a kitten's mewl, barely audible before fading completely after feeble struggles. I remained silent. She chuckled darkly. Don't think me cruel. This child's cursed. He killed his father before drawing breath, and his birth cost me my womb through hemorrhaging. I dare not love him, nor can I abandon him. Raising him like some stray cat or dog is all I can do. And Zhang hugged Lucas indignantly. What nonsense about jinxes. That's pure superstition. How could a modern woman like you believe such things? Maggie ignored her, keeping her eyes fixed on me, focused on driving. I didn't respond, so she jabbed Jake harder instead. She only stopped poking when he burst into loud sobs. As I got off the car, I heard her mutter, so much for mother-child bonds. It's all lies. Liam came back that evening looking utterly devastated. Soon, waves of crying erupted from their place. I polished off 2 bowls of rice to the soundtrack of their tantrums. Eventually, the downstairs neighbors couldn't take it anymore and came up to shut down the noise. Liam and Maggie sold their RV and all the family jewelry to pay off debts, leaving them no choice but to rent an apartment in our neighborhood. Yet Maggie often dropped by my place. I was delighted to see her being so kind to my son, so I always welcomed her visits. Gradually, both Lucas and Jake grew up. Lucas started early education at 3 and was enrolled directly in our family-owned kindergarten at 4. I asked Maggie if she'd like to get her son admitted there too. She immediately waved her hands in refusal, saying the tuition there was too expensive. They simply couldn't afford it. I knew she'd never spend that much money sending my son to such a fancy school, otherwise I wouldn't have brought it up in the first place. After her refusal, I didn't press the matter further. Later I learned she didn't enroll Jake, who at 5 still looked like a scrawny kitten with patchy fur, a ruined left cheek, and scars all over, until he was 5. Sending him to an unlicensed kindergarten near their apartment, Maggie said with unwavering determination. A bright child can thrive anywhere. Look at Liam, he couldn't even attend kindergarten back then, yet he's doing just fine now. I clicked my tongue in disapproval. Give me a break. Liam's practically bankrupt, scrambling everywhere begging for projects. They think I'm clueless, but mutual contacts have already spilled the beans, and did I really come back from Rebirth just to settle scores with them? I started my own company and leveraged my knowledge advantage from the past life to snatch countless projects from Liam. The company's barely 2 or 3 years old, but with our family connections and my insider information, it's already hit a market valuation of $1.5 billion. Let's be real, Jake was never cut out for academics. In our previous life, Liam only scraped through high school admissions because I rode his ass daily with relentless pressure. That day I left work early to pick up a kid from kindergarten, only to find Maggie beating Jake in the courtyard on my way back. How pathetic can you be? What possessed you to hit that kid? Maggie slapped Jake across the face. Jake's frail body crumpled from the blow. Through tears, he pleaded. He called me a monster first. Mom, please don't hit me. Watching him tremble with fear, I felt a pang of pity, just basic human compassion, but I wouldn't speak up for him. He had this coming. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Liam and Maggie mistreated Jake. Many took pity on him, defending him or sneaking him food. Turns out Jake faked stomachaches to extort money after eating. He even sneaked trash into the homes of those who defended him, all because he envied their kids. Now when he's getting beaten again, not a single neighbor steps up to speak for him. Maggie roared. Aren't you just a monster? Look at your own face. You're afraid of being judged, and now they're demanding compensation from me. The thought of that family demanding money from her made her shudder with visceral pain. Truth be told, they could barely afford meat these days. Maggie started pummeling Jake, screaming, "This is all your fault, you jinx, you freak." Exhausted from work, Liam came home and walked right past them without a second glance. Maggie threw a tantrum, leaving the child battered and bleeding. The sight of the wailing kid made many bystanders visibly uncomfortable, yet no one dared to speak up. Eventually, someone couldn't take it anymore and secretly called the police. Liam ordered Jake to beg the officers not to arrest his mother. Torn between obeying Liam and preventing Maggie's detention, Jake hesitated. He clung to the officer's leg, throwing a hysterical fit, screaming, kicking, and rolling on the ground to block Maggie's arrest. The cops couldn't do much. After all, it was her own child she was hitting. They just gave her a lecture and left. Maggie's eyes gleamed with triumph when she saw me. "What's wrong, Lily?" Feeling sorry for him. "Don't waste your pity. He's just worthless trash, undeserving of anyone's sympathy." With that, she grabbed a handful of dirt from the ground and moved to press it onto Jake's wound. "Let me stop the bleeding," she sneered. I stood frozen as Liam chimed in. "Mind your own business. My wife knows how to handle the kid. Your only job right now is taking care of our son." Jake wailed in pain, but Maggie remained unmoved. With visible dissatisfaction, she pursed her lips and dropped the child on the ground, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "What's wrong, Lily? Feeling sorry for this brat? Got a heartache?" "Not really, but I'm starting to doubt that whole mother-child bond." Saying, neither Maggie nor Liam seems to have any chest pain. I stayed silent. She strode off with Liam while Jake obediently trailed behind them, but when Jake picked himself up from the ground, I saw pure venom burning in his eyes. Just remembering how he wanted to kill me in our past life over video games and junk food makes me wonder what fate awaits Liam and Maggie this time. Yet I've raised my son well. This time around, drawing from past experience, I occasionally indulge him with junk food despite my reservations. Lucas has an equally sensitive stomach as Jake did in his past life, and ended up with diarrhea the night he tried eating junk food. Thankfully I stopped him from overindulging. Some medicine fixed him right up. He's sworn off junk food ever since. I'll always let him explore, stumble, and get hurt, but I'll forever be his safety net, unlike my previous life where I coddled children like precious jewels. Lucas was bright and disciplined. Excelling academically throughout, he developed a passion for piano, achieving grade 5 certification by middle school. Maggie and Liam doted on him excessively, constantly bringing gifts. They'd scrimp on food and clothes just to buy him iPhones and MacBooks. Fortunately, my son had good sense and never became addicted, so I didn't confiscate them. Scarred by facial burns and his timid nature, Jake shuffled along walls with his head perpetually bowed, yet beneath that meek exterior lurked something twisted. I caught him torturing stray cats behind our complex again. His eyes burned with venomous envy when they met mine. His own mother and Liam showered my son with affection while treating him like a punching bag. Fearing he might harm my son, I moved to another place that's also closer to my child's school. For when Maggie and Liam wanted to visit, I explicitly told them not to disclose our location to Jake. I worried his jealousy over their kindness toward my son might turn violent. They agreed instantly, still believing the boy was their own and sharing my concerns. Why go to such lengths? Because I want them to feel what I felt in my past life. The kinder they are to my son now, the deeper their regret will be when the truth comes out, and the harsher they treat Jake, the more it'll haunt them later. At 15, my son Lucas got admitted to the city's top high school and was placed in the elite class. Liam and Maggie sent over another round of extravagant gifts after they finally left Reluctantly, Lucas asked me, what's really going on between Dad and Aunt Mabel? Why are they so nice to me but treat their own son so terribly? He disliked Liam and Maggie, maintaining only the most basic courtesy toward them. Not even trips to amusement parks or KFC with them could sway him, partly because he despised their child abuse, and partly because Lucas had long mastered traveling abroad with bodyguards. I never missed a single school-organized study trip to Switzerland or the US, my son suffered too much in his past life. In this lifetime, I'll compensate him doubly as long as it doesn't interfere with his studies at this stage. Show him the world and let him experience life. Keeping his studies undisturbed is about ensuring he can build his own future and be capable of inheriting my estate. His horizons have long outgrown simple pleasures like amusement parks and fast food. After some thought, I told Lucas everything about my past life exactly as it happened. I was worried Lucas wouldn't believe me, but to my surprise, he actually bought such an unbelievable story. He hugged me tightly, crying, "Mom, I'll always love you." My heart swelled with warmth, and I warned him not to be swayed by Maggie and Liam's sweet talk. He clenched his fist. "They got you killed. How could I possibly fall for their sugar-coated bullets?" Never mentioning that he too died because of them. Jake's grades were abysmal. After failing high school entrance exams, they shipped him off to a sweatshop. Finding a sweatshop in Shanghai's no easy feat. They really went the extra mile. Rumor has it they work 18-hour shifts with nothing but watery gruel to eat. Though his salary was decent, Maggie made the boss deposit it directly into her account. This boss employs child labor, operates unsafe facilities, and constantly skirts legal boundaries. That's why they've hired so many security guards to patrol the factory. Unlike obedient Lucas, Jake tried to run away but got his legs broken and was dragged back. That boss only compensated Maggie $30,000, still wearing her shabby clothes. Maggie immediately bought gifts for Lucas. Lucas accepted them without hesitation. Liam couldn't help feeling resentful. After years of being squeezed out by corporate giants, his own company had long gone under, forcing him to work for others now. "At least save some for ourselves," Maggie retorted. "He's our flesh and blood. We've already failed him by being absent all these years. What's wrong with spending some money?" Liam had no comeback. One day he came running to me. "Lily, I regret it. I never should have agreed to divorce you. I still love you. Haven't you been single all these years because you were waiting for me? Let's get back together, give Lucas a complete family." Ironically, even after our divorce, he never made things official with Maggie. They're still stuck in this ambiguous relationship. People tried setting them up with others, but they'd refuse, yet they won't tie the knot either. No one understands what's going on. Maggie had appeared behind him at some point, watching the scene with gritted teeth. When she noticed me looking, she forced a strained smile. Liam was about to confess his feelings when I dodged him. "Sorry, my boyfriend's here to pick me up." The tall, handsome Noah tipped my hand. "Why are you working so late today?" I smiled. "Had some unfinished business, since I'm off tomorrow. Let's take Lucas and Zoe out." Noah's also remarried. His first wife passed from illness. We actually met in our class group chat. So trendy. Tried online dating for kicks. Liam stared at me in disbelief. "You're seeing someone, Lily. How could you betray me? How disgusting. We've been divorced for over a decade. Betrayal doesn't even enter into it." I frowned at him in disgust. "Who the hell are you?" I'm, he stammered, unable to get the words out, watching as Noah and I drove away. That night he called me. "Come back, Lily. I still love you. Just break up with him, and we can go back to how things were. I don't believe you'd fall for someone else." I snapped back. "What the hell are you barking about? What makes you think you're even half the man my boyfriend is? How dare you ask me to dump him for you?" He flew into a rage and spat out, "You'll regret this, Lily." Then came the news that he and Maggie were getting married. Seeing I still hadn't made a move, he finally caved and registered their marriage with Maggie, though they skipped the wedding banquet. While everyone had long suspected their relationship, it's only now been officially confirmed. Their neighborhood became rife with gossip, leaving the couple too embarrassed to show their faces much. Noah asked me while cooking in the kitchen, "Do you want to get married?" After some thought, I replied, "We're both financially stable and have our own kids. Let's just stay together without getting married. All my assets will go to my son, even though I'm very fond of Zoe, but after all, she's not my biological daughter. I don't want to be tied down by marriage anymore." Noah nodded in agreement. At age 18, Lucas became the national college entrance exam top scorer with 716 points, outperforming Jake's previous life score by 14 points. Reporters and admissions officers crowded at Lucas's school gate to interview him. Just then, Liam and Maggie pushed their way in. Maggie grabbed Lucas's hand, laughing through tears. "Lucas, you're actually my son." Lucas shook free from their grasp and moved to stand beside me. Maggie didn't care anymore. She was trembling with anticipation, waiting to see me break down in despair. Back when Lily and I gave birth at the same hospital sharing a ward, the nurses mixed up our newborn sons. Her gaze burned with malice and anticipation. Hardly surprising. During the recent bull market, Liam went all in, even borrowing from loan sharks, only for the stocks to crash the moment he invested. With debt collectors hounding him, he nearly jumped off a building himself. But the thought of having a son who held shares in the Shin family business Reignited his hope. Couldn't Lucas just snap his fingers to settle this trivial matter? But I just watched them silently without speaking. Their expressions gradually froze. How can you be so heartless? The reporter suddenly caught on and hastily asked, Madam, could you elaborate on what you just said? Maggie paused before speaking deliberately. Lily and I gave birth at the same hospital years ago. The nurses mixed up our babies. Today we found out through hospital matching tests, after Jake was diagnosed with lung cancer, that he's not my biological son, he's Lily's child. She emphasized the word cancer. Seeing my expressionless face, she shouted, Say something. Are you abandoning your own son? He's your flesh and blood. You can't possibly turn your back on him now that he has cancer. You're his birth mother. Even if you never raised him, he still carries the Shin family blood. I let out a shaky breath. Trembling with equal excitement, I asked them, Did you really go for the compatibility test that early? Maggie looked guilty, but Liam retorted defiantly, Of course, he's my son. How could I not care? I said, If you'd done the test, how could you not know they're your biological sons? The reporters gasped again, bombarding us with questions. Maggie froze, asking me, What do you mean? She panicked and blurted, The nurses mixed up the babies. That's your son. Lucas is actually my son. Ms. Lily. Are you trying to disown your own son now? Ms. Lily, do you favor Lucas more as your successor? Your biological son is hospitalized. Aren't you going to care? This is huge. The national exam top scorer, Shanghai's Shin family, and the real versus fake air drama. Every single point is explosive, I continued. I knew the nurses mixed up our babies on delivery day 5, so when you went to get water, I switched them back myself. Under their stunned gazes, I added, You've been way too harsh on Jake all these years. He's actually your biological son, Maggie. You disfigured him with boiling water, abused him daily with beatings and curses, shipped him off to a sweatshop right after middle school where the boss broke his legs, and now he's battling cancer. So you too tortured Jake like that just because you thought he was my son. Why? How could you do this? How could you live with yourselves? I sobbed into Lucas's arms. Lucas patted my shoulder reassuringly. Mom, don't be upset. You've been so kind to Jake, bringing him food and drinks, even giving him money sometimes, but having parents like that was his misfortune, not your fault. Actually, it wasn't me who sent those provisions, and Jen couldn't bear seeing him like that. I couldn't explain my past life connection to her, so I just let her be. Thankfully, Jake's twisted personality eventually made Aunt Jen keep her distance from him. Lucas is clever. Seizing this opportunity to polish my public image and generate more buzz for our Shin family, the reporters gasped and immediately turned to ask them both, So you mistreated your son because you thought he was Ms. Lily's child? Were you after the Shin family fortune? May I ask why you harbor such hatred toward Ms. Lily? That sounds like you're blaming the victim here. Maggie's expression froze instantly. What did you say? I repeated, I knew the babies got switched, so I changed them back myself. I've switched the babies back. Jake is your biological son. My sister-in-law stared at me blankly. Before letting out a blood-curdling scream, she lunged at me, shrieking, Lily, you bitch, you knew all along we switched the babies. Why didn't you say anything? Did you enjoy watching us abuse our own flesh and blood? My son, my boy. The bodyguards restrained her while Liam collapsed on the ground nearby, looking like he'd aged a decade in mere moments. No way, this can't be happening. It shouldn't be like this. How did you know we switched sons? A voice came from outside the crowd. Is what you're saying true, Lily? Did you switch me and Lucas back? The crowd parted as Jake limped in from outside. His grotesque, twisted face made the reporters gasp. His eyes burned with hatred. Why, this wasn't how it was supposed to be. In our last life, you never switched us back. Seeing the venom in his eyes, I suddenly realized he'd been reborn too. With all these reporters here and many broadcasting live, I absolutely must keep a straight face. I pinched my thigh black and blue before putting on an agonized expression, saying, What nonsense are you spouting? Past lives, present lives. I noticed the birthmark behind Lucas's ear right after giving birth. That's how I knew the babies got switched and had them swapped back. Lucas chimed in, All your suffering comes from your biological parents. What's that got to do with my mom? Have you forgotten how they treated you? How dare you blame my mother? Did you actually want them to swap us? You're just as despicable? Jake trembled violently, his eyes burning with hatred as he glared at Lucas. It was terrifying. If the bodyguards hadn't restrained him, I'm certain he would have lunged to kill both me and Lucas. My boy, this is all my fault. Everything's my fault. Maggie sobbed desperately while clutching Jake. Liam stared at Jake's mutilated body in utter devastation, Jake's fists clenched with audible cracking sounds. Then he pulled a fruit knife from beneath his hospital gown and plunged it into Maggie's chest. Before anyone could react, he shoved Maggie aside and began stabbing repeatedly into Liam's abdomen. Oh my God, murder. The reporters and admissions officers quickly retreated behind the bodyguards. Even the bodyguards took a startled step backward, regaining their composure. They rushed forward, kicking the knife from Jake's hand and pinning him to the ground. At 18 years old and weighing less than 100 pounds, Jake was effortlessly restrained by a single bodyguard's grip, police and ambulances arrived shortly after. Officers tipped Jake away while Maggie and Liam were loaded into an ambulance. Maggie died instantly from the stab wound to her heart, while Liam clung to life for about 15 minutes in the ambulance before bleeding out just short of the hospital. Jake was sentenced to death after his public killing, broadcast live nationwide, sparked national outrage. Deemed beyond medical help, he was sent straight to prison. The day before the execution, I took Lucas to see Jake, with only a few strands of hair left and that ghastly pallor. Jake looked every bit the monster. I know you've been reborn. Well, so have I. I woke up reborn on the very day I gave birth. If you hadn't been so heartless in your past life, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Jake wailed hysterically. I'm your son too. Last lifetime you cooked for me, told bedtime stories, helped with my homework. How could you be so cruel? I sneered. So you do remember how good I was to you. Then why did you try to kill me? You're nothing but a beast, a feral dog. That can't be tamed. This is exactly what you deserve. With that, I turned and walked away with Lucas. Then came a commotion. Calm down, 09586, remain calm. I should have been the top scorer in the Gaokao. I'm Lily's true heir, damn you both, Lily and Lucas. In the next life, I'll make sure you both pay dearly. Good. The unrepentant don't get second chances. If they're reborn at all, it's only to settle old debts. Story 2, in our past life, on the day my sister and I chose our beast kin partners, she selected a nimble white tiger, while I was left with only a frail, dying python. Within a year of marrying the python, I bore his offspring. The following year, the python miraculously survived his heavenly tribulation and transformed into a golden dragon, making me the dragon queen who commanded universal reverence. Meanwhile, my sister's white tiger grew weaker by the day after their marriage, collapsing during the clan succession tournament and never recovering his former vigor. In the end, I won the competition, but my sister flew into such a rage that she not only poisoned my wine but also threw my child off the cliff. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day of choosing an Orcish mate. The moment I saw my sister rushing toward the little basilisk, I knew she had been reborn too, but little did she know, being the dragon queen isn't as glorious as it seems in our family. Every woman must choose an orc husband upon coming of age to enhance magical prowess. All candidates are meticulously selected by our servants before presentation. As daughters of Liang's most prominent household, my sister and I had orcs practically breaking down doors for a chance to be chosen. A stabbing pain shot through my head when suddenly, a crystal-clear voice rang out, "Father, Mother, I want this little python." Blinking into focus, I saw my sister clutching the feeble serpent, throwing a full-blown tantrum to make the poor creature her husband. "Lila dear, why don't you reconsider? Look how majestic that white tiger is," Mother coaxed my sister. "Indeed, that python looks rather sickly. It suits your younger sister better. Who even allowed this creature into our manor?" Father chimed in, already threatening to punish the servant who brought the snake. I lowered my head with a bitter smile. Even after rebirth, Father and Mother still doted on my sister while treating me like thin air. "Father, Mother, since elder sister favors the python, let her have it. I'd like to choose the white tiger instead." Brand's bright eyes sparkled when he heard I'd chosen him, a delicate blush creeping across his handsome face. Father slapped me across the face. "What wicked thoughts fill your mind? Must you bring ruin upon your sister?" Father fumed, his beard bristling with rage, yet my sister persisted stubbornly, weeping and demanding to form a pact with the serpent god Ba. In the end, our parents couldn't withstand her persistence and permitted her to form a pact with the serpent, while I bonded with Bran. As my sister stepped through the doorway, she cast a glance back at me, her eyes brimming with haughty defiance. "Do be careful, little sister," she tittered behind her handkerchief. "That white tiger of yours might have some congenital defects." I understood her implication all too well. In our past life, the tiger's declining health had made her believe it was inherently flawed. Watching her triumphant expression, I simply smiled faintly without a word. "Sister, your best days are yet to come." Only I truly understand what that boss snake really is. In past lives, people only knew the boss snake successfully transcended tribulations to become a dragon, unaware of the true reason, mistaking it for the creature's innate bloodline power. Not so fast. The spiritual power behind the basilisk's draconic transformation actually originates from me. Our Qi family is the foremost noble house of Dalian. Our ancestors bore the innate sacred furnace constitution. Dual cultivation with such practitioners can double a partner's cultivation prowess. A single drop of heart's blood can awaken latent bloodline potential, granting profound cultivation breakthroughs. Beyond our prestigious lineage, countless beastkin flocked to my sisters and me, coveting contracts with sacred furnace practitioners. In my generation, I became the second divine furnace saint in our lineage. The saint's physique appears ordinary until dual cultivation, revealing its profound mysteries. Only To cultivation partners, when the Bash demon discovered my saintly constitution in our past life, instead of revering me, he imprisoned me in his dungeon, forcing daily dual cultivation. Slap, worse still, he sent minions to drain a bowl of my heart's blood every week. His torment left me wasting away, reduced to playing the dutiful wife in public, a mere prop for his ascension to the dragon throne. Even when I carried the basilisk's child, he showed no mercy, forcing dual cultivation against my will. On my delivery day, he took a bowl of my heart's blood. I barely glimpsed our newborn before the basilisk snatched it away, plunging me back into perpetual darkness. By the succession ceremony, I was already at death's door. My sister's poison merely hastened the inevitable. Since my sister wants to experience my past life so badly, let her enjoy it to the fullest. I brought Bren back to my courtyard. As the least favored daughter in the family, I naturally got the most remote quarters. The only reason I could choose Bren was thanks to my status as the legitimate heir. With the contract enforcer watching, I couldn't afford to embarrass the main family line. Though the courtyard is secluded, I find peace in its quietude. From now on, you're mine, I said, patting Bren on the back. As Bren approached, the unmistakable scent of youth enveloped me. Bren radiated warmth, filling me with an inexplicable sense of security. Yet I still pushed him away. Visions of my past life imprisoned by the Bash serpent remained vivid. I couldn't risk revealing my sacred furnace constitution so soon. Pressing a finger lightly against Bran's chest, I murmured, though we've formed a pact, Bran, I'd prefer to know you better before dual cultivation. A pair of warm hands enveloped my icy fingertips, flooding my body with relentless warmth. Bran's bright eyes stared intently at me before giving a firm nod. Good. I don't like disobedient children. Go play by yourself for now. With that, I turned and retreated to my room, though I've escaped that venomous serpent's influence in this life. I still haven't uncovered why Bran's health deteriorated so drastically in our past incarnation. The Tiger clan is naturally robust. Even enduring our sister's relentless beatings and forced training shouldn't have reduced him to such frailty. Too, outside the window, Bren was joyfully chasing butterflies in the garden. I swore to myself that in this lifetime, I would save Bren no matter what. My husband Mara is undoubtedly the strongest. Ever since that day I made my resolution, I've rarely stayed in my own courtyard. I practically buried myself in the endless sea of ancient tomes in the archives, desperately searching for the reason behind Bran's weakness all those years ago. Persistence pays off. After a full month, I finally uncovered the truth ancient texts record. An unawakened white tiger resembles ordinary tigers, but awakening requires boundless spiritual energy. Without sufficient nourishment, it shall perish. Bran is likely descended from the legendary white tiger divine beast. Not merely an albino tiger. Before his bloodline awakens, he'll require massive spiritual energy. Insufficient supply would lead to fatal exhaustion. As dusk fell, I dragged my weary body back to my courtyard. Normally Bren would have retreated to his room by this hour, but today he sat by the doorway, knees hugged to his chest, glancing around as if waiting for someone. His fluffy ears were out, drooping limply atop his head. Bran, I called out to him. His ears perked up instantly at the sound of my voice, and his gaze snapped toward me. Sis, you're finally back. The boy with beast ears suddenly buried himself in my embrace. Sis, since we made our pact a month ago, you leave early and come back late every day. I barely get to see you. Do you not like me? The boy's fluffy beast ears twitched nervously as he spoke with a slight tremble in his voice, as if afraid of something. How could that be? I chuckled while ruffling Bran's hair. I've just had some matters to attend to these past few days, that's why I've been neglecting you. Then can you spend more time with me from now on, sis? Bren lightly tugged at my sleeve with his fingers, his gaze averted as if afraid to meet my eyes. Of course, I couldn't resist pinching Bren's soft, squishy cheeks. Bren looked utterly content, even reverting to his true form for me to pet. As I stroked the silky tiger fur, my mind wandered to how I'd gather enough spiritual energy before Bran's next transformation. As my thoughts wandered, my hand slipped somewhere unexpected. I felt a tiny bump and absent-mindedly gave it a couple of squeezes. Bren instantly reverted to human form, his face flushing scarlet like a boiled lobster. What's going on? I blinked at Bren in utter confusion. You pervert. Bren dashed back to his room in a flash. 3. I chuckled at the firmly shut door. What's the point of running? You'll still be sharing my bed tonight. Previously when I returned, Bren was already asleep. This would be our first time sharing a bed while both awake. The slender, handsome youth perched tentatively at the bedside, leaving most of the space for me. As I settled onto the bed, I heard my companion's breath hitch abruptly, yet when I turned, their eyes remained firmly shut. Without a word, I wrapped myself in the quilt and slept. I possessed the innate sacred furnace constitution. Even mere proximity to me during cultivation brings profound benefits. With no need for dual cultivation, Bran's training progressed Miraculously, his physique growing more imposing with each passing month. As I approached him, I could actually feel an intimidating presence. Sis, Bren called out with a bright smile as he turned toward me. Through our time together, I'd come to realize Bren was genuinely kind-hearted. What a pity that in our past life, my sister only knew how to brutally force him to cultivate, ultimately leading to his tragic downfall. Counting the days, Bren's awakening draws ever nearer. Since Bren's been cultivating by my side in this lifetime, his awakening will surely come sooner. I should start making preparations. Bran, how about we go shopping in town together today? Sure, sis, I'll tag along with whatever you want to do. I shook my head with a chuckle. Silly tiger, we're going shopping for you lately. I'd made quite a fortune using my past life knowledge, more than enough to buy Bran some rare treasures. The streets were bustling as I pulled Bran into the treasure pavilion. I've just splurged on some spirit pearls and spirit stones at the treasure pavilion. Seeing my lavish spending, the shopkeeper rushed over to personally attend to me. As I was leaving after settling the bill, the shopkeeper suddenly grabbed my arm and whispered in my ear, "You clearly have exceptional taste, miss. I've got some special items in the back. Care to take a look?" "Oh, do tell. To be frank with you, miss, I possess a millennium-old spirit ginseng. Consuming it can replenish vast amounts of spiritual energy. Might this interest you?" My interest was genuinely piqued. At this point, I couldn't afford to miss any opportunity to obtain spiritual energy. A jade pendant lay quietly upon crimson silk, with wisps of white mist curling mysteriously above it. "Boss, this is indeed fine jade." Before I could finish, a snide voice cut me off. "If it's such fine jade, why don't you let your little sister have it?" I looked up. It was Lila. Her face was caked with thick makeup, noticeably thinner than before. Though her voice sounded forceful, it clearly lacked real strength. I chuckled inwardly. Seems that snake Erebus had finally shown his true colors. I wonder what he'll do to me, his sister who wasn't born with the innate spiritual furnace. What's going on here? Another familiar voice rang out. This time, it was Erebus, for my sister visibly flinched at Erebus's voice, confirming my suspicions. Though a flicker of panic crossed my sister's eyes when Erebus arrived, she stood her ground with even greater determination. Our Erebus is about to undergo his heavenly tribulation. Do you know what a bash transforms into after ascension? A dragon. Hand over the jade now. When Erebus becomes a dragon, the entire manor will bask in his glory. My sister's finger was practically jabbing at my nose. Get out of the way. Bren darted in front of me and swatted my sister's hand away. The force sent my sister staggering, nearly knocking her off her feet. Yet even so, Erebus didn't lift a finger to help her. She's been completely discarded now that she's outlived her usefulness. My sister's eyes turned venomous. Like a serpent's, I knew that look all too well. It was the same gaze she'd given me in our past life right before poisoning my wine. In past lives, anything of value I possessed was taken by force. Dear sister, what fate awaits you in this lifetime? I rested my hand lightly on Bran's outstretched arm, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the thin fabric. This kid genuinely cares about me and wants to keep me safe, if big sister wants it. Who am I to stand in her way? After saying my piece, I bowed and left the treasure pavilion with Bren. Sister, I could take that snake. If you want, I'll get your jade pendant back for you. Bren followed behind me, his eyes burning with murderous intent, as if he'd charge back to reclaim the pendant the moment I nodded. No need. Why should we stoop to her level? Sis, I can totally do this. I ruffled the grumpy tiger's fur and whispered mysteriously, "Don't worry, I've got it all planned out. Besides, we finally got this day together, let's not waste it on them." Hearing my reply, Bren immediately perked up and started bouncing along beside me as we shopped. As we strolled through the stores, my mind kept circling back to today's events. Ordinary bash snakes never transform into dragons, nor do they require vast spiritual energy. Now even Erebus needs copious spiritual energy, to the point of requiring Lila's assistance. But it matters not. Without me in this lifetime, he'll never ascend to dragonhood. Regardless, his frantic absorption of spiritual energy now is nothing but forced growth, and the backlash will inevitably consume him. What's wrong? I figured Bran's awakening was still some time away, so gathering spiritual energy wasn't urgent, but I'd underestimated myself. That very night, Bren developed a raging fever. Even the most renowned orc physician in the city couldn't diagnose it, merely calling the illness peculiar. Lila came to my yard just to mock me. Little sister, I told you he was sick and would die sooner or later. Who asked you not to listen? Big sister, just wait and see whose game this will be in the end. Seeing she couldn't out-argue me, Lila spat in my yard and left. I stepped inside to check on Bren. Bren's body burned like a branding iron, beads of sweat rolling down his wheat-colored skin along the sharp contours of his face. His eyes, usually bright as stars, were now bloodshot. Beneath his aquiline nose, his breathing came in ragged, scorching gasps that seemed ready to ignite the very air. Sis, am I being a bother? I'll get better soon, I promise. With Orc's superior hearing, I knew he caught every word Lila said. I placed the cool, damp cloth on his forehead and grasped his burning hands. Don't talk like that. Of course you'll recover. I meant to wipe him down, but when lifting the hem of his shirt, I discovered eerie markings had inexplicably appeared across Bran's taut abdomen, the demonic patterns spread like ink. Black spider silk, writhing with unnatural life as they traced the contours of his abdominal muscles. In that instant, I realized I'd vastly underestimated myself. The awakening I thought was still days away had come upon us this very day. The ancient texts came back to my mind. During their awakening phase, white tigers not only require vast spiritual energy but also experience intense primal urges. Instead of staying put on the bed, Bren sat up and began nuzzling his furry head against my neck and shoulders. His breathing grew ragged as his restless hands started tracing fiery paths across my body, yet he never crossed that final line. I've seen Bran's loyalty these past days. It's time to give him a little reward. Don't let the child suffocate. I turned and met Bran's burning lips with mine. The next morning Bren woke up fresh as a daisy, leaving me sore and aching in bed. Bran's physique had become noticeably stronger than before, and the thought of future days ahead made my vision darken. While resting in the courtyard, I was suddenly startled by a shrill commotion. Don't you dare hide behind closed doors, sister. The household servants saw you steal my spirit jade with their own eyes yesterday. Did I steal her spirit jade? It seems even after rebirth, I shouldn't have held any expectations for my dear sister, according to clan law. Thieves must transfer all their spiritual energy to the victim and receive 30 lashes. Erebus's voice echoed from the courtyard, clearly here to back up my sister. Watching their coordinated performance, I'd already begun piecing things together. Erebus truly does need spiritual energy, an enormous amount of it. Otherwise, he wouldn't resort to such clumsy tactics to frame me and covet my cultivation. Just as I raised my head to retort, Bren came rushing out in a whirlwind. I've been with Mara the whole time. Don't you dare falsely accuse him. 5. Lila shot Bren a disdainful look, rolling her eyes dramatically. You're her orc, of course you'd defend her. You two are clearly in cahoots. Just wait till you both have to transfer your spiritual energy to me. And Erebus, gently pulling Bren back, I flashed my dear sister a radiant smile and said, since you're so confident, sister, why don't we gather everyone in the manor to witness whether I truly stole your jade? Bran's eyes flickered with surprise before regaining composure. He squeezed my hand tightly, as if offering silent support. Lila's face darkened momentarily before she forced composure. Fine, she sneered. Do you think I'm afraid? Even if the whole world sees, it won't change the fact that you stole my jade. The entire household was summoned to the main hall, where my sister continued her vehement accusations about me stealing her spirit jade. I simply stood by with a silent smile. My father slammed his cane on the ground in rage and began berating me without hearing my side. You ungrateful wretch. You've always envied your sister, stealing her things since childhood, and now you've taken to thievery. With unflinching composure, I calmly replied, since my sister keeps accusing me of stealing her jade, I'd like to see the proof. Evidence. That's easy enough. Just let someone search your room and we'll surely find the stolen goods. May I ask, dear sister, was what you lost truly a spirit jade containing spiritual energy? Of course. What? Is little sister getting scared now? If you confess your crime now, perhaps I could plead with father to spare you those 20 lashes. Not at all. I'm just concerned that elder sister's memory might be failing with age, and you've mistaken what was lost. You. Lila seemed on the verge of an outburst, but restrained herself, directing the matrons and maids to search my courtyard. Soon the head matron emerged holding a jade pendant, presenting it to Lila like a prized trophy. See, young mistress. This servant found it in your quarters. With the evidence before us, what possible explanation could you have, sister? Lila adopted a domineering air, looking down her nose at me. But this isn't the jade sister mentioned, I remarked casually, sipping my tea. Pitiful to say, in my past life when I was imprisoned, the boss snake feared my death would ruin our dual cultivation. He scavenged countless rare treasures just to keep me barely alive. That's why now a single glance is all I need to discern a jade pendant's authenticity. The shopkeeper did produce a genuinely rare warm jade that day, but claims of it containing spiritual energy. Pure exaggeration. That jade is clearly just an ordinary stone devoid of any spiritual energy. The white smoke is nothing more than vaporized mineral powder the merchant placed beneath it. Wretched fiend, the evidence is right before your eyes, yet you still deny it. Guards, drag this abomination away and drain every ounce of her spiritual power for Lila. I'd like to see anyone try. Bren emerged from behind me, positioning himself protectively in front of me. As he spoke, Bran's pupils flashed gold for an instant, radiating an uncanny glow. Golden irises. The servant gasped in astonishment. That's the eye color only awakened primordial beasts possess. Could the second lady's beast husband be an awakened ancient divine creature? As Bren revealed his golden eyes, my dear sister's face instantly darkened. Happy? Not a chance. In the past life, the boss snake transformed into a golden dragon early, while the white tiger met an untimely demise. Who would have thought that in this life? Her Switching to the boss snake would trigger my white tiger's premature awakening. Instead, Erebus also wore a grim expression, his gaze toward Bren seething with hatred. So what if your beast husband is an awakened divine beast? You stole what's mine. Both of you deserve to have all your spiritual power drained as compensation. Seeing everyone's attention diverted by Bren, Lila quickly spoke up to redirect the focus back to the precious jade. You jest, sister. Look closely. What the matron holds is merely common warm jade, nothing like the spiritual jade you described. After lying dormant for so long, all the chi-infused mineral powder on this jade has dissipated. To any observer now, it's just an ordinary piece. I chuckled and said, will you let me off the hook now, sister? Mara's face twisted in disgust like she'd swallowed a fly, her expression flustered. No, that's impossible. Impossible. Wait, I must be mistaken. What I lost was just an ordinary warming jade. I'd anticipated her sudden change of story and chuckled. But I asked you before the search, sister. Back then you swore it was a spirit jade you'd lost. Lila opened her mouth to protest, but one sharp glance from Erebus silenced her completely. One look told me everything. She must have suffered Erebus abuse just like I did in my past life. In my previous incarnation, I possessed the sacred cauldron constitution, where regular dual cultivation alone could enhance my cultivation. But Lila's different. Who knows what torment Erebus has in store for her? That serpent never had an ounce of sincerity. If it's just Lila misremembering, then let it slide this time. With everyone watching, father couldn't openly favor my sister, so the matter was quietly dropped. But I alone knew, though Lila played the villain this time, Erebus was surely pulling the strings behind the scenes, having failed to frame me. She'd now face brutal retribution and endless torment upon returning. As we left the hall at dusk, Bran gripped my hand tightly, feeling the warmth of his palm. I whispered, what's wrong, sis? I feel so worthless, Bren mumbled, his head drooping. Silly boy. I flicked his forehead, fighting back unexpected tears. In my past life, no one cared for me. My parents always favored my elder sister since childhood. I thought marrying Erebus would bring relief, but instead I faced endless humiliation and torment, where even the lowest servants in the Dragon Palace treated me with utter contempt. But thankfully, in this lifetime I met Bren. Sister, why are you crying? Seeing my tears, Bren leaned down anxiously, his callous fingers from training hovering near my face, wanting to wipe my tears away yet afraid his rough skin might scratch my delicate complexion. It's nothing. I just feel so lucky to have met you. I wiped away my tears with my sleeve. Bren, you go ahead inside. I need some time alone. Sitting on the doorstep, I gazed at the starry sky, reminiscing about fragments of past and present lives. Suddenly, a voice shattered the tranquility. Mara, the truth is, it's always been you. Erebus' voice came through as he stood there in opulent robes, loosely tied at the waist with just a hint of exposed chest. During the beast husband selection, I secretly hoped you'd choose me. That's why I sneaked into the manor. For you. Erebus reached out toward me, closing the distance step by deliberate step. I laughed. So Erebus has been reborn too. Did you come crawling back after? Realizing Lila wasn't a natural spirit furnace, the me from our past life might have fallen for that pitiful act. But I've already seen your true colors in my previous incarnation. Get away from me. I brushed off his approaching hand. Mara, it's you I love. What's so great about that tiger? He's just after your special constitution. My feelings for you are genuine. Get lost. I threw the icy remark over my shoulder as I turned toward the courtyard. Mara, Erebus was actually kneeling behind me, desperately clutching at my skirt. Just as I was about to strike, a white figure flashed by like lightning and kicked Erebus 3 meters away. It was Bran. Mara belongs to me alone. Who the hell do you think you are, daring to touch her? Bran held me tightly in his arms, and I could smell the fresh soapy scent on him. Erebus lay on the ground, wiping blood from his lips as his slit pupils glared at me venomously. Mara, you'll regret this. Bran covered my eyes and said, sis, don't look at trash. Look at me when we get back. I wrapped my arms around Bran's neck and let him carry me back inside. Bran laid me on the bed, meticulously exploring every inch of my body before pouting. Sis, you smell like someone else. I leaned close to his ear and whispered deliberately, then, cover it up yourself. I regret it. I truly, deeply regret it. I never should have teased Bran yesterday. I haven't left this bed for 3 days. Father's health is deteriorating rapidly, making it difficult for him to manage family affairs. The next clan succession ceremony is approaching. All eligible candidates from our generation will compete in the tournament. The beastmen will duel in the arena, and the victor's wife shall become the next clan matriarch. I watched Bren training outside. I participated in last year's tournament and know all the contenders' capabilities. None could possibly defeat Bren. If everything goes smoothly this year, the position of family head will undoubtedly be mine. Erebus completely vanished after realizing I'd never changed my mind. From the servants' gossip, I heard Erebus is nearing awakening too. Now everyone's saying he'll be the next Dragon King. The moment I heard, I knew Erebus had resorted to dark arts in our past life. Even dual cultivation with my innate sacred furnace constitution wasn't enough for Erebus. He sought countless women for cultivation. Yet each emerged with faltering steps, their bodies drained of vitality like boneless puppets. Dark arts remained dark arts every time Erebus practiced this method. His spiritual energy would spiral into chaos, and only I could stabilize it. News of his draconic transformation spreads too swiftly. I dread to imagine how turbulent his spiritual energy has become. The clan succession tournament begins soon, and Lila and I were placed in different groups. This means my sister and I won't meet until the final showdown. Bran and I swept through the competition effortlessly. Awakened Bran overpowered every orc opponent, with many forfeiting before matches even began. Erebus's performance was wildly inconsistent, sometimes dominating easily while barely scraping through other matches. Every time Erebus narrowly won, my sister would look ghastly pale the next day, her steps unsteady, sometimes even bearing fresh wounds on her face. By the time of our final showdown, the 20-year-old Lila had aged like someone in their 60s. Her once lustrous raven hair turned brittle and ashen. Those clear bright eyes now clouded and dull. Beneath the fighting ring, she stared at me with manic intensity, muttering under her breath, "I will be the Dragon Queen. I must become the Dragon Queen, sis." Daydreaming in broad daylight, I teased with a playful smile. She suddenly realized her slip of the tongue, pursed her lips, and just stared daggers at me. If looks could kill, I'd have died 100 times over by now, but alas, looks can't kill, only real power can. Could he have been reborn too? The arena battle has reached a fever pitch. Erebus seemed to stake everything, channeling his inner energy wildly as he lunged at Bran like a madman. Pathetic. This is nothing but a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The gap between pre-awakening and post-awakening is an unbridgeable chasm. No amount of Erebus energy absorption can compensate for it. Bran effortlessly dodged every frenzied strike Erebus unleashed. 6, yet each of Bran's counterblows landed with crushing force on Erebus. Erebus' aura grew increasingly chaotic. I knew he was about to snap. "Bran," I shouted. He understood me instantly with just one glance. Erebus is highly unstable right now. If he rampages, he might even harm the guests. Just as Bran was about to deliver the final blow to Erebus, Lila suddenly spoke up. "Erebus, maybe we should just give up. I don't want to die." Hearing this, Erebus instantly flew into a rage, his spiritual energy surging wildly as he fixed Lila with crimson eyes burning with hatred. "It's all your fault, you wretched woman. If you hadn't chosen me, I'd be the Dragon King by now. This is all on you." Mid-sentence, he suddenly leaped off the arena platform and charged straight toward Lila. He completely lost his mind. Chaotic spiritual energy rampaged through his body, threatening to make him self-destruct at any moment. "No, little sister, save me." She was actually fleeing straight toward me. "Stay away from Mara." I let out a cold laugh. Seeing this, Bran leapt off the platform and kicked Lila in the opposite direction. Lila tumbled across the ground before collapsing, helplessly watching Erebus advance step by step toward her. Erebus suddenly let out a piercing scream of agony. This was the sign of his impending self-destruction. Bran swiftly shielded me beneath him, his body forming an impenetrable barrier. With a thunderous boom, Erebus's body vanished as torrents of spiritual energy erupted, obliterating the entire arena and leaving many spectators severely wounded. I was the only one who came out completely unscathed, thanks to Bran's protection. Bran only suffered minor flesh wounds on his back, and later playfully insisted I personally apply his medicine. Lila also survived the explosion, but only by grabbing an elderly bystander as a human shield. The old man died instantly, while she merely broke both legs. As the head of this household, I simply cannot allow such a troublemaker to remain as the young mistress of this house, so I banished her to the servants' quarters, where she'll work alongside the maids to atone for her sins once her leg heals. After all, we were sisters once. I still wanted to see Lila one last time. The moment I stepped into the thatched hut, a foul stench assaulted my senses, making me cover my nose in disgust. Lila glared at me with venomous eyes, as if trying to bore holes through me with her gaze. "You did this to me, and you dare show your face, deprived of water." Lila's voice had grown hoarse and grating. "Why wouldn't I come? What exactly can you do to me now?" I looked down at her with pity in my eyes. "Sister, I know you've been reborn, yet in this life you're still living so miserably. It's all your fault. Without you, I would be the family head and the Dragon Queen." Lila tried to push herself up in anger, but collapsed heavily from exhaustion. "Don't worry, sister, I found you a wonderful opportunity." I sat by her bedside, caressing her gaunt face with my soft, delicate hands. The Marquis of Onping's household. The Marquis of Onping was the most powerful noble In the realm, and Lila's eyes instantly lit up. I knew your good days wouldn't last. Just wait till I marry Lord Onping. We'll see how long your smugness lasts then. My elder sister lifted her haughty chin again, asserting her authority as the firstborn. I couldn't suppress my laughter. Dearest sister, do you even know why you're being sent to Lord Onping's household? I took a few steps back. Her stench was simply unbearable. God knows where Lila got the audacity to think Marquis Onping fancied her. Let me enlighten you. Do you even know who you used as a human shield that day? Lila's expression froze momentarily, yet she forced herself to say, just some ordinary old woman. Huh, ordinary. That was Marquis Onping's wet nurse who died for you, a woman the entire household revered. Lila froze as if struck by lightning, collapsing rigidly while staring vacantly at the ceiling. No longer responding to my words, the room's putrid stench became unbearable, so I withdrew and had Marquis Onping's men take Lila away. Rumor has it that from then on, the agonized screams of women echoed daily from the secret chambers of the Marquis of Onping's estate. Story 2. During the Dragon Boat Festival, my cousin killed a white serpent by smashing it against the rocks in the back hills, then crushed all its eggs underfoot. That very night, a giant black serpent visited my uncle in his dreams. It declared that since my cousin had slaughtered its family, my uncle's household must pay the price. My uncle sought help from the village shaman, a man of formidable supernatural powers. The sorcerer claimed the black serpent was a demonic snake that had cultivated its power in the 10,000 serpents lair behind the mountain. The white serpent slain by my cousin, along with the crushed snake eggs, were the black serpent's wife and offspring. If uncle offered the serpent a new bride, perhaps its vengeful wrath could be appeased, so my uncle's family decided to compensate the black serpent with me, an orphan who'd lost both parents. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their nightmare. The cousin knelt before his uncle, weeping bitterly. Father, I had no idea that white serpent was the snake demon's wife. The uncle puffed on his tobacco pipe in silence, making wet smacking sounds, wiping her tears. The aunt pleaded, husband, didn't the shaman say offering Blair to the serpent demon would appease its wrath? Let's give her away, better that than our whole family perishing. The uncle remained silent. The pregnant sister-in-law knelt down, twin trails of silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Father, your grandson will be born in 2 months. How could you bear to see him killed by that demon before he even draws breath? My cousin ran over and clung to uncle's arm, sobbing hysterically. Father, I'm only 13, I don't want to die. Uncle remained silent until his pipe produced no more smoke, then tapped it calmly and said, prepare Blair's belongings. We'll send her to the serpent pit tonight. 1. Standing in the dim corner, my suspended heart finally turned to stone. For the next 2 hours, I received the kindest treatment I'd known since my parents' passing. Uncle piled my bowl high with meat, Aunt personally bathed me, cousin's wife gifted me her pristine wedding gown she once wore, cousin stopped giving me those creepy sideways glances. For once, my cousin actually gave me a friendly look. That night was moonless and windy. With an eerie silence blanketing everything, my uncle led me with a torch to the entrance of the serpent's lair at the back mountain. He knelt on the ground, offering apologies to the serpent lord, and pledged me as compensation to be his bride, to live or die at his whim. After what felt like an eternity, he staggered to his feet and left reluctantly, wiping away his tears. Ancient trees towered around the serpent pit, forming an abyssal hell where even sunlight couldn't penetrate. The night grew ink black, so dark you couldn't see your own hand before your face. The rustling sound closed in from all directions. I knew it was the slithering of countless snakes and insects. A bone-chilling cold shot up from the soles of my feet, instantly spreading through every limb and seeping into my very marrow, leaving me trembling uncontrollably. I've been terrified of snakes since childhood. Just the thought of countless serpents lurking here makes my scalp crawl. I squeezed my eyes shut, desperately trying to block out everything beyond myself, but this was clearly just self-deception. The thick serpent's tail coiled around my waist, lifting me midair as its cold, damp forked tongue flickered across my face, his scrawny looking, but you smell delicious, tasty morsel. Where should this lord begin his feast? A piercing, shrill male voice accompanied by clammy breath washed over me, venomous and bone-chilling. Trembling, I stammered, Lord Serpent, see could you wait, until I've had my revenge. Be before devouring me. The serpent's tail coiled tighter around me, its crushing force threatening to snap my waist in 2 any second, when a mocking voice slithered through the air. Revenge? Whose revenge do you seek? Speak, and if it amuses me, I might let you settle your score before devouring you. I gasped through clenched teeth. My uncle and cousin, the crushing pressure around my waist eased momentarily before returning, though this time with less brutal force, trying to trick me with cheap tricks. Never. I bear a grudge against them. I've long wanted to kill them, but their wariness of me was too great. I had no choice but to bide my time. Lord Serpent, grant me a few days. Once I've had my vengeance, I'll return and submit to your judgment. Still playing games? Fine, I'll just eat you now. The serpent's forked tongue flicked across my cheek again, savoring its prey. Trembling with fear, I stammered, my father told me the serpent lord walks the righteous path, that harming innocent mortals would damn you to demonhood, since you cannot take Vengeance yourself, let me be your instrument of retribution. The Serpent Lord chuckled darkly. If you know I cannot slay the innocent, why tremble so before me? Too, not fear. I lied with straight-faced solemnity, but offer the majesty of the Serpent Lord. I'm not afraid of being eaten, but snakes terrify me, especially their cold, slithery tongues. The Serpent Lord snorted and flung me onto the pebble-strewn ground. The fall wasn't high. It stung a little, but no real harm done. I scrambled to my feet and dropped to my knees, head bowed. I simply couldn't bear to look at those eerie, lantern-sized eyes glowing with a ghastly green light. The Serpent Lord sighed, his shrill voice carrying an ominous, distant echo. Your cousin slaughtered my kin. By rights, I should take his life in return, yet the heavens show no justice. Because he's merely mortal, even this blood debt would cost me a century of cultivation if I were to strike him down. If you can eradicate your uncle's entire family within 3 days, I shall grant you freedom. Fail to wipe them out completely in this time, and regardless of how many you've slain, you'll still become my bride. The tone brooked no argument. 3 days was too brief, yet I dared not bargain. Kowtowing, I murmured, my gratitude, Serpent Lord, just let me slaughter that cousin and uncle. That's all the satisfaction I need. The descent was smooth, and I made it back to the village in less than half the time it took to climb up. I kept a low profile. The Serpent Lord had warned me the shaman was formidable and told me to stay cautious. My uncle's household was fast asleep as I slipped quietly into the courtyard. Standing by the window, I weighed my options and realized taking on both my cousin and uncle at once was impossible, so I held back. Now they're exposed while I remain hidden, allowing me to pick them off one by one. Uncle and aunt toil in the fields every single day. My cousin's a lazybones who can't sit still. He's always wandering off into the mountains for no good reason. I've decided to make my cousin the first target, partly because I hated my cousin most, and partly because he often wandered alone, just as I expected. The next day my cousin seized the chance while my uncle and aunt were working in the fields, grabbed his bow and arrows, and headed for the back hills. My cousin was extremely alert, so I didn't dare get too close, only following at a distance. Not long after entering the hills, he spotted a wild rabbit, chasing after it. He ran straight toward a cliff. My cousin was no fool. Seeing the rabbit leading him toward certain doom, he instantly realized he'd been tricked and halted just 15 meters from the cliff's edge. I couldn't help but sigh in frustration. Damn vermin, how dare you mess with me? Don't let me catch you next time. My cousin spat in disgust, loosed an arrow at the rabbit, then turned back the way he came. At that very moment, I launched a stone at my cousin with my slingshot. This slingshot had been hidden in the mountains. I'd secretly practiced with it every time I went into the woods, dreaming of the day it would help me avenge my parents. Never did I imagine today would be the day it proved its worth. The stone shot straight and true, striking my cousin square in the left eye. He immediately clutched his face with a howl of pain, but he quickly suppressed the pain, limped up toward my hiding spot, and raised his bow. You bastard, I'll skin you alive today. True to his ruthless nature, my cousin didn't cower when blinded. It only awakened his innate brutality and bloodlust. My cousin advanced step by step. You coward, sneak attacking like a rat but too scared to show your face, you spineless bastard. I stayed perfectly still, remaining hidden behind the tree trunk. Got you now. Cousin Xing drew his machete and charged toward one of the trees. Blair, my cousin's blade struck the tree, only to realize he'd been tricked. It was just a piece of cloth hanging from the branches. Just as he was about to turn around, a black snake dropped from the branch and slithered right into his collar. Though the snake didn't bite my cousin, he was terrified out of his wits, frantically reaching inside his clothes to grab the venomous creature. Get the hell off me. I crept from behind another large tree, circled behind him, and smashed the rock in my hand straight into the back of his skull. Warm blood sprayed across my face. My cousin turned with a scream, reaching desperately for me as his body began failing, swaying briefly before collapsing like a felled tree. I knew I should have rooted them all out. My cousin closed his eyes forever, consumed by endless regret and hatred, his dead stare frozen in eternal resentment. With every ounce of strength, I dragged his corpse to the cliff's edge and kicked it over. Leaning against the tree, I sat numbly staring at my blood-stained hands. Though shaken to the core, I'd never regret this. My parents were both murdered by my cousin. My father was a traveling peddler who'd scraped together modest savings over the years, though never struck it rich. When I turned 10, Dad had saved enough to settle down and live quietly with Mother and me. My cousin was a gambling-addicted good-for-nothing, always short on cash. Seeing my father making good money, he kept pestering him for loans over and over. After too many requests, my father lost patience and refused to lend him any more. My cousin lashed out, swearing he'd get even with my old man one day. Dad thought it was just empty threats in the heat of the moment and didn't take it seriously. One day, my parents were robbed and killed by bandits on their way back from selling game in town. My uncle and aunt handled their funeral arrangements, then used adopting me as an excuse to seize our family's house and farmland, treating me like a servant. Though they treated me poorly, I was still grateful. After all, if they hadn't taken me in, my fate would have been far worse. But before long, I began noticing all sorts of oddities. My perpetually broke cousin who couldn't afford a wife suddenly got married, uncle upgraded to a brand new pipe and premium tobacco, even my younger cousin's sister splurged on fancy silk hair ornaments. To my horror, I saw my late mother's silver hairpin, the one meant to be my dowry, adorning my aunt's head. I often fidgeted with the dowry items my mother prepared, until one day I accidentally dropped and damaged that silver hairpin, terrified as I was. Neither parent scolded me, they just reassured me the town silversmith could easily fix it. On the day of their accident, that very hairpin was in my parents' possession. Aunt probably thought the silver hairpin was newly bought by my mother, so she wore it brazenly in public without a second thought. It was then that I realized my cousin's vicious threats against my father weren't just empty words. No wonder uncle always looked at me with mixed emotions. Aunt regarded me with wariness and disgust. While my cousin occasionally radiated murderous intent toward me, my cousin had tried to kill me more than once. He once pushed me into the river, deliberately shot arrows at me, and took me to an old bachelor's house to be humiliated, but fortunately, I've got 9 lives and narrowly escaped each time. 3. I lived with extreme caution, molding myself into an obedient yet overly cautious person, yet even so, they still wouldn't let me be. In that case, blood demands blood. Looking down at Blakey the snake who hadn't left after completing its mission, I said with genuine gratitude, "Thank you, Blakey." Had it not intervened with my cousin at that critical moment, I might have killed him but certainly wouldn't have escaped unscathed. Blakey was an intelligent serpent that raised its upper body and cocked its head at me. I said with a laugh, "You're a clever snake, keep cultivating your skills, and who knows, one day you might become a demon like Lord Serpent." I knew Blakey, just like the rabbit, was sent by Lord Serpent to assist me. Flattery will get you everywhere. Before throwing my cousin off the cliff, I stripped him of anything useful, a machete, a canteen, and 2 plain steamed buns. Before eating, I tore off a small piece and tossed it to Blakey. Blakey showed no interest in the steamed bun, prancing away with an air of disdain. I picked it up from the ground, blew off the dust, and ate it. This was the first time I'd tasted white flour buns since my parents passed away. So delicious, a full belly makes a strong worker. After wolfing down half the steamed bun, he tucked the remainder into his coat and immediately began setting traps on the spot. If cousin doesn't return soon, uncle and aunt are bound to come looking. All I need to do is wait for my prey to come to me. I left my cousin's bow and arrows by the cliff edge, then dug several traps along the path and set animal snares I'd scavenged from the woods. Finally, I scattered dry branches and leaves as camouflage. With everything prepared, I took cover behind a large boulder on higher ground to wait and rest. Uncle and aunt came searching at dawn, carrying torches and calling out as they walked, "My child, where are you?" Aunt's voice was clearly choked with tears. Blaze. Uncle seemed particularly angry. Soon they reached the spot where I'd set the trap. Uncle had an acute sense for the scent of blood. He stopped dead in his tracks, alert. "Wait, what are we waiting for? Our son is missing." The aunt lost her patience and stepped right into the trap. Letting out a piercing scream, the uncle quickly snapped out of it and hastily pulled his wife up from the ground. My foot, the aunt kept wailing in pain. Uncle glanced at aunt's left foot caught in the trap, then at the clearly man-made snare, warily scanning their surroundings. "Old man, get this off me now," Aunt urged impatiently. "Shut your mouth." Uncle snapped and opened her mouth to retort, then belatedly sensed something amiss and fell silent. After a brief silence, Uncle spoke to the quiet mountain woods. "Blair, it's you, isn't it? I never expected Uncle to be so sharp. He actually figured out it was me." Thinking about it, with the Serpent Lord's power, killing them wouldn't require such elaborate measures. That leaves only one possibility. It had to be me. "Blair, it was my decision to send you to the snake pit. I wronged you. Could you please spare your cousin?" My uncle surveyed our surroundings while coaxing me with persuasive words. "I know you resent me, Blair. I'll take whatever punishment you give. I'll return your family house and pay you compensation. Just tell me where your cousin is, please." My aunt stared at the ground when she suddenly noticed some leaves covering long-dried bloodstains. "Dad, look, what's that?" Uncle followed aunt's pointing finger, then strode past the trap with long steps. He saw not just blood-stained leaves, but also that bloodied stone. Uncle's stooped frame froze for an instant before his knees buckled beneath him. "Girl, if you came for revenge against me, I'd have no complaints, but why target Blaze? He's my only heir." The uncle's mournful weeping now carried unmistakable hatred and murderous intent. I knew it. He wanted me dead. He wasn't even bothering to pretend anymore. Blaze's ruthless cruelty certainly didn't come from that petty, penny-pinching aunt of his. "That's the genuine legacy you got from your hypocritical uncle." During my father's last trip away, I heard scuffling noises coming from my mother's room. When I got up at night, I called out from outside the door, and then my uncle slunk out of my mother's room. I was too young back then to understand what was happening. My mother held me and wept, cursing my uncle as a scoundrel while begging me not to tell anyone. That was when father returned and decided never to travel far again. Truth be told, their trips to town weren't just for selling game, they were also scouting houses. Father promised we'd move to town after the new year, taking mother and me with him. That day, I was brimming with joy every single moment. Little did I know, instead of my parents taking me to town, I'd receive News of their tragic death. That evening, Uncle had originally gone out to look for my cousin, yet 4 hours later, he returned with my cousin carrying my parents' lifeless bodies. If my cousin was the murderer, then my uncle was at least an accomplice. They all deserved to die. The uncle didn't wallow in grief for long. He took the bow from his back, knocked an arrow, and strode straight toward the boulder on the slope. By now, dawn was breaking across the sky. Damn my weak arms. I couldn't even draw. Blaze's bow would have been perfect if I could just shoot him dead. When Blaze's mother realized I'd killed him, she collapsed wailing and cursing, "You goddamned worthless bitch. You murdered my son. I'll skin you alive." The aunt stood there cursing for a while before desperately prying open the trap, struggling to her feet and limping forward. She was probably searching for Blaze's corpse. Too bad she'll never find it. The uncle quickly caught up, tossing his bow aside and reaching for the machete. At his waist. "Uncle, over here," I shouted. Then as he turned around, I hurled the stone in my hand straight at his head. Caught off guard by my ambush from the tree, he stumbled backward in panic, his right foot landing squarely in the trap before he collapsed with a scream. I leapt down from the branches, snatched another stone from the ground, and flung it at him with all my might. He dodged just in time. The rock missed his head but struck his left hand, drawing another agonized scream. Though injured, Uncle was still a hardened laborer, far stronger and quicker than this half-starved girl. Weak as I was and wounded as he was, we fought to a standstill, neither gaining the upper hand. Hearing the commotion, Aunt abandoned her search for Blaze's body and scrambled toward us in panic. I dared not glance at Aunt's condition, for the slightest distraction would give Uncle the upper hand. This way, I'm surely dead today. At this life-or-death moment, Aunt had crept behind me, raising her cleaver, but the blade never struck. A black snake suddenly dropped from the tree, coiling around her head to blind her. The aunt frantically wrestled with the blacky snake. My blade struck my uncle's waist, draining his strength as he staggered and collapsed sideways. Just as I was about to finish him off, faint voices echoed from the mountain path. With no time to deal with them both, I delivered a final slash to my uncle and kicked the ant down the slope. Before making a swift escape, I scrambled down the hillside in a panic, with my pursuer doggedly chasing after me. They kept shouting threats to kill me as they ran. Just as they were about to catch me, a massive swarm of snakes suddenly appeared in my path. Gritting my teeth, I plunged straight into the writhing mass of serpents. The pursuers seemed thoroughly intimidated and didn't dare to follow any further. With no destination in mind, I kept running alongside the retreating serpent horde until we reached the serpent's lair. My previous visit had been at night, but this daylight exposure made the sight far more overwhelming. Every conceivable surface, trees, ground, cliff faces, teemed with snakes of every variety. They slithered along, occasionally flicking out crimson forked tongues, staring at me with unblinking intensity, as if eyeing a prime cut of meat. Sunlight seemed trapped above the treetops, leaving even the sweltering day permeated with a bone-chilling gloom. The soaked clothes clung to my skin, every pore saturated with an endless, creeping cold blare. "You've only killed 2 people." From the stone cavern came the Serpent Lord's signature shrill voice, slimy, sinister, like viscous venom that completely enveloped my body. Shivering uncontrollably from the cold, I still tried to bargain for my chance. "Lord Serpent, the 3-day deadline hasn't passed yet. I still have time," the Snake Lord scoffed. "The shaman's already onto our deal. If you go back to the village now, you'll be turned into a pincushion before you even set foot inside, but they're probably using your aunt as bait, just waiting for you to walk right into their trap." I was completely speechless. The one I most wanted dead is already dead. Whether my aunt lives or dies doesn't particularly concern me. Having lost both husband and son, life holds little joy for her now. "In that case," the Serpent Lord drawled with unyielding authority, "you shall honor our agreement and become my bride." The word "no" rose instinctively to my lips, but I remembered this was a pact I'd made. There could be no going back. "But Lord Serpent, I'd like to take one last look at the village," the Serpent Lord scoffed. "Go see for yourself then, you fool." I didn't dare get too close, instead climbing a tall tree with good visibility to observe from afar. Just as the Serpent Lord predicted, villagers are guarding every entrance to the village, lying in wait for me to walk into their trap. Only this elusive sorcerer could command such formidable influence over the people. I retreated sullenly, careful to avoid being spotted by any unexpected mountain visitors. On the path back to the Serpent's lair, I wavered endlessly between ending it all and becoming the Serpent Lord's bride. If the Serpent Lord were the Tiger Lord or Wolf Lord, I'd have agreed without hesitation, but a serpent is still a serpent. The mere thought makes my skin crawl. Becoming its spouse is utterly unthinkable. Then death it shall be. After all, I've already slain the one I most wanted dead. By the time I resolved to end my own life, I'd already reached the outskirts of the serpent abyss. As I rounded the final corner, I saw the serpent's lair engulfed in raging flames, with the pungent stench of sulfur assaulting my nostrils. The ground was littered with mutilated snake carcasses of every kind, a truly spine-chilling sight. Someone attacked the Serpent Lord. Who would dare? My first instinct was to investigate, but then it occurred to me that whoever attacked the Serpent Lord might still be there. So I withdrew my outstretched foot. I cautiously took 2 steps back, and just as I was about to turn away, something fell from above. Instinctively, I raised my hands to catch it. It was the same Blakey snake that had helped me earlier, now gravely injured and barely clinging to life. After a moment's hesitation, I mustered my courage and tucked it into my robe. I didn't dare stop, pushing deeper into the dense woods until nightfall completely enveloped the forest. Exhausted, I finally found a sheltered spot to rest. Parched, starving, and utterly spent, I fished out a flatbread from my coat, wolfed down a few bites and gulped some water. Gradually regaining some strength, I pulled Blakey from my coat for inspection. Still breathing, but barely hanging on. Remembering how it had helped me twice before, I tucked it back inside my coat, resolved to dispose of it only after its last breath. The summer night wasn't too chilly, and being accustomed to hunger and cold, I soon fell asleep. That night, I had a bizarre and erotic dream. A handsome man in black told me he was about to kick the bucket and wanted to practice dual cultivation with me. I didn't understand what dual cultivation meant, so I asked him to explain. He said dual cultivation meant becoming husband and wife. He was so gentle, and with his handsome looks, I couldn't bear to see him die, so I agreed in a daze. The dream felt incredibly real, but I forgot every bit of it the moment I woke up. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, stretching lazily when suddenly I felt an icy chill in my chest, like I was carrying a block of ice. A sudden realization hit me. I yanked out the culprit and flung it to the ground. How dare this? The scaly pervert slither into my undergarments while I slept. The impact woke Blakey, who lifted his head and stared at me blankly before slithering over to a sapling, coiling around it in obvious irritation. Knowing he possessed intelligence, I began lecturing him like a misbehaving child. You're the one who harassed me first, yet you have the nerve to be angry. That's completely unreasonable. The Blakey snake glanced at me before looking away, clearly uninterested in listening. I gave up on the naive idea of reasoning with it. Even if it's intelligent, it's still a snake. Trying to reason with it is like playing the lute to a cow. I'll let it slide this time, but don't push your luck next time. I raised my knife and made a slashing motion. Blakey the snake shot me a cold glare that triggered a familiar sense of danger, like a sudden wake-up call. It's a snake. The one thing I fear most, even if it seems harmless now, I shouldn't underestimate it. I reluctantly sheathed my knife, staring blankly at the endless expanse of mountains. Will I even make it out of here alive? And even if I do escape, where would I belong? Blakey, which way should we go? The snake. Blakey paused, slithered down from the tree trunk, climbed up my leg, and coiled around my left arm, its tiny head pointing southwest. Trusting Blakey's judgment, I moved forward in the direction it indicated. When thirsty, I drank from the stream. When hungry, I foraged for wild berries. Ever since I mastered fire-making, Blakey would occasionally bring back rabbits or pheasants during my breaks. Blakey's wounds gradually healed, yet it still insisted on coiling around my arm. 5. I must admit, familiarity breeds comfort. After spending these days together, I've grown accustomed to Blakey's touch. Every night, I'd share intimate moments with that man in black within my dreams, only to forget everything upon waking. Despite roughing it through the journey, I grew increasingly energetic. My complexion even improved miraculously, defying all logic. After about half a month navigating treacherous swamps under Blakey's guidance, we arrived at a place straight out of fairyland. Lush greenery stretched beneath birdsong and floral scents, where crystal-clear streams meandered through the landscape. I waded into the stream and washed my face with refreshing delight. Blakey slid off my arm and began following the current downstream. Having long considered it my sole companion, I hurried after it downstream in desperation. After about 15 minutes, we reached the stream's end, a bottomless lake stretching before us. Without hesitation, Blakey swam straight into the lake, afraid it might leave me behind. I anxiously called out, "Blakey." Blakey glanced back at me before slowly sinking beneath the surface. Was it abandoning me? I slumped onto the grass and wept helplessly in despair. Moments later, Blakey resurfaced. It tossed me a massive grass carp coiled in its serpentine tail, shot me a disdainful look, then submerged again. As the carp tried to flop back into the lake, I snapped out of my melancholy and quickly pinned it down. I gutted the grass carp with my knife, then built a fire to roast and eat it. With my stomach full, I realized my sorrow had eased, and I curled up by the lakeside to sleep. In my dreams, the man who'd been my husband for half a month reappeared, looking exasperated. As he said, "I'm recovering at the bottom of the lake. Wait for me. About a month." This time, I didn't forget the dream. Now I understand everything. The husband in my dreams was Blakey, and Blakey is the Serpent Lord. Strangely, I don't dislike him anymore. When he said wait for me, my heart leaped with joy. When I woke the next morning, I was covered by a massive snakeskin shed, which I instinctively threw off in shock. The next moment, I remembered this was Blakey's hide, so my fear subsided and I quickly picked it back up. Nearby lay a simple dress crafted from shed snakeskin. Glancing at my tattered rags of clothing, I decided to wash up before changing, but first, I needed to catch a fish from the stream to fill my belly. The thought had barely crossed my mind when a huge grass carp leaped from the lake, landing right at my feet. Delighted, I scooped up the fish and called out to the lake, "Thank you, Blakey." Ripples disturbed the mirror-like surface before quickly settling back into stillness. After the meal, I stood in the stream to wash my hair and body. Sunlight danced on the water's surface, scattering dazzling sparkles that took my breath away. The lake behind me rippled gently until I put on the snakeskin suit. The grass felt wonderfully soft beneath my bare feet. Living here like this wouldn't be so bad after all. 3 fish leap from the lake every day without fail, morning, noon, and evening. With nothing better to do, I'd spend entire days sitting by the shore, watching the water's surface. Sometimes I'd wander away from the lake to forage wild berries, a pleasant change of pace. Blakey no longer visits my dreams, but knowing he rests beneath the lake brings me comfort. 27 days passed in the blink of an eye, just 2 or 3 more days until I see Blakey, and I'm growing more impatient by the minute. On the morning of the 28th day, I suddenly jolted awake from my sleep, bolting upright to find myself face to face with a silver-haired old man. Is that Blakey? Coming out early is one thing, but why'd you turn into an old man? No way, you're lucky to be alive. Having caught his eye, the old man said coldly. I froze in my tracks. That voice, I knew it well. It was none other than the great sorcerer. The sorcerer came to our village 5 years ago, skilled in both medicine and divination. He earned the villagers' reverence as the great sorcerer. I've seen him a few times, but he never showed his face properly, so I don't know what he looks like. I stumbled backward in fear, my right hand reaching for the machete hidden beneath the snakeskin blanket, when suddenly an invisible force froze me in place. The sorcerer gave a kindly smile. Little one, I mean you no harm, just bring Zephyr out, and I'll let you go. I stammered, we're just passing acquaintances. I'm not that important to him. The sorcerer's pupils slid into crimson vertical slits, his voice growing increasingly sinister. Zephyr values loyalty above all. He'd even protect his mother's reincarnation. As his wife, he'd never abandon you. Zephyr's mother's reincarnation, the white serpent. Exactly, that's how it should be. Uncle said the black serpent claimed in a dream that his cousin murdered his family. The shaman declared the white serpent and serpent eggs were the black serpent's wife and offspring. He deceived our uncle. My gut tells me a sorcerer must have been behind my cousin killing the white serpent. What's his real motive? To force Zephyr into murder. Why are you trying to harm Zephyr? That's none of your concern, since you refuse to talk. Don't blame me for what comes next. The sorcerer gripped my throat and shouted at the lake. Zephyr, if you don't show yourself by the count of 3, I'll kill your wife. 3, 2, a massive black python emerged from the lake bed, its enormous eyes glowing with an eerie green light as they fixed unblinkingly on the sorcerer. 2 prominent bulges had formed on its head, as if horns were about to sprout. The sorcerer showed no fear, letting out an arrogant laugh, on the verge of draconic transformation. Zephyr, you truly are formidable. Zephyr, fighting would leave us both crippled. Share half your core with me, and I'll release her. With your talent, you'd recover in about 5 centuries. Zephyr wavered, then gave a hesitant nod. My heart burned with urgency. My cousin's experience taught me, when you weed, you must pull up the roots. The sorcerer would never let either of us leave here alive. How can a serpent demon be this stupid? Zephyr, if you share half your core with him, today will be the death of us both. Silence. The sorcerer did something to me. I couldn't speak another word. Fortunately, Zephyr didn't hesitate. He suddenly struck, his massive serpent tail slamming down toward the sorcerer's head. When the sorcerer realized I couldn't be used to threaten Zephyr, he instantly snapped my neck. In that final moment before darkness took me, I saw Zephyr launch a frenzied assault on the sorcerer. Just when I thought I'd be forever lost in the void of darkness, I woke up again in the dimly lit stone cavern, but something fell off. To my horror, I realized I was lying within a massive coil formed by an enormous black serpent. Even more terrifying, my lower body had transformed into a serpent's tail. Terror stole my voice, trapping my scream in my throat. The black serpent startled awake, lifting its head toward me before morphing into a dark-clad young man who pulled me into a tight embrace. Axel killed you. I had to use half my core to revive you. Now you're half yo. Don't worry, once you've cultivated enough, you'll regain full human form. I gradually calmed in Zephyr's less than warm embrace, taking what felt like forever to accept my new half-demon reality. Later, Zephyr patiently taught me how to use my serpent tail. 6. After a month, I'd mostly adapted to my half-human, half-serpent form and could skillfully maneuver my tail to accommodate my feelings. Zephyr also maintained his half-human, half-serpent appearance. Several more days passed. At night, Zephyr pressed against me with lingering intimacy, his serpentine tail restlessly entwining with mine. Blair, my mating season has begun. I'd mentally prepared for this moment, yet before consenting, I needed answers to the questions weighing on me. Why did you choose me as your mate? Wasn't it your uncle who gave you to me? Just like that, what else? I thought there was some life-saving favor between you two that I didn't know about. You're such a shameless snake. How am I shameless? Zephyr grumbled discontentedly. I just fell for you at first sight. I remained skeptical of this answer. Zephyr's side story. Axel and I were brothers hatched from the same clutch of snake eggs. At first, we practiced our cultivation together with diligence. Later, Axel grew impatient with the slow progress and turned to dark arts, feeding on human life essence to accelerate his cultivation. Our paths diverged when our principles became irreconcilable. Feeling lonely in my solitary cultivation, I sought out The white serpent that carried my mother's reincarnated soul. I tried guiding the serpent onto the path of cultivation, but lacking any innate talent, our efforts came to nothing. Axel, having committed countless evils, faced divine retribution. Not only was he grievously wounded, but heavenly lightning shattered his core. Unwilling to accept his impending demise, he came to me for help, demanding half of my core. I naturally refused. Undeterred, Axel remained in the village as a sorcerer, winning over the villagers while plotting to steal my inner core. The day of the Dragon Boat Festival was when I was at my weakest. Axel incited Blaze to kill the white serpent in the back mountains while personally keeping me occupied. He tried to use the white serpent's death to force me into killing innocent mortals, knowing divine retribution would cripple my cultivation. This would give him the perfect chance to slay me, steal my golden core, and extend his own wretched life, though I didn't take the bait. Cutting my seclusion short caused chi deviation that left me severely wounded. When Axel saw I wouldn't seek mortal vengeance, he schemed to have the Wynn family deliver Blair as my bride. Another provocation, but I still didn't fall for it. Axel knew I was injured and later ambushed me at the serpent's den, though I narrowly escaped. My wounds worsened. Thankfully Blair returned. She didn't abandon me and helped me flee. I just knew she had feelings for me, but my injuries were too severe. I was on death's door. To cling to life, I had no choice but to lure her into spiritual cultivation with me in dreams. Later, Blair asked why I chose her to be my wife. I told her it was love at first sight. She seemed skeptical, but I genuinely fell for her at first sight. Though it was our first meeting, I felt like I'd been waiting for this moment forever. Story 2. During the spring festival travel rush, a colleague helped me buy an overpriced train ticket from Scalpers. When we boarded the train together, she stubbornly refused to vacate my assigned seat. Can't you see I'm carsick and vomiting? I can't possibly stand for 20+ hours, just let me have the seat. She brazenly kept occupying my seat, forcing me to stand for 38 hours on the stalled train. The moment she stepped off the train, her swollen legs from prolonged immobility gave way in the jostling crowd, causing her to miscarry. She wheeled around with venom in her eyes. Why couldn't you spare an extra $400 for a sleeper berth? Your damn stinginess killed our baby. Then with one violent shove, she sent me tumbling onto the tracks, straight into the path of the oncoming train. When my eyes fluttered open again, I found myself reborn at the exact moment of purchasing that damned standing room only ticket. Valerie, let me hook you up with a scalper, just pay $200 extra for a seat. Standing over 20 hours is downright insane. When my coworker noticed I'd bought a standing ticket, they urgently referred me to a ticket scalper, who could possibly stand for 20+ hours. That's brutal. I can't bear seeing you go through that ordeal. For just $200 more, you'll get a proper seat. Send over your ID number. No second thoughts. During the spring festival travel rush, tickets were like gold dust. After days of trying, I could only snag a standing room only ticket. Even that standing ticket was only secured with help from friends and relatives pulling strings. Seeing me frozen for a moment, Harper made herself at home by grabbing my bag from the office chair. Just as she started unzipping it, I yanked the bag back sharply. That's mine. One reborn in this moment. My mind cleared instantly as I fully grasped everything that was about to replay. Clutching my bag and phone desperately, I warned in an unnaturally icy tone, but even seated tickets mean over 20 hours of misery. She nearly jumped with excitement upon hearing this, her words tumbling out nonstop. Then pay $400 extra for sleeper tickets. Scalpers can get them. Just loosen your purse strings and you'll sleep your way home. The fire in her eyes burned like welding sparks, leaving me utterly dumbfounded. Even with my second chance at life, her shamelessness made me cringe with secondhand embarrassment. Last time she schemed to take my seat, now just hearing me complain about the hard bench. She's already plotting to make me pay extra for her sleeper berth, won't lift a finger, yet expects to reap all the benefits at my expense. In that case, I certainly won't humor her. You can actually get sleeper tickets. I parted my lips slightly, feigning astonishment. Harper reached out excitedly, saying, "Quick, hand me your phone. I'll do it myself right now. I'm sure we can get sleeper tickets. I just met this scalper recently, and he's incredibly resourceful." I smiled knowingly, seeing right through the whole charade, yet handed her my phone without hesitation. She grabbed my phone and bolted straight for the bathroom, clearly up to some shady business. I wasn't worried though. With my password-free payment set up, she had full access to my phone, but if I don't make her life hell this time around, I'd be doing my past self a disservice. Half an hour later, Harper strutted over triumphantly and tossed my phone back to me. "Valerie, I chipped in an extra $400 to get you a lower berth. It'll make your return trip much more comfortable. No more worrying about swollen legs or discomfort." Harper's thoughtful gesture had our coworkers showering her with praise. One male colleague especially laid it on thick. "Harper, you're such a kind soul. With tickets being so scarce, you actually got one for Valerie." "Valerie, how are you going to repay Harper?" "Officially, Ben is just Harper's coworker. In reality, they've even had a child together. Harper is currently less than 3 months pregnant but keeping it quiet, fearing company policies might target pregnant employees. They're both such actors, penny pinchers to the core." Ben was pulling strings behind the scenes while Harper did the dirty work. Their motive was Simple, inflate my travel expenses endlessly to cut their own costs. They wouldn't think twice about squeezing every last penny from me. These two trains running north-south charge $260 per ticket for standard seats and standing room. In my past life, I silently let Harper pay scalpers $200 extra for a seat ticket, only for her to hog it for nearly 40 hours. A snowstorm damaged the railway, stranding our train for over 10 hours. I stood for almost 40 hours straight. The crushing crowd left me immobilized, my legs swelling painfully. The moment we disembarked, Harper was shoved onto the platform by the mob and miscarried, blood soaking her pants. I was frozen in shock, staring at her helplessly. She screamed at me hysterically, "This is all your fault. You made me sit for nearly 40 hours. My legs gave out and I fell. Why couldn't you get sleeper berths? If you'd bought sleeper tickets, I wouldn't be suffering like this." The sight of blood stunned my eyes, trembling uncontrollably, my legs shaking. I stammered, "It wasn't me." I tried to explain, but then Ben appeared from the sleeper car, gripping Harper's shoulders. He glared at me with hatred. "Valerie, you killed our child. You're a murderer." It was Harper who'd been hogging my seat for nearly 40 hours straight, and now they're blaming me for her exhaustion and miscarriage caused by the overcrowding. My chest tightened with anguish. Harper shoved me onto the tracks when I least expected it, just as a train came barreling through. Seeing Ben and Harper's two-faced act right now is absolutely ridiculous. Being reborn at this critical moment, they're practically asking for trouble. I teased Ben mockingly. "Excuse me, did you buy a ticket?" Ben froze momentarily. "I bought a ticket home. You're heading back to your place, and I'm planning to do the same." Ben acted awkwardly, stealing sideways glances at a bewildered Harper while speaking. What a pair. Each more selfish than the last. Truth be told, Ben secretly bought tickets himself, wanting to drop by Harper's place. After all, he'd knocked her up. Now he wanted a ready-made wife and child for free. He wanted comfort without spending extra, and didn't want Harper knowing he had a sleeper ticket, so he kept quiet about having one too. He'd rather watch Harper hog my seat and see us two women squabble than endure the slightest inconvenience himself. I remarked casually, "Absolutely, time to get ready for home. Let's pack our bags right away." I gave them a warm smile while making sure to remind them, Harper and Ben both nodded in agreement. After getting home, I checked the ticket booking system on my phone. Harper's ticket cost me an extra 400 yuan through scalpers, who gave me a lower berth ticket priced at 390. My sleeper ticket cost 790 yuan. Definitely not cheap. Easy come, easy go. But no matter, I'll reclaim every penny with interest. The long game begins tomorrow, and I'm ready to see it through. I packed my bags. At dawn the next day, I rushed to the train weighed down by mountains of luggage. Harper shivered in the biting wind like a drenched quail, looking utterly pitiful. Harper's eyes lit up the moment she saw me, eagerly stepping closer to exchange greetings. "Valerie, can I talk to you about something?" Playing dumb, I asked. "What is it? Could I come up with you, maybe visit your sleeper berth? I'll return to my seat soon, won't disturb you." She was practically radiating earnestness. "This clumsy cover-up is as obvious as hiding silver by putting up a sign. Do you really think I wouldn't see through your little scheme?" I asked curiously. "You don't even have a seat ticket. How do you plan to squeeze into my sleeper berth with me? Wake up, this isn't the old days. They check every passenger's assigned carriage now. You're not getting into my sleeper compartment." Got it. Of course she was doing this on purpose, and I knew damn well she'd find a way to board with me. Just flash her pregnancy status and play the sympathy card about not getting a sleeper ticket. The conductor will make an exception these days. Train attendants are quite professional and considerate. Harper looked on the verge of tears, her voice trembling with grievance. "I know how to get aboard. Just let me follow you." "Nonsense. You'd tag along to hijack my sleeper berth, then use your discomfort to guilt-trip me into standing for dozens of hours in your seatless carriage." "Harper, that's some next-level scheming." I didn't call out her lie in the harshest tone. Instead, I gave her a half smile, making it seem like a joke. She froze momentarily with guilt, but shameless people have no real sense of decency. Quickly shifting her tone with teary eyes, she pleaded, "Valerie, I didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to sit in your spot. If you won't let me, I can take the window seat instead. Anything's better than being crammed in this crowd. Please, I really can't handle the crowd. In my past life, my constant soft-heartedness was what landed me in hell at her hands, but this time around, I just find it laughable." I jerked my chin toward carriage 18. "Why don't you go see who's in there? You'd have better luck begging them than asking me." Ben sprawled out in carriage 18 right now, probably living his best life, probably glued to the phone right now, head buried in pillows under blankets, gaming or checking out pretty girls. Ben secretly bought train tickets to visit her family for New Year's, and what does she do? Haunts me like a persistent ghost. Harper squinted in that direction for a moment before frowning. "What do you mean? Some things are better left unsaid. Spend a fortune setting up this show, but damn if I don't enjoy watching the drama unfold. No time for explanations. I need to board now. The train won't wait." I found my way to carriage 17, and just as I entered, Harper rushed in after me. The conductor quickly stopped. "Harper, your ID please." "Ma'am." Harper pointed at me urgently. "My ID's in her bag. She's already boarded. Let me fetch it." And I'll show you right away. Damn, I never expected her to pull this move, slipping in right behind me like lightning. The conductor had to check others' tickets first, and she shamelessly tailgated me into the same compartment, lower berth 22. This is it, Valerie. I'm exhausted. I'm crashing here first, she blurted while commandeering my spot. Then she plopped her carry-on at her feet, clearly not leaving me any space to sit. I laughed in disbelief at their shamelessness. This leech was bleeding me dry. I stood over her with folded arms, staring down like she was some mangy stray. Harper locked eyes with me after lying there a while. Why were you staring? I'm trying to sleep. Quit bothering me. My voice turned icy. You're seriously squatting in my bunk, just gonna keep hogging the lower berth? Harper looked upset and aggrieved. Don't be so harsh. I'm just not feeling well. You're tougher than me. Sitting for a while won't hurt you. Without another word, I quickly headed toward carriage 18. Harper, if I let you lie there for 10 more minutes, I'll eat my hat. I managed to find a female train attendant without trouble. Excuse me, but a passenger without a seat has taken over my lower berth and refuses to give it back. Are standing passengers even allowed in sleeper compartments these days? I deliberately made a scene in this carriage to locate where Ben was sitting. Soon enough, I spotted him hastily covering his head as if afraid I'd recognize him. I smiled knowingly, mentally noting his exact location. Just wait till I stir the pot and make things worse for him. Hearing this, the conductor rushed over angrily. A passenger without a ticket sneaking into the sleeper car. I'll check it out. I smugly led the conductor over and triumphantly pointed at Harper sprawled on the lower bunk. The hot-tempered conductor verified my ticket before yanking Harper upright. She barely lasted 10 minutes lying there. I wasn't about to let her get comfortable. Ma'am, this isn't your seat. Your ticket is for car 8. Please vacate this area immediately. The attendant was visibly irritated. The spring rush always made their job harder, and most staff carried some pent-up frustration. Harper was stirring up trouble for no reason, adding to the crew's workload, and train attendants don't tolerate that nonsense. Seeing this, Harper suddenly hugged her shoulders, tears streaming down her face. Her voice choked up as if she'd been bullied by a crowd. It wasn't me. I know I don't have a seat. But Valerie is my colleague and hometown friend. I bought her ticket. Can't I just sit in her spot? Besides, I'm pregnant. Here's my ultrasound report. I'm 10 weeks along and still in a critical phase. Standing without a seat would be unbearable and might even cause a miscarriage. And it's not that I didn't want a sleeper ticket. I just couldn't get one and had to settle for standing room. That's just like her. Even with past life experience, she still manages to shock me profoundly. It all depends on how the train attendant handles this situation. The attendant's demeanor instantly softened as she took a deliberate step back. You're traveling during spring rush while pregnant. Harper's eyes reddened. Don't pregnant women deserve to go home for New Year's? I originally got standing room tickets because nothing else was available. Who'd choose hardship over comfort if they had options? She seized the chance to play the victim, giving the conductor a massive headache while he dared not say a word. After all, nobody wanted to be responsible for upsetting a pregnant woman. The conductor turned to me helplessly and said, how about this, have her compensate you the fare difference, and you move to the standing-only carriage. My eyes widened as I pointed at my own face. Compensate the difference? You expect me to stand for 40 hours? Wasn't it just 20-some hours? How to turn into 40? You seem perfectly fine to me. The attendant's tone was flat, clearly trying to shift blame onto Harper and me. I didn't tell them about the blizzard that would bury the tracks by dawn. Instead, a wild exhilaration burned in my eyes. Perfect, bring it the hell on, bring on the storm already. This train's been rolling down the tracks forever. There's always those nosy passengers rubbernecking around. I kept my cool in front of everyone. Gotta maintain composure when you're out in public. Conductor, I'm not moving. I paid 800 yuan for this lower berth. She got a no-seat ticket for 260. If she wants to upgrade, she'd need to cough up at least 600 more. Think she'd go for that. The proof of scalper payment is right here in my phone. Harper's beating around the bush because she doesn't want to spend more. Harper turned pale and stammered, but I'm broke, and I'm pregnant. Valerie, you can't do this to me now. I'll only pay an extra 100. Just give me your lower berth, I gasped, expecting my lower berth for just $100. The audacity. The conductor had a splitting headache, and the bystanders were clueless about how to handle the situation. But I've got a solution. Though none of this is truly under my control, this only made matters deadlock further. Shameless theatrics, throwing tantrums and making scenes, do get things done sometimes. Rules and regulations can't restrain a madman. The conductor rubbed his temples. I'm at my wit's end. Sort it out among yourselves. Someone must move to the non-seated carriage. These are railway regulations, and I won't take responsibility or face disciplinary action. Time to bring Ben into this, or the matter might just get swept under the rug. Even if I could take the lower berth, Harper would just cozy up somewhere reclining comfortably. Those two bitches shouldn't get off so easily. I urgently pointed toward carriage 18 and told the conductor, I've got an idea. When I was calling you over earlier, I noticed this lady's husband lying right next door, her man sleeping comfortably in middle berth 19. What? The conductor's eyes bulged, barely Believing what she just heard, she turned and snapped at Harper. What a pair you two make. A pregnant woman buys standing tickets but steals seats, while her darling husband lounges in a sleeper berth. Absolutely shameless, Harper snapped decisively. My husband isn't in the same carriage. He's not from my hometown, so of course he'd go back to his own family for New Year's. Valerie, how dare you spread rumors about this? Ben isn't my husband. She suddenly realized her slip-up and instinctively hit the metaphorical unsend button. But how could I possibly miss something like that? She and Ben had been secretly dating, keeping their relationship completely under wraps. Harper, stop making excuses. Isn't Ben the father of your unborn child? Conductor, Ben is in bunk 19 of carriage 18. He's her husband and the baby's father. This is simple. Make him stand in the non-seated section. What's 20-some hours of standing for a grown man? He'll manage. The conductor's face relaxed visibly, as if a weight had been lifted now that a solution was at hand. She turned sideways and headed toward carriage 18. As she walked, she called back, hold on, I'll go verify this right now. Harper looked at me like I was insane. You've truly lost it, making up lies about something like this. Relaxing my expression, I sat on my lower bunk, spreading my hands and taking a deep breath. Harper, let's make a bet. If that's really your Ben, stop bothering me. You've been taking advantage of me often enough. Working at the same company, she'd brew my beauty tea, use my tissues, and share my lunchbox every single day. In my past life, I never bothered with such trivial matters. My pride was too strong, and I couldn't bring myself to stop her. Since we're from the same village, looking out for each other is only natural, so all my sacrifices led to a brutal death. To truly live this life, I must forge a heart of steel. Fine, if that's not Ben, then this seat's mine. You can go sit in my unassigned carriage. Harper was brimming with confidence, more certain than ever. I slapped my thigh decisively. Deal, everyone here can be our witness. Finally free to enjoy the show. I could barely contain my excitement. I practically wanted to drag Ben over right then to prove my point. Soon after, the conductor's booming voice came from the next compartment. Passenger in middle berth 19. Please present your ID for verification. I advise against any physical resistance. Sir, madam, this is the 5th time I'm asking. Show me your ID immediately. The conductor's patience had run out completely. His thunderous shouts could be heard clear across the carriage. Get some backup here now. The conductor grabbed his radio to urgently summon assistance. Soon enough, the train conductor and several attendants rushed to carriage 18. Get 2 people to restrain him. He's refusing to show ID. We suspect his identity might be questionable, possibly a spy. We're legally obligated to check his identification, the train police explained with valid justification. After a while, someone found his ID. There's nothing wrong here. The ID shows his name is Ben, and he purchased the train ticket through legitimate channels. Then why wouldn't he show his ID? The female attendant was absolutely livid from the start. I know his wife's hogging someone else's sleeper berth in car 17 while he's here gaming and sleeping like a log. His pregnant wife deserves better care. What a shameless jerk. Swap places with her immediately. You stand in the non-reserved section and give her the seat. The train attendant had been seething with rage, her voice trembling with fury. Harper, who'd been standing calmly beside me, suddenly looked utterly stunned. She couldn't believe her ears, thinking she must have misheard, then hurried off toward car 18 eager to see the drama unfold. I followed closely behind. When Harper spotted Ben, their jaw dropped even further. Ben, is that really you? You're on the same train. You got yourself a sleeper berth without telling me. I'm stuck standing here. How could you be so selfish? First you pressured me into buying tickets quickly, so I ended up with standing room only. Then when scalpers showed up, you said their prices were outrageous, yet you secretly got yourself a sleeper. You're inhuman. Harper's story conveniently glossed over her schemes against me, painting herself as the poor victim. But whatever, I'm thoroughly enjoying this juicy drama. After getting caught, Ben was drowning in shame and guilt. He couldn't meet Harper's eyes, but quickly hatched a new plan. I just wanted to surprise you. Honestly, my plan was to rest for 3 hours first, then tell you to come over and take my sleeper berth. That was brilliantly said. It completely diffused their tension. A spark of hope flashed in Harper's previously disappointed eyes. Really, you were planning to surprise me at my place? Shedding his earlier guilt, Ben met Harper's gaze firmly. Yes, I want to marry you. That's why I planned this trip. To surprise you at your home, and on this train. I'd never let you go without a seat. Harper beamed with satisfaction. Great, then I'll take your bunk, Ben said hurriedly. All right, let me help you up. Within less than 10 minutes, the two were acting utterly lovey-dovey. After climbing up, Harper deliberately peeked up to flash me a triumphant grin, mouthing the words, "See, I've got a bunk. Your spot's not even worth considering." It seems they've cleared this hurdle, but the real show was just beginning. Smiling silently, I turned back to my seat intending to sleep. After sleeping straight for 8 hours, I woke to hear people buzzing with conversation. The trains have stopped running. They say the tracks ahead are buried under heavy snow. A proper blizzard's coated everything in ice. Further north we go, colder it gets. With so many crews rushing repairs now, who knows how long it'll take. Might need a dozen hours or more. That's rough, at least we've got heating and sleeping berths in this godforsaken mountain area, but those poor souls with seats or standing tickets, standing for hours on end, who could endure that? It's begun. Outside the windows lies a world blanketed in snow, surrounded by desolate wilderness with nothing to do but wait out the blizzard. I was the only passenger who knew the train would be stranded for about 15 hours. During the delay, there'd be no hot water, extreme overcrowding in the carriages, and nobody would venture outside in sub-zero temperatures. That cramped space would become absolute torture. Thankfully I had a sleeper berth, exactly why I didn't stop Harper from spending the extra $400. Plus, I've packed plenty of food, a whole case of self-heating meals and bottled water. I'm not about to rough it. Just as I unwrapped the self-heating meal, my phone rang. Valerie, can we talk? Ben can't handle standing anymore. Would you swap spots with him? Look, we've been on this train nearly 10 hours. If you stand for another dozen hours, I'll throw in an extra $200. Deal, Harper pleaded with unprecedented sincerity. What's this? Can't bear seeing your precious future hubby get crowded. I coldly refused. Not for 200, not even 2,000. Besides, seated in sleeper cars are separate. He can't come here. I can't go there. Harper immediately countered. It's possible now, really. It wasn't before, but it is now. In critical moments, she actually handles things quite flexibly. In previous lives, many elderly and children without seats were prioritized to sit by windows in dining cars or sleeper compartments. Quite a few people have appeared in my carriage now, all sitting by the windows. There's also an elderly man sitting at my feet, tucked away in a corner without disturbing my rest. I'm happy to help others as long as it doesn't affect me. I drawled over the phone. Harper, don't come to me. Here's an idea. Why don't you take turns with your husband? You lie down for a while, then he takes a turn. You'll be there in no time. Why does it always have to be my problem? Absolutely ridiculous. Harper spoke up again. Tell you what, we'll give you 400, plus another 400 if you switch seats. You move to the unreserved car, and let Ben take your spot. You know how prone he is to leg swelling. I'm the one who actually gets swollen legs, but no matter how many times I tell her, it never sticks. Sorry. But unless it's 4,000, forget about 400. I hung up immediately. If they really offer me $4,000, I might grudgingly accept. Just grit my teeth and power through. Worst case, I'll deal with swollen feet again. It's not like it'll kill me. Soon after, Ben reached out to me. Valerie, we're colleagues. Why make this difficult? I'll chip in another 400. Let's swap bunks. Harper's pregnant, and the middle berth makes it hard for her to climb up and down. The middle bunk really is inconvenient, nowhere near as good as my lower berth. Glancing at the upper berth diagonally across from me, I drawled. Actually, I've switched too, traded my lower bunk with someone else's upper. Now I'm stuck up here. Still think this is convenient for you. Adaptability is my call. They won't squeeze a single advantage out of me. Ben cursed furiously, spitting out, "You're ruthless. This isn't over." They hung up abruptly, just as my self-heating rice was ready. Perfect timing to needle those two and recoup every penny I'd overpaid the scalpers. I snapped a few photos and sent them over. Caption, smells amazing. Got plenty of rice here. You guys hungry? Did it on purpose. Freezing out here. Who wouldn't crave a hot meal? Harper and Ben didn't pack much food, planning to head back within 20 some hours. My suitcase was the biggest, so I shoved it under the lower bunk when boarding for easy access. Soon my phone blew up with messages. Get me 3 portions of rice. I'm starving. Make that 3 for me too. I'll come grab them later. Ben and Harper demanded outright. Do I look like some gullible cash cow who'd splurge on them without thinking? No way. 1 lunchbox costs 100, 3 boxes 300, cash on delivery. I'm not giving you free food. Take it or leave it. Whatever. I've got plenty of lunchboxes. They're exhausted, starving, and freezing. No way they'll hold out. This is getting back every penny with interest. Pure highway robbery. $100 for one. Might as well rob us blind. Valerie, are you insane? We'd rather starve than pay that. They'd never skip meals, being so selfish and self-absorbed. How could they possibly deprive themselves, especially Harper, who's pregnant and gets hungry faster anyway? 5 more hours passed before they finally cracked. Harper reached out. 100 per meal. I'll take 3, but can you cut me a deal? How about 100 total? Like hell I would. I ignored her. The blizzard raged on outside, leaving many shivering uncontrollably. I wrapped myself tightly in blankets, but the biting wind still cut through, no matter how many huddled together. Extreme cold makes shared warmth nearly impossible. Whatever. I unwrapped another lunchbox. Only something warm in your mouth can truly heat you up from within. Of course, I kept sending photos. Valerie, get me 2 lunchboxes. Ben finally caved and spoke to me in a normal tone. Fine, come get them. Have the money ready. I replied flatly. Soon enough, the 2 of them came over from next door. Looked like they'd been hanging out together. Good for them. Should have happened sooner. They had no Business hogging my spot anyway. I casually grabbed a lunchbox from the container. I'll scan it, Ben said, holding up his lunchbox to my QR code. Cha-ching, $200 credited. Harper, Ben got himself lunch. What about you? Don't tell me you're paying out of pocket. I kept fanning the flames, even wiggling my eyebrows at Harper. Anything to stir up some drama. Ben's no generous soul. He's just as selfish and shameless as Harper. Hearing this, Harper's eyes gleamed hungrily at Ben's two lunch boxes. Ben immediately clutched his meals with a dark expression. I already gave you my sleeper berth. Now you expect me to pay for your lunch. These cost hundreds. Buy your own. It's not like you're broke. You never spend a dime on me. The words made Harper fly into an instant rage. She was trembling with her arms crossed, then suddenly flew into a rage, her eyes wild, voice booming like thunder. Ben, you're the one proposing marriage here. As the beneficiary, what's your real agenda tagging along to my hometown, to wed me? I'm carrying your child. I've already agreed and planned how to introduce us to my parents, and you can't even spare cash for my lunch. This crossed the line. Harper might be selfish and opportunistic, but she's no fool. After the verbal lashing, it suddenly dawned on Ben. He'd messed up. He immediately backed down, refraining from giving Harper attitude but also refusing to pay. Just standing there frozen, Harper's anger flared. Fine, don't buy it for me. I'll get it myself, but forget about marriage. This child will have nothing to do with you. Whether I keep it or not is none of your damn business. Harper was genuinely furious, her eyes reddening and welling up with tears from Ben's actions. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Ben abruptly grabbed his lunchbox and stormed off to carriage 18. Harper shot me a fierce glare. What's so funny? Get me 4 lunchboxes. I'm buying them myself. I've got money. I quickly pulled out my QR code. After confirming the 400 yuan payment, I double-checked my hands before handing her the meals. At that moment, I almost felt like some kind of saint. By splitting them up with these lunchboxes, I spared Harper from future misdeeds. She should be thanking me. Really, watching Harper carry the takeout next door, I couldn't help but feel there was more to see. This drama was too good to miss. Soon enough, shouting erupted from the neighboring room. Ben, you're such a selfish cheapskate, picking on a pregnant woman. Good luck ever finding a wife, and FYI, I'm not marrying you. Harper's voice was razor-sharp, trembling with barely contained rage. Ben fired back without hesitation. Who cares? Don't flatter yourself thinking you're some precious princess. What would I possibly lose without you? Truth is, you're just some cheap slut who jumped into bed with me for free. Women like you are fickle as hell. Today you're mine. Tomorrow you'll spread your legs for anyone. Sorry, sweetheart. No seat for you. This is my berth. Get lost. Masters crossing swords, every strike lethal. Ben went nuclear, left absolutely no room for retreat. But damn if I didn't enjoy every morally bankrupt second of it. I grabbed another handful of sunflower seeds and stuffed them in my pocket before rushing next door to watch the drama unfold. Tears streaming down her face, Harper cried, Ben, you're such a scumbag. I've never seen someone take advantage of others and then look down on them. Forget it. I don't want this seat anymore. I'm going back to my own compartment. Once we get to the office, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. Suit yourself. I'm not scared. Their argument ended bitterly as Harper hastily packed her things and stormed off without another word. She looked tough as nails, but to reach the standing-only carriage ahead, she'd have to pass by me. When she saw me cracking sunflower seeds, her eyes burned with hatred, practically screaming, "This isn't over." I nodded with a smile, accepting her challenge, hoping she'd keep that fiery spirit. Ben returned to his middle bunk, I stayed in my spot, and Harper went back to the standing-only carriage. Truth be told, this is where we truly belong. Our paths were never meant to cross. After another night's wait, the blizzard finally ceased, the tracks cleared, and the train resumed its journey. The entire trip home takes 38 hours from boarding. With only half that time elapsed, Harper still faces 16 more hours. On her feet, the train car reeked of foul odors with overcrowded aisles. People sprawled haphazardly outside the toilet. Standing 16 hours in such cramped conditions would inevitably wreck her body and cause miscarriage. I couldn't be bothered to warn her. Frankly, I hoped she'd relive her past misery, just as long as she left me alone. The grueling journey lasting over 10 hours left everyone ghostly with resentment. Even passengers in sleeper cars. This journey feels endless. My bones are aching from lying down so long. Spring festival travel is always tough, but thank goodness I got a sleeper berth. The seated section is completely packed. Someone tried to use the restroom but couldn't even reach it. My God, there are just too many people. The spring festival rush is what it is. Crowds are inevitable. No matter how crowded it gets or how far the journey, we'll all reach our destinations eventually. After another grueling 16 hours, we finally reached our station, home at last. Overflowing with excitement, I rushed off the train only to be hit by bone-chilling cold that made me instinctively pull my collar tighter. Better put on my hat and gloves. Can't afford to catch frostbite. Just as I stood up to continue my journey, suddenly someone in the crowd screamed, "There's blood. So much blood. Did she lose the baby?" I didn't turn around. I knew it was Harper at this exact moment, reliving her past miscarriage, but sadly, Ben wouldn't be there to help her this time. Tears of joy streamed down my face. Finally, I wouldn't be pushed onto the tracks. I could go home alive to my parents, celebrating the new year with great joy and festivity. After the holiday, everyone gradually returned to the office. When I saw Harper again, she glared at me and said, "Happy now? You saw me miscarrying back then. Why didn't you help? Ben wouldn't help me, and neither would you. Do you have any idea how cruel that was, Valerie? I reported your refusal to help in an emergency to management. Brace yourself for termination." Harper was making threats, but ironically, I was actually hoping to get fired, complete with severance pay. After all, I'd already landed another job yesterday. Just sharing the same workspace with her made me feel suffocated. Eventually, the company did fire both Ben and me, him for being morally reprehensible, and me for failing to render aid, after receiving 30 grand in compensation. I immediately joined the firm across the street to rebuild my future. My former colleagues would occasionally vent to me, who could possibly stand for 20+ hours. "It's brutal. I can't bear seeing you suffer like this. Nana keeps ranting daily about Ben being trash, as if I didn't already know he's scum. So damn annoying. Harper used to take advantage of me all the time, but I never called her out on it. Always gave her a pass instead. Now that I'm gone, she's definitely still pulling the same old tricks on others. So I just laugh it off." A month later, an ex-coworker happily told me Harper got fired. "She's always mooching off people, has terrible ethics, slacks off constantly, and can't even finish her work. Jobs are hard to come by these days, and she didn't even appreciate hers." Yeah, jobs are hard to come by these days. Ben hasn't landed a single job since getting fired. What about Harper? With that kind of character, do you think karma will catch up eventually? I can't wait to see. Story 2. I had never believed any prophecies about zombies or the end of the world. It was only when I returned to school at the end of the weekend and encountered a suddenly suspended high-speed train and a blocked high-speed railway station that I realized something was wrong. When I was awakened by the sudden screams and noises, I was leaning against the seat of the high-speed train, feeling drowsy. "What's going on?" Paige, who was sitting next to me, shook her head while we were talking. Several flight attendants rushed through this carriage towards the next one, holding walkie-talkies. My seat was 14C, close to the aisle. When the flight attendants passed by me, I seemed to vaguely hear them saying on the walkie-talkie, "It's under control, send a few more people." I felt strange, but Paige didn't care. What could go wrong? "Look, there's no sound now, right?" Before she finished speaking, several harsh screams suddenly came from one of the carriages. I don't know how to describe the sound. It was like a duck whose throat was being tightly choked, and it almost didn't sound human. I was so frightened that I couldn't help swearing. Damn it. The people in the carriage were obviously also startled by the sound. Several young people had already stood up from their seats and looked towards the carriage where the sound came from. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion in the carriage. I leaned back in my chair and thought about the sound I had just heard. For some reason, an ominous premonition welled up in my heart. I looked up at the train number information on the top of the carriage. The nearest station was estimated to arrive in a few minutes. The noise in the front carriage was getting louder and louder, and more people, out of curiosity, rushed to the connection between the carriages and stretched their necks to watch the excitement. "Shall we go and have a look too?" Paige asked me. I shook my head and was about to say something when I was suddenly interrupted by Paige. "Wait." Paige lowered her voice, picked up one of her earphones and stuffed it into my ear, then clicked on a few voice messages she had just received. "Damn it, there's someone going crazy in our carriage. This person has been coughing and saying he wants to vomit since he got on the train." As soon as he said that, he vomited all over the place. The flight attendant brought hot water and finally settled him down. Then this person suddenly stood up and said he was cold. Before he could take 2 steps, he fell to the ground and started twitching. "Damn it, I'm a bit scared. He seems to be about to jump up from the ground." No, damn it, this person was lying on the ground, and suddenly he crawled onto a passenger's leg and took a bite of the passenger's thigh. Damn it, I couldn't hear the later part clearly, and could only hear the suddenly louder and noisy sounds from the other end. Screams and curses were mixed together. The voice message ended abruptly here. I took off the earphone and looked up at the crowd crowded at the connection between the carriages again. An absurd thought flashed through my mind. Paige was looking down, replying to the message and mumbling, "Why do I feel that something is not right? Ask her what the situation is now." Paige shook her head. I asked, but she didn't reply to me. While we were talking, the scene outside the window changed again, and tall pillars and platforms came into view. The high-speed train was entering the station. My heart was pounding, and I looked up at the crowded connection between the carriages again. The cries of children, the laughter, scolding and shouting of adults were mixed together, filling the carriage. It should have been a very ordinary scene, but for some reason, I felt even more nervous. I raised my hand to cover my pounding heart, and there was only one thought in my mind. I want to get off the train, get off the train. Paige's tone was a bit surprised. "But the next stop is ours." She paused, and obviously thought of something. "Okay, let's Get off the train first. The crowd was so crowded that Paige and I couldn't take our suitcases down from the top of the carriage at all. We tried several times but failed. The high-speed train stopped at the station for a very short time. Seeing that the door was about to close, I gritted my teeth and made up my mind. Let's get off the train first. Forget about the suitcases. Picking up several bags and the computer bag on the seat, I grabbed Paige and turned towards the exit in the opposite direction of the crowd. Fortunately, most of the people were attracted to the front carriage, and there were only a few people standing at the door, stepping out of the carriage in the last few seconds before the door closed. Paige and I finally got off the train at the end of October. The evening in the north is extremely cold. As soon as I got off the train and was blown by the wind, I couldn't help shivering. The train behind us had already started moving again. I took a few steps forward, put the bag in my hand at my feet, squeezed my palms that were marked by the straps, and turned around. The carriage I had been in had passed by in front of us. As the carriage moved, this time I finally saw the reason for the noise and screams in the front carriage. A thin and small child was lying in the arms of a young flight attendant, biting frantically. The front of the flight attendant's body almost lost its human shape. The scene in the car window flashed by, but almost at this moment, the blood in my whole body seemed to freeze. I stood there, frozen, looking at the carriages that were passing by in front of me like a hell on earth. Finally, I couldn't help taking a step back and almost slumped to the ground. What is this? Zombies. Paige's stiff and slightly trembling voice sounded behind me. Let's go. Get out of here. I took a deep breath and managed to stand up from the ground. Not far away, there were still many people who had noticed something was wrong and, like us, had chosen to get off the train. Everyone silently rushed towards the exit. No one spoke, but they all quickened their pace simultaneously too. Paige and I dragged the few remaining pieces of luggage, got off the platform and turned into the exit passage. People from other platforms kept walking out in a hurry on both sides of the passage. The surging crowd soon squeezed the already narrow passage tightly. Paige and I had few luggage and walked faster. Before we knew it, we squeezed to the front of the crowd. Next to me stood a young man in a suit. He was holding his phone with a worried expression and was talking to someone on the other end. It was too noisy around, and I could only vaguely hear a few words. On the train, hurting people, suspended operation, city lockdown. When I heard the last word clearly, my heart was already pounding like thunder. There was so much sweat in my palms that I could hardly hold the plastic bag. The station passage wasn't very long. We followed the flow of people and soon reached the exit. There was already a small group of people gathered in front of the exit. I was wondering why these people were blocking the way and not leaving when I heard the continuous sting sound of the alarm at the ID card swiping area of the exit. What's going on? Why can't I swipe my ID card? What's the situation? Scolding sounds kept ringing out among the crowd, and my heart sank to the bottom little by little. Come this way, Paige suddenly whispered and pulled me to squeeze towards the side. I looked up in her direction. It was a manual ticket checking counter. Everyone's attention was taken away by the machine that couldn't swipe the card. Only a small number of people in the front row found that they could still pass through here. I followed Paige and stood in the middle of the queue. When it was almost my turn to check the ticket, a loudspeaker sound suddenly came from behind. Everyone, don't move. Stand where you are and don't move. Don't squeeze forward. At this time, I had already swiped my ID card. Looking at the half-open station door next to the staff member, I made up my mind and stepped out. Behind me, the sound of the station door closing and the complaints of the crowd were mixed together. With a few sharp whistles interspersed, I pulled Paige and walked faster and faster, not even daring to look back. Outside the exit, there used to be taxi drivers soliciting passengers and hotel owners, but today we didn't see a single person when we came out. Even the fried chicken shop and the beef noodle restaurant that were open 24 hours a day had turned off the lights and pulled down the roller shutter doors. I freed one hand to touch my neck and felt a handful of cold sweat. Just after we walked out of the station, the sounds of police sirens and ambulances came from the T-junction not far away. The next second, several cars with flashing lights rounded the corner and appeared in front of us. They surrounded the station. Countless people in white coats and protective suits got out of the cars and rushed into the station, pulling up a long cordon outside the station. The station was blocked. We didn't dare to stay nearby and quickly walked to the opposite side of the road. Looking at the blocked station on the other side of the road, I shivered and took out my phone. While sending a message, I dialed my mother's phone number, Mom. Before I could speak, my voice was already a bit choked. I stabilized my emotions and spoke again. Mom, listen to me. You and Dad should go to the nearby supermarket or market and stock up on some supplies now. You also need to reinforce the doors and windows, and don't go out again after you're done. My mother was a bit confused. Harper, what's going on? I told my mother what had happened on the high-speed train just now, afraid that my mother might not take it seriously. I emphasized the seriousness of the matter again and told my mother to pay great attention to safety. Finally, I hung up the phone under my mother's Admonitions. When Paige saw that I had finished the call, she turned to me and asked, "What should we do now? Let's go back to school." I looked at the crowded people on the street. I just asked the class monitor. The people at school haven't received any news yet. Compared with the urban area, the school should be safe for the time being. Moreover, we are more familiar with the school. Even if something happens, we have a place to hide. After that, I sent a message to my roommate Isabel, asking her to stock up on some supplies in the dormitory and wait for us. Paige and I stood by the roadside for more than 10 minutes, but we didn't wait for an empty car. The number of people queuing for a DD taxi had also reached more than 80. I checked all the car models, but still no car was willing to pick us up. Paige was so anxious that she paced back and forth. "Let's take the subway." I turned off my phone. We have no other choice. The newly built subway line 2 station was next to the railway station, not far from us. I had thought that there would be a lot of people at the subway station, but when we stood at the entrance, we were still shocked by the dense number of people at the subway station entrance. The crowd was so crowded at the entrance that it was a problem to get in and out. Several aunts carrying several bags passed by me, speaking in a local dialect with a nervous expression. I have studied in this city for 3 years. I can't say that I'm proficient in the local dialect of this city, but I can still understand simple conversations, the aunt said. "My son just called and told me to stock up on supplies quickly. I came out to buy things without even washing the dishes." "Oh, it's really scary." I pulled Paige back a bit and shook my head at her. "There are too many people on the subway. It's not safe to get on now. In case of an accident, we won't be able to run away." Just as we were worried, a private car stopped next to us. "Girls, are you going?" It's not easy to get a taxi now. The car window rolled down, and there was a girl in the passenger seat who looked like a student and was hugging her bag tightly. Paige and I looked at each other. After hesitating for a few seconds, we got in. The driver was a very enthusiastic middle-aged man and had been talking since we got in the car. "Hey, I don't know what's going on tonight. Several roads have been blocked, and many drivers have stopped picking up passengers and gone home. I was also going to go home. I'll go home after this trip for you. My son has called me several times with his mother's phone, urging me to go home." The driver smiled and told us how cute and talkative his 5-year-old son was, but I wasn't in the mood to respond to him. Isabel said that she was purchasing goods in the school supermarket and had already bought a lot of things. The sound of alarms kept passing by outside the car window, and the pedestrians on the road were all lowering their heads and fiddling with their phones. In a hurry, panic seemed to have enveloped the city and was gradually spreading. My school is far from the urban area, in Heppingtown. When we were almost at the school gate, it was already close to 11 o'clock. When we got out of the car, the driver told us to pay attention to safety. Recently, I closed the door and thanked the driver. When I looked up, I saw that the girl in the passenger seat was a bit strange. Her eyes were fixed on the front. The veins on her neck were bulging, and there seemed to be some red liquid oozing from between her tightly clenched fingers. Before I could react and remind the driver, the car had driven away, for it was almost the access control time, and there were hardly any people at the school gate. The familiar campus seemed a bit creepy under the cover of the night. We needed to pass by the library on the way back to the dormitory. However, the library, which always had its lights on, was now completely dark, and the glass door that should have been closed was wide open. I felt strange. Recently, the school had specially postponed the closing time of the library to take care of the seniors and sisters who were preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination. The library would never turn off the lights before the early morning. Why was the library already closed and the lights turned off before 11 o'clock today? Could it be that something had happened in the school too? I didn't dare to think further, so I had to carefully quicken my pace again. The dormitory wasn't too far from the library, and we soon arrived downstairs. The dormitory building was still silent, and there was no one in sight. Only the voice-controlled lights that turned on with our footsteps were shining with a faint light. Paige and I didn't dare to stay. We took 3 steps at a time and rushed to the dormitory door, trembling as we took out the key and opened the door. The dormitory was dark without the lights on, and there was a figure standing in the middle of the room, frozen in place. Scared me to death. "Shoo," coming quickly and closed the door. The figure spoke, and it was Isabel's voice. "I was just packing the things I bought just now. Why didn't you turn on the lights?" Paige turned around and closed the door, then put the bulging backpack on the chair. Isabel pointed downstairs and shook her hand at us. "It's the day of returning to school today. The lights will be turned off at 11:30. She pulled us to sit on the stools and said in a low voice, "As soon as you sent me the message, I went to the supermarket. I had just put the first batch of things I bought back in the dormitory and was about to pay for the second batch of things when a large group of people suddenly rushed in at the door. These people were very loud. I heard them discussing at the cash register. They said that the 3rd hospital next to our school." Isabel paused. "It seems that they brought in a few patients from the railway station. I heard them say that Several people were almost dead when they got off the car, but they suddenly moved again after being taken into the hospital. The news spread quickly, almost everyone in the school knows about it and they all went to grab things. Several supermarkets are empty. Fortunately, Harper sent me a message in advance asking me to go shopping. I had already made 2 trips before they reacted, otherwise we wouldn't even be able to grab a piece of ham sausage. Paige and I thanked Isabel and then turned to look at the things piled on the floor. Since the dormitory lights were off, we could only make out a rough picture by the light of the street lamps and the moonlight outside the window. Isabel was very meticulous. She had bought almost everything we could think of. Convenient foods such as instant noodles, bread with a long shelf life, ham, and biscuits filled the bags. I even saw 4 2-liter bottles of mineral water and a dozen bottles of Nonfu Spring at the door. There were a lot of things, enough for the 3 of us to last for a while. By the time we finished tidying up, it was almost 2 o'clock. The street lamps outside the window had gone out at some point. Leaning against the bed, I drifted off to sleep in a daze. 5. When I opened my eyes again, it was still dark. I clicked on my phone to check the time and it was 6:15. Outside the window, it was completely silent, and I could faintly hear a few barks of dogs. I slowly lay flat on the bed, and suddenly felt that everything last night was like a dream. Now that the dream was over, I should get dressed, wash up, and then go to the 8 AM class. Thinking like this, in a daze, I seemed to fall asleep again. Suddenly, bang, a loud noise came from somewhere. I was so startled that I suddenly opened my eyes wide and sat up. For a moment, I only felt a buzz dash of noise in my ears. I could only see Paige and Isabel opening their mouths in horror, saying something, but I couldn't hear anything. A few seconds later, my hearing recovered a bit. The car hit the flower bed, rear-end collision. Someone was hit and killed. In the buzzing noise, I faintly heard these words. Looking in the direction they were pointing, I realized that several cars parked on the open ground downstairs in the dormitory had crashed into each other. The frontmost car had crashed into the flower bed by the roadside. The front of the car was dented in a large area, and white thick smoke was constantly billowing out from the front of the car. Looking more closely, there were several people, whose genders were indistinguishable, lying in a pool of blood next to the front of the car, having been knocked flying. I took a step towards the window, trying to see clearly what was going on below. Unexpectedly, those students lying in the pool of blood stood up in an extremely distorted posture and ran towards the cars. The next second, the owner in the driver's seat was dragged out of the window. Screams resounded throughout the campus. I squatted down, trembling, and dared not look any further. The screams downstairs lasted for a long time. Paige and I closed the window and then drew the curtains, forcing ourselves not to pay attention. Come and look. Isabel, who was on the bed, was flipping through her phone with a serious expression. I leaned over to look at the screen. Isabel was scrolling through videos in the same city. Rear-end collision on the viaduct. Fire in Tsinghua district. Several consecutive videos were basically all of this type. Some people were complaining about why they couldn't take the highway, and some were that the supermarket downstairs had closed. I continued to scroll down and came across a live stream by a mom. The mom looked very worried, saying that her baby had been feeling unwell since coming back from kindergarten yesterday. The baby was crying and saying that he felt uncomfortable, with a sore throat and eyes. In the middle of the night, he even had a high fever. In the video, the mom pointed to her watch and said that she would change the baby's medicine at 7 in the morning. The video shifted and captured the sleeping boy behind the mom. The moment I saw the boy clearly, I was so scared that my breath caught. The boy was staring fixedly in the direction of the mom. His round eyes were with dark red bloodshot eyes. The bloodshot eyes extended from the eye sockets and almost covered his entire face. He let out a strange scream with his eyes wide open and pounced towards the mom holding the phone. Blood splashed onto the camera, and continuous screams came out. The next second, the live stream was blocked. Paige and I looked at each other and swallowed hard. In just one night, it seemed that earth-shattering changes had taken place in the city. All the shops were closed, and there were hardly any pedestrians on the road. All kinds of videos were constantly flowing out on the internet. The word zombie appeared more and more frequently, not only in this city, but also in many foreign countries. There were many similar news. The emotion of fear was spreading on the internet. Listening to the screams outside the window, I suddenly realized the zombie outbreak had really happened. 6 at 8 AM, the sun shone into the dormitory through the curtains. After I finished sending a message to my mom with my phone, I found that the battery of my phone was only 9% left. Out of habit, I plugged in the charger, but the phone didn't make the usual prompt sound. At this time, I noticed that the light on the bedside socket was off. No electricity. I suddenly realized something. I stood up and pressed the switch at the door, but the ceiling light in the dormitory didn't respond at all. Seeing this, Isabel exclaimed in a low voice, "Damn it, didn't the dormitory building turn on the power after turning off the lights last night?" After that, she paused. Could it be that the dormitory supervisor, Paige, and I didn't respond to her words, but we all knew clearly what she didn't finish saying. We had all seen clearly the tragic situation in the morning. The dormitory supervisor was likely to have met with an accident. Do your phones still have power? Paige had a serious expression. I shook my head. I still have 9%. Isabel also shook her head. I'm less than 20% left. This is bad. I understood what Paige meant. If there was no electricity in the dormitory building, we couldn't charge our phones. Without phone power, it was equivalent to losing contact with the outside world. In this way, we wouldn't be able to receive either rescue news or evacuation notices. In the current situation, this was a very dangerous thing. Isabel's tone was on the verge of collapse. What should we do? Don't worry, I comforted her. If really necessary, we'll figure out a way to go to the first floor and turn on the power ourselves. As the phone battery was getting less and less, I no longer dared to continue browsing the internet. After sending the last message to my mom to explain the situation, I adjusted my phone to low power mode. I don't know if it was my illusion. After what happened in the morning, I always felt that there was a faint smell of rust and stench in the air. Even the bread that Isabel handed me, I didn't have the appetite to continue eating. From time to time, there would be a few dragging footsteps outside the corridor. This sound was as if 2 legs were dragging 2 feet and sliding on the ground. It didn't seem like the sound a normal person could make. The 3 of us guessed that perhaps it was the mutated dormitory supervisor wandering in the building, or maybe the zombies downstairs had followed up, but anyway, we were safe for the time being, hiding in the dormitory. Just as I stuffed the last bite of bread into my mouth, I saw Paige raise her index finger to her lips and point to the door. Shoo! I listened carefully. There seemed to be footsteps coming from the corridor. The footsteps were getting closer, and there were also a few low-pitched conversations mixed in. Can your roommate really take us in? It was a male voice. Don't worry, she's very easygoing, and there are so many of us. As long as she opens the door, are we still afraid that she won't listen? When saying this sentence, the people outside the door might have just passed by near our dormitory. The girl's voice clearly reached our ears. The 3 of us looked at each other, and none of us said anything. Not far after these people walked away, several more footsteps suddenly came from the direction of the stairs. Pat, pat, dash. Pat, pat, dash. The sound was heavy, with ho-ho gasps mixed in. It was as if an old man on his last legs was dragging 1 foot and sliding on the ground with difficulty, but there was definitely no old man in the dormitory building. I suddenly remembered the footsteps that had been wandering in the dormitory building constantly this morning. It was a zombie. The zombie in the stairs didn't seem to have noticed the people outside the door yet, and its footsteps were still slow, but those people obviously saw the zombie not far away. There was a moment of silence in the corridor. The next second, the chaotic sound of running echoed in the quiet corridor. I had a bad feeling in my heart. Sure enough, the chaotic sound of running attracted the attention of the zombie. The zombie changed its previous slowness and dullness, let out an excited roar, and rushed towards the corridor extremely fast. My breath almost stopped, just when I almost thought that the scene of the zombies downstairs devouring people was about to be repeated in the corridor. Several loud barks of a dog suddenly came from the direction of the stairs. 7. The dog barks came in time. It could almost be said that they saved the lives of those people. The zombie was attracted by the dog barks. When it reacted, those people had already disappeared. This dog was also very smart. Seeing the zombie turn around to look for it, it turned around and ran away. After a while, no sound could be heard in the corridor anymore. Good dog. Paige nodded in praise. It's the yellow dog in our school, Isabel affirmed, leaving the cat's eye. They really should thank this dog for saving their lives. Time passed extremely slowly without a phone. I classified the supplies, pasted several layers of paper on the door crack and the glass on the top of the door. Only then did the sun outside the window set. The temperature difference between day and night in the north is extremely large. When there is the sun during the day, it can still be more than 10 degrees. Now that the sun has set and night has fallen, the temperature has actually dropped to 3 degrees. It's not the heating time at the end of October yet, and the dormitory is almost like an ice cellar. I huddled in bed under the quilt, but still felt my hands and feet were cold. There was no electricity in the dormitory, and I couldn't even get a sip of hot water. I had no choice but to get out of bed and put on 2 pairs of socks, and then I felt a little better. Why is it so cold this winter? No. It's still autumn. Paige lay flat on the bed in her autumn clothes and pants. You've been here for 3 years and you still don't know. We only have winter and summer here, no spring or autumn. I nodded in deep agreement. The sky outside the window had completely darkened. There was still no electricity in the dormitory building for lighting. I opened the curtains that I had drawn tightly in the morning again. The group of corpses downstairs had dispersed, and only 1 or 2 were wandering around alone. I hid by the window and took the opportunity to observe the habits of the zombies downstairs. Just then, I suddenly felt a shadow flash in front of my eyes. It seemed that something had fallen outside the window. Bang! A dull collision sound mixed with a scream sounded outside the window. My heart skipped a beat, and I leaned against the window and looked down. By the dim moonlight, I saw the girl lying on the ground with her limbs twisted. The zombies not far away were alerted by the movement, let out a roar, and rushed to the girl's side like crazy. The exaggerated sound of gnawing echoed in the quiet night. The girl didn't even have a chance to scream before she was devoured by the zombies. I don't know who upstairs shouted in a pinched voice. Someone jumped off the building. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw a red crew cut that hadn't had time to hide in the window on the 4th floor of 8, tossing and turning until midnight. My mind was full of the red crew cut and the half-eaten corpse of the girl by the zombies. I knew clearly in my heart, this red-haired boy was one of the group of people saved by the dog today. The girl who was thrown downstairs might be the roommate in the mouths of this group of people. The roommate might never have understood until she died why the people she had accepted would turn around and give her a fatal blow. She used her life to give us all the most precious lesson in life. Not everyone is worthy of help. Don't trust others too easily, and don't be too kind. The evil nature of human beings was vividly displayed at this moment. I lay in bed, staring blankly at the wooden bedboard above my head. For the first time, I felt that people were more terrifying than zombies. Suddenly, there were a few faint noises outside the door. I quietly got up, lay on the cat's eye and looked out, but saw nothing. After thinking about it, I pulled out a little of the paper block that I had just stuffed under the door crack and lay on the ground, looking out. It was a yellow dog that was running around in hunger. It seemed to know that it couldn't make a big noise now. It just sat pitifully in front of each dormitory door, wagging its tail. If this door didn't open, it would go to the next one. I thought for a while and divided a small half of my breakfast bread for the next day. To prevent the dog or anyone with ill intentions from knowing which dormitory was feeding it, I pushed the bread hard out of the door. The bread jumped out a long way and stopped in the middle of the corridor. Hearing the movement, the dog rushed over, picked up the bread, wagged its tail excitedly, and then ran away. I continued to sit on the bed, in a daze, without a phone. I couldn't know what the situation was like outside, whether the number of zombies had been controlled, whether my family was safe. The sky outside the window gradually brightened, and I just sat on the bed until dawn. 9. Perhaps the scene of the red-haired men killing someone last night was too shocking. Paige and Isabel were a bit silent today. I randomly stuffed a few mouthfuls of bread, took a few big gulps of water to wash it down, and then walked to the window, hiding in the blind spot of the view to start observing the outside world. This was currently the only way for us to get in touch with the area outside the dormitory. The girl who fell downstairs last night had been gnawed beyond recognition. Her stomach was emptied, and her limbs were scattered everywhere. I only took one look and felt my stomach churning. I quickly looked away and looked elsewhere. The open ground and the small garden downstairs in the dormitory were no longer their original appearance. The dried reddish-brown liquid was hanging on the dwarf bushes that had been crushed by the car. The number of wandering zombies was almost double that of last night. Looking around, it seemed that there were zombies everywhere. Just looking at this small area, the situation on campus should not be very optimistic. I closed my eyes, and just as I was about to leave, I saw a dormitory on the 6th floor diagonally above, tying a pack of sanitary napkins with a rope and lowering it to the 3rd floor directly below it. The girl at the window on the 3rd floor was quick-eyed and grabbed the swinging sanitary napkins in front of the window. But the rope tied to the sanitary napkins slipped down and floated downstairs. Paige was tinkering with her computer in the room. The computer still had power, but unfortunately, there was no internet. The main switch of the dormitory building was turned off, and the campus network couldn't be connected either. Paige lay on the bed and wailed, "I'm so anxious. What the hell is going on outside?" Isabel, who was sitting on the bed, threw over a pack of spicy strips. "There's no point in being anxious. Eat some spicy strips first." There was another extremely faint noise outside the door. I was chewing on the spicy strips and lay on the ground to look out. Sure enough, it was that little dog. This time, the girl in the dormitory opposite me had obviously also noticed this little dog. She opened the door a small crack and threw out a ham sausage. Perhaps it hadn't eaten meat for a long time. The little dog was extremely happy and circled around the ham sausage, looking at the little dog frolicking outside the door. The tense mood that had been maintained for several days suddenly relaxed a bit, with little exercise while hiding in the dormitory. The food was digested slowly. I didn't feel hungry until 9 p.m. Dinner was bread as usual. After the things that had happened in these 2 days, we finally realized the importance of staying vigilant in the apocalypse. After discussion, we decided to leave at least one person on night watch every night. I was the first one on duty tonight. After checking that the windows and curtains were closed, I pulled a chair and sat down beside the door. For some reason, I had been feeling extremely flustered since the evening. I always had a feeling that something was about to happen. I don't know how long I had been sitting there. Paige and Isabel had already fallen sound asleep. I raised my hand to look at my watch. It was 4:25, having not slept all night. My eyes were extremely dry, so I leaned against the door with my eyes closed and groped for half a bottle of remaining water beside me and took a sip to refresh myself. Before I could even put down the water bottle in my hand, I suddenly heard a strange Sound, knock knock, knock knock. The knocking on the door seemed particularly abrupt in the quiet night. I held my breath and leaned against the door, not daring to make the slightest sound. The sound lasted for nearly 10 minutes before it stopped, and the dormitory building returned to silence, but I dared not relax my vigilance. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. Who would be knocking on the door in the corridor at this time? Just thinking about it felt abnormal. Sure enough, within a few seconds, the sound rang out in the corridor again. Pat, pat, dash. It sounded like footsteps. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and finally stopped in front of our dormitory door. Knock, knock. The knocking on the door came to the outside of our dormitory. I swallowed hard and quietly lay down at the peephole to look outside. There stood a girl with teary eyes and blood all over her face. The girl seemed very scared, her body trembling and her mouth quivering as she looked around from time to time. Her voice was very soft. Through a door, I could only hear a general idea. She said, "Help me, please, help me." 10. If it were before the end of the world, I would definitely open the door immediately to help her, but now it was the end of the world with zombies running amok in humanity. I dared not and could not bet the lives and safety of the few of us. What's more, a vivid example was right in front of us. The body of the girl who jumped off the building still had a part remaining. Downstairs, just to be on the safe side, I slowly lay down on the ground, moved aside the note at the door crack a little, and looked outside through the door crack. There were 4 pairs of shoes outside the door crack, but I was very sure that just now when I looked through the peephole, I only saw one girl. That meant that the owners of the other 3 pairs of shoes were hiding in a place where the peephole couldn't see, waiting for an opportunity to act. A drop of cold sweat trickled down my forehead and into the corner of my eye. I squinted my stinging eyes and blocked the door crack again. The people outside knocked for a long time and, seeing no movement, cursed in a low voice and stopped knocking. There was no movement outside. I let out a soft sigh and was just about to turn around to get the water bottle on the table when I suddenly felt something was wrong. It was too quiet outside. Logically speaking, when they left, they would more or less make some noise, but after the knocking on the door disappeared just now, no more sound came from outside. I froze in place, and the hand I had stretched out retracted again. Sure enough, within a few minutes, a few extremely small sounds came from outside again. No sound, really no sound. There's no one in this dormitory. Okay, write it down. There's no one in this dormitory. We don't need to come here later. Damn it, what a waste of time. Let's go to the next one. Chaotic footsteps sounded outside the door. They didn't walk far before they stopped again. They went to look for the next target. I unscrewed the mineral water on the table and took a big gulp. Only then did I feel my wildly beating heart calm down a bit. As someone who had lived for more than 20 years, and the most dangerous thing I had ever encountered was when I got 9 points in a physics exam as a child and was locked in the bedroom by my mother and severely beaten. When facing a group of murderers who had just killed someone for the first time, I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The faint knocking on the door was still ringing in the corridor this time. However, the dormitory that was knocked on made a decision completely opposite to mine. They shouted outside through the dormitory door, asking, "What's wrong with you?" In an instant, I seemed to hear the excited heavy breathing of 3 boys outside the door. The conversation between them later was much quieter, and I couldn't hear it clearly. I only knew that not long after, the sound of a steel door being pulled open came from the corridor. The moment the door was opened, a girl let out a short scream, but was quickly covered her mouth, leaving only sounds. The door was quickly closed heavily. The girls in that dormitory didn't make any more sounds. Paige and Isabel got up very early. I told them what had happened last night. Isabel covered her mouth in shock. Paige just frowned and sighed. "That means this group of people are now on the same floor as us." I nodded. I knew what Paige was worried about, judging from what these people had done in the past few days. They were not good people. If we were targeted later, it would be a very dangerous thing. However, I noticed last night, I said, they stayed outside the door for so long and made so much noise, but they didn't encounter any zombies. That means the number of zombies in the building is not very large for the time being, or rather, there aren't always zombies in the corridor. At least there were no zombies on our floor last night. Paige, while wiping her glasses, said, "If that's the case, then our plan to go to the first floor to turn on the power switch can be carried out." Isabel also agreed. "It's too dangerous not to get news from the outside world and not be able to contact the outside world." Having made up our minds, the few of us decided to observe for a few days and then take action. The sky gradually darkened. I stood by the window, looking out at the dense group of corpses downstairs. In just one night, the number of zombies had almost doubled again. I could smell the strong and pungent stench of decay even standing upstairs. Paige brought me a piece of instant noodle cake and patted me on the shoulder, motioning for me to go and take a break. As I walked to the bed, eating the cake, I suddenly felt that there seemed to be something missing in the corridor today. After thinking for a while, I remembered there was no sound of the little dog today. 11. Another Horizontal line was added to the wall to mark the days. I counted. Today was already the 6th day we had been hiding in the dormitory. During this time, many students wanted to leave the dormitory building to search for supplies elsewhere, but most of them couldn't even get out of the building door before being devoured by the zombies downstairs. From time to time, screams came from various corners of the campus these days. We had changed from being terrified and palpitate when we first heard them to being used to them. The tap water in the independent bathroom of the dormitory had decreased a lot compared to before. And sometimes there was even a water cut. Maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, the water might completely run out. Most of the stocked up food had also been eaten, and the remaining food was only enough for us to hold out for 2 or 3 more days. Looking at these things, a sense of crisis spontaneously arose. If we didn't do something, our fate was likely to be starvation. Fortunately, through these days of observation, we had roughly determined some of the habits of the zombies. During the day, zombies have excellent vision and hearing. The slightest abnormal noise will attract their attention, but at night, the vision of zombies will be affected to a certain extent, and they basically can only act by hearing. Based on this information, we decided to take action at night. The campus at night was already dark, and the dormitory corridor where the moonlight couldn't reach was even darker. As long as we were careful, there was a high possibility that we could survive. To prevent the shoes from making a sound when rubbing against the ground, we wrapped 2 layers of cloth around our shoes. We also made 3 sets of simple armor from cardboard boxes and put them on our bodies. After making all the preparations, we sat on the chairs, quietly waiting for night to fall. I don't know how long we waited. When the sky outside the window just showed a little darkness, I suddenly seemed to smell a hint of the smell of cooked meat. I couldn't describe this smell. I just felt that the saliva in my mouth began to secrete uncontrollably. I'm hallucinating. I seem to smell that someone is cooking meat somewhere. Paige sniffed and shook her head seriously. It's not a hallucination. Someone is really cooking meat. Cooking meat. The 3 of us looked at each other and suddenly felt a little creepy. We were living in the dormitory building. Who would stock up on meat and cook it in the dormitory? Something was churning in my stomach. I covered my mouth and nose, not daring to think further. Crazy, everyone is crazy, Isabel murmured, her lips trembling. The smell of cooked meat was wafting farther and farther, becoming more and more intense, but to me, it seemed even more disgusting than the stench of the zombies. Finally, the sky outside the window completely darkened. I pulled out the paper block that was stuck to the door crack, took a deep breath. Slowly, I opened the door crack. Outside the door, there was a death-like silence, only the sign of emergency exit. At the end of the corridor, at the stairs, was shining with a faint green light. By this faint green light, I roughly scanned the corridor. I didn't find any trace of zombies, so I turned around and made a gesture to Paige and Isabel, indicating that they should get ready to go out. To prevent any sudden situation where we wouldn't have time to open the door later, we inserted a key into the door. The key was hidden in the dark, and people who didn't know wouldn't be able to find it at all. Gently closing the door, the 3 of us crouched and walked along the wall, towards the emergency passage. Not far away, the corridor and the dormitory were only separated by a door, but it seemed like 2 different worlds. The corridor was not well ventilated, and the smell of rust and decay in the air was almost tangible. The ground was covered with reddish-brown unknown liquid, and some of the liquid hadn't even completely dried. Enduring the nausea, we walked for a few minutes and finally reached the stairway. 12. The stairs from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor were pitch black, and we couldn't see what was below. The 3 of us stood at the stairway for a while. After confirming that there were no strange sounds downstairs, we turned the corner and went downstairs. We still didn't encounter any zombies on the 2nd floor, but the stench of decay in the air was even stronger. I somewhat regretted not wearing a mask earlier. At least it could block some of the smell. Holding my breath, I walked to the corner of the stairs on the 1st floor. Paige suddenly raised her hand to stop us. She motioned for us to walk close to the wall and not to approach the stairs at the corner. I was a bit confused. When I walked to Paige's position, I couldn't help but take a look. A thin, boned girl with disheveled hair was standing quietly beside the stair railing. In an instant, I felt my scalp go numb. Looking down further, I could only see the stair railing and couldn't see her lower body. This was a dead person whose lower half of the body had been gnawed off by zombies. I don't know how she died here, but judging from her tragic state, I could imagine how painful her experience had been. I closed my eyes and dared not look at her anymore. The dormitory supervisor's room and the power control room were in the same room, on the right-hand side of the stairway. I asked the 2 of them to observe the situation in the corridors on both sides, and I walked to the door of this room, preparing to open it. This trip was a bit too smooth to be real. I squeezed my hands, which were trembling with excitement, and reached out to pull the door, but the door didn't move at all. It's locked. The moment this thought flashed through my mind, I left the door and looked for other ways. I remembered that on the side of this room, that is, in the direction facing the dormitory building door, there was a window. This window was always open and basically never closed. I groped in the direction I remembered, sure enough, on the side wall, I saw a half-opened window. Here, I waved to them and led the two of them to stand in front of the window. The window was very low and easy to climb over, just to be on the safe side. Before climbing in, I poked my head in and scanned the room. Although it was a bit difficult to see clearly, I could still tell that there was nothing moving in the room. The three of us climbed over one by one and soon saw the distribution box in the corner. Victory was just ahead. Pulling down the power switch, we could contact the outside world and get news from the outside. Suppressing my excited mood, we found the floor corresponding to the power switch. Shwa. The moment it was pulled down, a dazzling white light lit up in the room. I covered my eyes and hid beside the window. It took me a while to get used to the bright light, putting down my hand that was covering my eyes. I was just about to turn around and say something to the two of them. As soon as I opened my eyes, I suddenly met a highly decayed face. It was the dormitory Ant 13 facing this face with protruding eyes and half of the face missing. I was at a loss for a moment. Fortunately, my hand was faster than my mind. I quickly closed the glass window in front of me tightly, but the ant had already noticed this bright little room and us in the room. She let out excited roars and struck the window, across the glass. Click! Fine lines appeared on the glass, with the zombie ants more and more violent impacts. The lines spread wider and wider. Just as the glass seemed unable to hold on and was about to break, the thick curtain of the dormitory building door was suddenly pushed open by several swaying figures. Zombies. They were all zombies. Go, 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 hurry up, go through the door. I was so shocked that my voice changed tone. I pushed Paige and Isabel and rushed towards the door. The moment I opened the door, I heard a clear sound coming from behind. Click, the glass finally broke. A large number of zombies heard the sound and saw the light and rushed towards us. When I stepped out of the door, I looked back. Dozens of zombies were stuffed in the narrow window, desperately trying to squeeze in. Seeing me looking at them, as if inspired, they opened their blood-stained mouths at me, bared their teeth and smiled, and with a push, squeezed in through the window. I felt as if my scalp was exploding. I grabbed Paige behind me and rushed forward. Run. Zombies were extremely fast, and we didn't dare to slack off at all. When I gasped for breath and climbed up the last step of the third-floor stairs, my lungs almost seemed to explode. Fortunately, the dormitory was right in front of us. As long as we entered the dormitory, we would be safe. My legs were so heavy as if they were filled with lead. I had never felt that the corridor I had walked for 4 years was so long. Finally, I touched the dormitory door, twist the key, push the door, close the door. It was done in one go. Leaning against the dormitory door, I slumped to the ground, looking at the two people lying on their backs across from me, panting like broken fans. I couldn't help but laugh. Cough cough, I'm so tired. Leaning against the door that was being slammed by several chasing zombies, I actually felt extremely at ease. The power switch of the dormitory building was turned on, and finally we could use electricity. I plugged in my phone, which had been turned off for a long time, and watched as the startup screen appeared on the phone. I finally let out a sigh of relief. 14. Since the phone hadn't been turned on for a long time, push messages popped up one after another. Looking at the constantly popping prompts, my heart sank deeper and deeper. Zombie crisis breaks out across the island nation. Riots break out in many places in the city. 234 cities across the country are under lockdown, including communication is damaged. Stay at home for safety. The severity of this zombie disaster was several times more serious than we had imagined. The scope of the disaster almost affected the whole world. Its terrifying aspect was that it broke out among the residents of various countries. Residents didn't have powerful weapons, facing zombies that were several times faster and stronger than themselves. They could only wait for death. People like us who had made preparations in advance and hid were after all a minority. More people died on the way to escape. I opened the chat box with my mother again. My mother had been sending me messages and calling me a few days ago, but suddenly there had been no news since yesterday. I was extremely flustered and quickly replied with trembling hands, "Sorry, the number you dialed is not in the service area. Sorry, the number you dialed is not in the service area. Sorry, the number you dialed is not in the service area." I repeated the same action, not knowing how many times I had called. Harper, Isabel held my hand. "Don't be nervous. Maybe there's a problem with Auntie's network. No, Auntie will send you a message no matter what she does. If she really encounters danger, she will definitely tell you. Don't scare yourself." I comforted myself. I hope so. The information on the internet was very mixed. Apart from official announcements, most were stories about people encountering zombies. There were videos and posts. I scrolled down one by one. Unknowingly, the sky outside the window brightened. This operation allowed us to learn about what had happened in the outside world these days, which was also a good thing. The group of zombies outside the door had dispersed at some point. I put down my phone, rubbed my eyes, and went to the balcony to rest. There seemed to be more zombies downstairs than yesterday. Looking at the somewhat dull group of corpses downstairs that hadn't been stimulated, I suddenly felt a bit confused. The horizontal lines on the dormitory wall used to mark the days had more than doubled. We had been hiding in the dormitory for almost 20 Days, the tap water pipes in the bathroom had run out of water a few days ago. Even though we had been frugal these days, there were only 2 breads, a pack of instant noodles, and a bag of biscuits left. Fewer and fewer people were speaking on the internet these days, refreshing many times a day. No one seemed to be talking. The network also started to be unstable. Some people in the dormitory building couldn't bear it anymore, and small groups kept going out to look for a way out. Most people died in the building or downstairs before they could even go out. Only a few people managed to break through the group of corpses. The group of zombies was constantly being replenished and becoming more and more massive. I leaned against the door and by the window. I became more and more desperate day by day. Sometimes I even thought, could it be that there are only the 3 of us alive on this campus? We had once fantasized that we could wait for the rescue team, but judging from the current situation, could we really wait for them? 15. Today's dinner was instant noodles. The 3 of us shared a pack of instant noodle cakes. The noodles were a bit dry, but at least they could fill our stomachs. While we were eating, the phones of the 3 of us suddenly rang at the same time. When we opened it, it was a message. The message wasn't long, but my eyes only saw rescue. Paige, who is always calm, also suddenly stood up. I nodded and repeated, rescue. The message says that the country we'll send a rescue team to rescue the survivors. The rescue time will be given later. Survivors need to use all kinds of means to create a distress signal as much as possible during the rescue. Isabel's voice was choked with sobs. We're saved. We're saved. We didn't know what to say, just repeated this sentence over and over again. Suddenly, people started sending messages in various campus groups that had been silent for a long time. Is there anyone still in the school? Has everyone received the message? Soon someone replied to this message, yes, damn. I thought there were no living people in the school. More and more people were speaking in the group. Looking at the chattering crowd, my hands were shaking with excitement. To ensure that everyone could know, someone pulled everyone who was scattered in various groups into the same group. Is there anyone who hasn't joined the group yet? Living classmates, pull each other in. We don't know when the network will be cut off. Let's get to the point. This person was very smart. Knowing that the rescue team would probably arrive in our area 3 days later at night, in order to let the rescue team find us as soon as possible, he asked everyone to use lights to shine the distress signal SOS at night. It could be electric lights, desk lamps, or flashlights. Our only goal was to be discovered by the rescue team. Everyone unanimously agreed with his proposal. Everyone excitedly agreed, saying that they would definitely do it on the premise of ensuring their own safety. After agreeing on the method, all we needed to do was wait. Perhaps because there was hope, the waiting time seemed to pass a bit faster. I seemed to hear some sound in my sleep. I woke up suddenly and looked at my phone. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was completely silent all around, and even the breathing of Paige and the others was very soft. I listened intently for a few more minutes, but there was still no sound. I thought perhaps I had been dreaming. Just then, from the direction of the door, a slight noise suddenly came. Clang, clang. The sound was extremely small. You couldn't hear it at all if you didn't listen carefully. I got out of bed wearing only socks and quietly walked to the door, putting my ear against it. It seemed that someone was trying to open the door. The key was wrong, and they couldn't open it no matter what. Damn it. The person outside the door cursed in a low voice, and there was no more movement. I waited for a few minutes, seeing that there was no more sound outside. I thought this person had left, but suddenly, I smelled a very faint smell of blood. I was puzzled and lay down at the peephole to look outside. I saw a boy with a crew cut squatting in front of the opposite dormitory door, pouring a bottle of liquid into the door crack. I instantly understood the intention of the person outside. Zombies were extremely sensitive to the smell of blood. He was using blood to attract zombies to attack the opposite dormitory. While I was stunned, the person outside spoke again. I know there are people in this dormitory. You still dare to pretend there's no one. All of you die. As soon as the voice appeared, the image of that red-haired boy immediately came to my mind. The boy's voice was crazy. If I kill you, I can hold out until they come to rescue me. As long as I kill you, the group of zombies will be here soon. You wait to die. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a commotion on the stairs. Just by listening to the sound, it could be judged that the number of this group of corpses was definitely not small. Blood had a natural attraction to zombies. The zombies in the corridor and on the nearby stairs smelled the smell and rushed here. Finding that the source of the smell was behind this door, they slammed into the door like crazy. The girls in the opposite dormitory were so scared that they screamed, but this excited these zombies even more. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. I only knew that more than 10 minutes later, a loud noise came from outside the door, and then, the girls' screams disappeared. 16. Crazy. Isabel was so angry that she was almost out of control. We were clearly about to be saved. Why did he still harm others? I remembered the figures of the few people who had gone to the opposite dormitory to search for supplies this morning and knew why they did it. They should be out of food. 3 days isn't a long time. Even if they don't have food, they can endure it. But what if they ran Out of food a few days ago. Paige frowned and nodded. That makes sense. Will they harm others again? Isabel gritted her teeth. Whether they will do such a thing again or not, they shouldn't be left alone anymore. I looked at the phone on the table, and a plan gradually took shape in my mind, judging from last night. Zombies were extremely sensitive to external stimuli. With their increasing numbers, they could even break down the door. This showed that the dormitory wasn't absolutely safe either. As long as we could find something to attract the attention of the zombies, it wouldn't be difficult to fight back against that group of people. Besides being sensitive to blood, zombies were also very sensitive to sound. We didn't have blood, but with a phone, we could create sound. As soon as I thought of it, I did it. I turned off the mute on my phone, turned the volume to the maximum, and taped it up with wide tape. It wasn't until evening that I found an opportunity when there were no zombies in the corridor. I remembered the source of the sound when those people closed the door and returned to the dormitory this morning. Following my memory, I crouched down and firmly taped the phone to that door with tape. Finally, when it was night, Isabel, holding her phone, excitedly dialed my number. Ugly instantly resounded through the corridor. The sound was so loud that I almost didn't hear the group of corpses approaching. The roars of the zombies outside the door and the curses of those people were mixed together, and I actually felt extremely happy when they killed those innocent people. Did those people feel as desperate as they did now? 17. The screams lasted all night. When the sky was just getting light, the zombies outside the door gradually left. I didn't want to go out again, but Isabel insisted on waiting until all the zombies had dispersed and going to their dormitory to take a look. We agreed to just take a look and then leave, so I agreed to accompany her. Before we even entered the door, we smelled a pungent stench of blood. Walking further in, we saw half a body hanging on the left-hand bed. The owner of the body was already completely dead. Just looking at the scars on his body, one could tell how painful his death was. I turned my head and didn't want to look anymore. I went to pull Isabel's arm to leave. As soon as I turned around, I saw a piece of yellow fur hanging on the wall at the door. The fur was very complete, and there was still a lot of blood on it. Not knowing whose it was, I trembled with my lips, thinking of that missing little dog and the smell of cooked meat that night. Pulling Isabel, I quickly returned to the dormitory. I couldn't help but start retching against the door. The little dog had once saved their lives. Really, beasts. 18. Time quickly came to the third night, as the first light outside the window turned on. We also turned on the light at the dormitory door. 3 short flashes, 3 long flashes, 3 short flashes. All the flashing lights outside the window followed the sequence on and off. It was quite spectacular. Even when we were taken out of the dormitory building by the rescue workers, I still felt a bit unreal. These more than 20-day experiences seemed like a nightmare. When the dream woke up, I was still a college student about to graduate, sitting in the car and looking at the tragic scenes along the way. I realized how lucky we were to have survived in the dormitory for more than 20 days. There were hardly any living things on the road. I'm a bit scared. He seems to be about to jump up from the ground. The doomsday scenes depicted in movies are far less than 1% of the reality. The car soon drove into a temporary base. The rescue team members said to wait. After searching for all the survivors, they would take us to the safe base. This crisis was global. Many countries had completely fallen. The country had made a lot of efforts to avoid following in the footsteps of those countries. In the early morning of this day, I ate the first hot steamed bun in more than 20 days. The moment my teeth bit down, the malt fragrance burst in my mouth. At this moment, I felt that I was still alive. I ate a steamed bun with tears in my eyes. Since the outbreak of the zombies, I felt relaxed for the first time. When the rescue team sent us away, I begged them to let me stay in the team and become a member of the rescue team. I still hadn't found my mother. The rescue team finally agreed to let me stay, they said, with one more person in the rescue team. Perhaps one more person could be saved. As long as people were alive, there would be hope. The more people were saved, the greater the hope would be. As long as we didn't give up, the suffering would eventually pass. On the day I sent Paige and the others away, Paige handed me a little dog keychain. She said she knew that I often fed that little dog at school. She knew that this little dog had saved many people in the building. She gave me this keychain, hoping that the little dog could always be with me and help me save more people together. I held the keychain and watched them leave. I put the keychain into the inner pocket of my clothes. I would carry this little dog and start our new mission.